Hello, this is Ashun. What if the night Naruto was born changed the fate of the entire shinobi world? In this alternate Naruto story, the Ninetales attack takes a completely unexpected turn. As Minato attempts to seal the Kyuubi inside his newborn son, Pain summons the Gedo Mazo, but something goes terribly wrong. The statue awakens, and instead of simply capturing the Ninetales, it begins consuming the beast's chakra. Inside the newborn Naruto, something ancient awakens. Kaguya Otsutsuki. The rabbit goddess was supposed to be humanity's greatest enemy, but after entering Naruto's body, she discovers something she never expected. Her song carries the soul of her beloved child, and for the first time in centuries, Kaguya remembers what it means to be a mother. Instead of taking Naruto's body, she changes him. She uses her karma seal to transform him into a true, full-blooded Otsutsuki. Silver hair, pale skin, the Byakugan, and the mysterious black diamond sealing the power of the Ten Tails within him. But Kaguya doesn't leave her son alone. She orders the third Hokage to take Naruto to the Hyuga clan and make sure he is treated like royalty. There, Naruto grows up beside Hinata, and unlike the lonely Naruto everyone knows, this Naruto has a family, a mother watching from inside his mind, a powerful clan protecting him, and a girl who refuses to let anyone come between them. But Naruto is not simply a strange child with powerful eyes. He possesses Kaguya's memories. He learns the secrets of the Otsutsuki. He awakens the Tenseigan, and eventually discovers a power known as Celestial Chakra, a power that could change everything. Because Kaguya knows something Naruto does not yet understand, the other Otsutsuki will eventually come for them, and when they do, the shinobi world may discover that the boy raised by the Hyuga is not a Jinchuriki they can control. He is the son of the Celestial. Interesting? Well then, sit back, relax, and enjoy listening.
Chapter 1, A Change in Destiny. Anne. Hi, Ria here. This is a side project I am working on as well whenever I feel bored on my other project. I took the time to read through all my Naruto and Boruto manga. It made me realize how hard they nerfed Kaguya. Despicable in my opinion. I know a lot of people aren't fans of Boruto, but it adds a lot of context to the Otsutsuki. Before I describe my story beginning I have here for you today, I want to point out some things as well as some changes I am making or planning to make. 1. Kaguya is the Jubi 10 Tails. It happened because she merged with the tree. The Gedo Mazo is her corpse, and her chakra was broken into the other Biju. This is not a change, this is a fact. A fact that not even her sons understood when they sealed the Jubi. 2. Otsutsuki have something called karma seals, little diamond marks that they use to reincarnate by implanting others with them. This transforms the host's DNA and beings into perfect Otsutsuki so the Otsutsuki can take over their hosts' bodies. This is also a fact and is the main plot point of Boruto. Read the manga, don't watch the show and you'd enjoy it. The Otsutsuki can be parasitic and live in hosts through the karma marker in the brain, depending on how they want. Think the anime manga Parasite. 3. The tailed beasts are sealed into the Gedo statue in order to prevent it from destabilizing. This is what the translated version says, but most people assume that the statue would crumble. A premise of this story is a different type of destabilizing, such as waking up Kaguya from the intense rush of chakra, making her uncontrollable for pain. This could be seen as a change from me, but honestly, they were super vague in the manga and didn't really focus on the Gedo statue's history or how it properly worked. So I'm giving it a definite direction. 4. Boruto fact that is relevant, Kaguya and Ishiki came to the planet at the same time. Ishiki was killed by Kaguya and fed his corpse to the tree, causing it to grow and produce fruit. Kaguya then ate the fruit and started to produce an army of white Zetsu to fight off any Otsutsuki that would come to the planet to protect the humans. She did go crazy from eating the chakra fruit, but she wasn't a homicidal maniac like they make her in Naruto. Twisted, yes, but remember that her morals are different compared to a human. 5. Kaguya hates the other Otsutsuki after arriving to this world. This is a fact. 6. In Shippuden, Kaguya would not have tried to kill Naruto and Sasuke if Black Zetsu didn't steal her will to do so. This point is a big reason of why this story is happening the way it is. This is a personal canon that I get behind. 7. Kaguya never used a karma seal, for whatever reason, and they never answered why. 8. Kaguya has the Tenseigan. You can't tell me she doesn't, I won't believe you. I think they nerfed the shit out of her in the final fight, to be honest. Her children got certain aspects of her abilities, her son Homura gaining the Byakugan line directly from Kaguya. Most royal Otsutsuki have a special dojutsu that is their own, but most seen Otsutsuki have Byakugan for the most part. The Tenseigan has to be her special dojutsu, since the Rinasharingan came from eating the chakra fruit. There is no way her son just got better eyes than her, when the eyes came directly from her. Those are points to keep in mind for now. I will expand on these or add more points at a later time as they become important or are asked about. The description of this story is simple. What would happen if Pain was also involved the night of the Kyuubi attack? This is a telling of how I would see things happening, the end result being the Gedo Kaguya ending inside of our young Naruto. He will grow up like this, and you get the unique interactions of Otsutsuki Naruto. He will be around Hinata a lot during his growth and, without the pressure Hinata has to deal with due to certain things, I intend her to be the outspoken brash version of herself when it comes to Naruto, Road to Ninja style. What would instill confidence faster than having a prince showing you affection? Yes, she is probably gonna get real ignorant every now and then, but honestly it made me laugh thinking about it, so Ima keep it. Okay, I'll shut up and let the story speak. Please review and let me know what you think. If I should keep this going or not too. End of N. Ria out. Fire loomed in the distance, showing how much destruction the nine-tailed fox inflicted on Konohagakure. Exhausted from fighting off a masked man that threatened not only his newborn, but also had the balls to extract the 9 tails from his wife, Minato Namikaze's mind was racing. There is no way to get rid of the fox in a practical way. His wife, the now former Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, was now on the verge of death since it was extracted. She had a couple more minutes at best, a fact he was trying desperately to not think about. Looking at her, Kushina was just as desperate to come up with a solution. This fucking fox, why must you do this to my family? There was only one solution, and he didn't want to do it. He had to seal the fox in his newborn son. His precious baby boy. He would be a hero, but as the 4th Hokage, Minato knew better. They would never give the boy the treatment he deserved, no matter what he was about to tell his wife. Kushina, there is only one way to protect the village. I have to seal the 9 tails into Naruto. Minato pre-flinched, knowing the wrath his wife, even dying, would deliver upon hearing those words. What the fuck did you just say? Kushina spoke those words in a monotone way, something so different from her passionate and expressionate tone. Minato knew he had to persevere through the shivers her words gave him. The 9 tails can't be stopped any other way. He will be a hero to the village and carry on our legacy. Kushina, I could never force this burden on someone else's family, but our boy. Our strong son. He can do it, I know he can. Kushina looked up at him, but Minato knew how determined he looked right now. He could be just as stubborn as her in critical moments, and she knew that too. Fuck you for doing this, Kushina started to sob, but continued, I know. But please just let me see my baby in these final moments. Please Minato. Tears started streaming down his beautiful wife's already exhausted face. Intense labor while holding back a demon, getting said demon extracted from you, and now forced to seal that very demon in your son. Minato started to shake just thinking about it. He clenched his fists and steeled his resolve though. Forcing back tears, he wiped a few from his wife's face. I love you too so much, you know that. We need to start. Not far away. A set of Rinnegan eyes stared at the 9-tailed fox in all of its glory. Madara, or Tobi as he liked to be called, was standing only a few steps away watching the rampaging chakra creature. He was wounded and leaning against a tree, taking deep breaths. Pain was the first one to speak. So the 9 tails is free, but for how long? He was not sure about this plan, and was told that each tailed beast needed to be sealed in order, but one was right in front of him. Wouldn't it be foolish to not make a move now? Finally, Madara, or Tobi spoke. We've forcibly extracted it out of the Jinchuriki, but the Hokage managed to do some serious damage. We should retreat for now and wait for a better opportunity to arise later. Pain, without looking away from the Kyuubi, gained a much darker aura. So you mean to tell me you have caused pain without a purpose? No direction, only loss with no lesson is not why I agreed to work with you. I'm not interested in a shadow benefactor that doesn't know how to be prepared, Tobi. Tobi's Sharingan eye narrowed dangerously. And what do you plan to do? At that moment, golden chakra chains started to pierce the skies and wrap themselves around the Kyuubi. It buckled under the chains and started to collapse to the ground. Pain smacked his hands together. They mean to seal it again, Tobi. You will make us wait for who knows how long, even though you've created this opportunity. I mean to take the 9 tails. Fool. You know you can't just seal it. There are steps. Shut up. I will be the god of this world and I will do things as I please. I will give purpose to the pain you've caused today. Pain then slammed both hands on the ground. Summoning Jutsu. 200 meters away from the collapsed form of the Kyuubi, a giant wooden textured statue appeared. Its hands shackled together and held next to its face in a pleading manner, as if asking its jailer why it was being imprisoned. The blindfold over its eyes and gnashing teeth forever frozen in place. Its feet were together in a sitting position with its ankles shackled, a clear testament to all that whoever this was dangerous. Gedo Mazo, Pain spoke in a monotone voice. But something happened, something neither Pain nor Toby expected. As soon as the Gedo Mazo was summoned, the Kyuubi flared its chakra and tried to escape from its captor. The chakra, wisps of red, flicked at the Gedo statue in fear. And the Gedo statue opened its mouth and inhaled, almost as if the chakra was the first food it was allowed to eat in centuries. Pain looked on in shock as the statue suddenly woke up, as if breathing for the first time in its life, and looked with its eyes closed at the exact position of where the Nine Tails was. It started to stand, breaking its chains with a loud, high-pitched ching. It used a hand to help itself up, breaking its wrist restraints with another deafening ching. It then stood at its full height and started to walk to the Nine Tails. Almost instantly, the Kyuubi bristled and started to struggle. No. Get away. Let me go, humans. I will never attack anything ever again, but let me go. No, I'll kill you, let me the fuck out. Pain tried to call the statue using his Rinnegan, but immediately got a sharp pain in his head. Something was wrong, the statue wasn't listening to him. I can't control the statue. That's all Pain could say. You damn fool. You basically put dessert in front of it and you were trying to tell it to come back and have a damn salad. You possibly fucked up everything right now, and you better be ready for the consequences. Pain listened to Toby, but he was much more interested in what was about to happen. His partnership with Toby was still fresh and Pain wasn't fully committed to whatever the hell this plan was yet, so it was more interesting. Even if he could stop it, he wouldn't be honest to his partner and tell him that he had no intentions to stop anything anymore. Back with Minato. A claw came ripping through him and his wife. He would protect his son until his dying breath. He didn't know what kind of bullshit the Nine Tails was prattling on about behind him, but he couldn't turn around with a claw through his torso anyways. He was too committed at this moment. Kushina was saying her final goodbyes while Minato was flashing through hand seals at a fast pace before he dies. Reaper Death Seal. The Nine Tails still continued to shout. You fucking fools. That won't do anything against her. Honestly, fuck it. Seal me in the damn baby. You can seal all of me, just get me the fuck away fro Aok. All of a sudden, there was no struggle in sealing the Nine Tails, causing Minato to let the Reaper fade. The Nine Tails was willingly trying to get into Naruto. That scared Minato more than anything. Was something actually scaring the Kyuubi into willingly being sealed? Something isn't right, but I can't stop the sealing now. Minato struggled to turn his head and saw something that he would never forget. Aw fuck. Nanananu, please seal me faster. The Nine Tails had half of its body inside the mouth of a demonic-looking statue. Minato shook hard, causing him to grunt in pain from the claw. All of a sudden, an eye was opening on the giant statue. An half-lidded eye that looked directly at Minato sealing the Nine Tails. Into his son. It looked directly at his son. All of a sudden, it rose its long, wooden arm and then stretched its disgustingly wooden and bony finger to reach over Kushina and Minato. And poked right on Naruto's stomach where the Nine Tails was being sealed. A flash of light emerged from the baby's stomach and the long wooden hand retracted its finger, resting it on the Kyuubi's flailing head. Minato looked back at his son and saw a black diamond where his navel was. All of a sudden, the sealing happened faster. The gigantic wooden beast statue and the Kyuubi compressed and flew into Naruto's stomach, sealing them both in his baby boy. Confused, but still resolved, Minato made a gesture with his hand to his son's stomach. 8 trigrams seal. The symbol pulsed onto his stomach and Minato collapsed onto the floor with his wife. Kushina was dead already. Minato looked at his son on the sealing altar and saw the 8 trigrams seal start to fade, but it stopped and then started to get sucked into the black diamond on his stomach. He was shocked and had no idea what happened. He didn't want to leave like this, but his life was fading fast. I'm so sorry, my son, I think I have done something so much worse than I intended. If there is a God, I pray she takes care of you and gives you everything you need. The irony. Inside Naruto. All that was left was a red arm and clawed hand hanging out of its mouth. The statue choked down and swallowed what was left of the Nine Tails from behind the bars of the seal. A second later, the final swallow was heard. Gulp. Ha. A feminine and ancient voice reverberated through the halls of this young baby's mindscape. The Gedo Mazo's mouth opened with a small red tint of satisfaction above its massive, slightly open mouth. I was almost controlled again. Wretched humans. Suddenly the wooden statue, satisfied from the massive influx of what was once its own chakra, started to morph. The wood creaked and transformed until its form sat on its hind legs. A large rabbit was now in the statue's place. It stretched its 10 tails and looked at the bars and then chuckled. The large rabbit reached out with a paw and touched the bars that symbolized the 8 trigram seal and absorbed the seal. Finally, some semblance of freedom. I placed a karma mark on this vessel, so once the vessel is completely changed, I can shed this shell and leave it in here, and take this body. This is a newborn boy. Sigh. Not something that could be spotted at first glance with a barely open eye. The rabbit started to morph again and shrink. After a second, long silver hair was seen going past a woman's feet. A long white kimono-like dress spanned her entire body, and her hands barely peeked out beyond large open sleeves. Horns sat on her head that peeked out of her hair like wooden rabbit ears. She opened her eyes to reveal 2 white orbs. 2 circular, trimmed royal-style eyebrows sat above with a vertical slit sitting between them, like a closed eye. The woman then floated forward and started to expand her recently acquired chakra pool around her. He is a baby with fresh coils, so I should be able to accelerate the karma extraction. The woman pressed hard outwards and forced the karma mark on the baby to mature and develop this young vessel's genes. On the outside, Naruto sat there on his altar, suddenly twitching in his sleep. Suddenly the baby started to cry out and stretch its limbs. The tanned skin on him started to pale until his skin shade was equivalent to the pale moon in the sky. Naruto kept crying while his bright blonde hair started to fade and change into a silver, going from the color of the sun to the ambient flicker of the stars above. Back inside, the woman was surprised how fast the gene extraction from the karma seal was progressing. But something caused the woman to freeze up. She reached out and touched something with her chakra. It was just barely there, but it was still there all the same. The woman immediately stopped what she was doing and had tears rolling down her cheek. I almost killed my baby. This baby, I feel the soul of my children within. The woman began to audibly sob and fell onto her knees in the mindscape. She felt the echo of Hagoromo. Her son, her baby and this boy. The only difference was, this baby did not steal her chakra. If anything, it gave her chakra back. Because of the 9 tails chakra kickstarting her body, this child gave her sanity back to her. She was just about to kill this baby and take his body. This is the only child that has given and not taken away. Now this baby was about to have its mind assimilated. The woman stopped and tugged toward the karma seal. She broke the part of her reincarnation through the seal and kept the fact that it would give him knowledge. She would let the karma seal turn the boy 100% Otsutsuki, but he would be himself. He would be more her than even her sons she gave birth to. Not half-bloods like Hagoromo or Homura. This was going to be her genetic son all the way through. I'm so sorry, forgive me my child. Naruto is what they called you, correct? My name is Kaguya, and I am your mother now. The now identified Kaguya stared into the void of her child's void with a loving blush. Kaguya then sent some chakra through Naruto and sensed around the baby, not feeling anyone nearby. Kaguya huffed in annoyance. She was not about to let her son die like a stray in the middle of a destroyed forest. Her young prince was to live like royalty, but that cannot happen if he is never found. She then forced chakra out through his karma mark. On the outside, the baby Naruto, exhausted, laid asleep. All of a sudden, silver chakra started to seep from his stomach and formed a large ball above his sleeping form. Slowly, the chakra gained shape and turned into his new mother in a ghostly projection. Kaguya activated her Byakugan and peered into the woods in all directions. She caught the form of 2 figures in the distance to the east, one with Rinnegan eyes and one with a Sharingan. Kaguya scoffed at how far her genes had split to where the 2 dojutsu were separated. The 2 visibly flinched when they saw her look at them and they vanished. She then kept scanning and saw someone approaching rapidly from the west. An old human male in black. She felt a decent amount of chakra in him and considered taking it back from him. All chakra was hers, but she decided against it for now. Her son needed care. The old man suddenly broke out of the tree line and looked at her cautiously from a distance. His eyes gazed at her, then looked around at the destruction, then saw her son's old parents on the ground, then the baby she was floating next to. This was going to take all day, and Kaguya, as a royal, was not one to wait. Approach. You will help my son, or return to the earth in ash. The old man seemed even more shocked and puzzled, yet approached slowly and carefully. When he was a couple meters away he stopped and stood in a guarded position. He locked eyes with her. Who are you? It seems manners have vanished in this era, too. Is it not common decency to introduce yourself before asking after others? Kaguya snapped in a dangerous, yet regal tone. The old man stayed quiet for a second, but then spoke. Ah yes, where are my manners? My name is Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage of Konohagakure. May I please have your name, miss? What is a Hokage, Sarutobi? Kaguya asked curtly, ignoring his question in favor of her own. The Hokage clearly was more confused than before, but still responded. A Hokage is the leader of a village, the strongest shinobi in the heart of its people. Kaguya nodded, satisfied with this answer. It seems luck has not abandoned this child then. You will take my son here and treat him as the royalty he is. If you do not, I will know. If I know, then the tailed beast inside him will erase humanity from the history of this planet. Hiruzen was clearly taken aback by this declaration, threat, information. Hiruzen's mind started to race, calculating everything. The baby is the new Jinchuriki. Minato and Kushina are dead and I'm sure they sealed it into their own child, but who is this ghost woman saying that it is her son? But the baby looks more like her than them. This is your son here. May I at least know his name? You may. Naruto of the Otsutsuki. With how you use names, Naruto Otsutsuki. I understand the method of thinking you are struggling to use, so I will say this. This boy's birth parents are indeed this yellow and red pair. Kaguya willingly elaborated, waiting for what she said to sink into this old human's skull. Hiruzen took a second but nodded, knowing she was not finished. Due to a bond between us, however, she then gestured to Naruto, he is 100% genetically related to me. He is my son and will be treated as such. Hiruzen looked at Naruto, and almost by divine revelation, the young baby opened his eyes. Hiruzen's mouth hung open as he looked at White, clear eyes looking back at him. Naruto then giggled and cooed for additional cute points. Byakugan, the third Hokage muttered. Ah, so my eyes haven't faded into total obscurity over the years. You recognize our eyes? Kaguya asked, slightly pleased that her favorite trait was still around. Ah, why yes. The Hyuga clan is a clan from our village that is the bearer of the Byakugan. A very proud noble clan that prides themselves on these eyes. Hiruzen explained. Kaguya nodded approvingly, and I trust the Tenseigan have them as the strongest in this village of yours. Pardon my ignorance, miss. Tenseigan. The third had never heard of this dojutsu, but from what he could understand from this clearly old spirit was that it was some type of next stage, probably similar to the Mangekyo Sharingan. Kaguya's mood visibly got worse and she muttered something to herself about keeping the bloodline pure. So they only use the Byakugan they get at birth and never tried to go beyond that. Kaguya sighed, just bring my son to them and he will eventually show them what the next step is. Kaguya's attitude was audibly getting more irritated the more this conversation drew on. As I said, bring my son into an environment that he will be treated honorably. Perhaps amongst these descendant Hyuga, and if I don't like how he is treated, Kaguya left this threat open-ended, just to reiterate what she said when they started. Hiruzen took a second, yet nodded all the same. You still have yet to name yourself, miss. Kaguya giggled, a sweet bell-like noise. If I were to give you my name, humans of all creeds and customs would come to kill you for that knowledge. Just know I am an Otsutsuki. That is all but my son are allowed to know. After this statement, Kaguya's form started to flicker into chakra and went back into the diamond mark where the baby's navel would be. Hiruzen closed his eyes for a second, or maybe much longer. He was brought out of his thoughts by the coo of the baby Naruto. He opened his eyes and looked back into the cute baby's moon-like eyes. The third Hokage sighed, but then smiled. It looks like you may have a home and family yet, my boy. Hiruzen then gently wrapped the baby in the blanket around it, picked him up, then walked back to Konoha. 45 minutes later. Hiyashi Hyuga was now finished handing out emergency rations to the branch family members that helped fend off the Nine Tails. The village was in disarray, but the Hyuga compound was largely untouched. He made it into the main living area to rest for a second. Truly a miracle from Kami. The last thing he wanted or needed was his pregnant wife, Hifumi, to be injured. She was getting close to the time she would deliver, and the stress from the attack surprisingly didn't make her go into labor either. Nothing else could happen to make the silver lining on this day brighter. A branch Hyuga suddenly knocked and entered. Lord Hiyashi, the third Hokage is here on an emergency. He seeks an immediate audience. I jinxed this good moment, didn't I? Escort him here. Hiyashi gestured him away. Lord Hiyashi, he is already here. The branch member ran away after this revelation, seemingly knowing he would have been chewed out if he stayed. The sound of the third Hokage walking into the room echoed. Hiyashi, I have some Strange news. Whether it is good or bad is something you must decide. Lord Third, you walk in, no pleasantries, and tell me the most ominous things. Hiyashi couldn't help but chuckle at this. The third Hokage chuckled. I apologize, I'll elaborate. First, however, I have to ask a question, as this will determine the validity of the rest of what I have to say. The clan head raised an eyebrow. Please ask then. Does the family name of Otsutsuki have any meaning to you? The third asked. Hiyashi Hyuga thought for a solid half a minute, but then his clan history came to mind. Ah, yes. The Hyuga clan is actually descended from the Otsutsuki. Our ancestor is Homura Otsutsuki, the brother to the Sage of Six Paths. It is partly the reason of why we consider our clan respected. Hiruzen thought, and then spoke. So the Sage of Six Paths' family name was Otsutsuki if Homura Otsutsuki was his brother. Hiyashi nodded. That would be a sound assumption. Hiyashi just now noticed the blanket with something in it sitting in the third Hokage's arms, but before he could ask, the third continued. Would you have any physical descriptions of your ancestor? Hiyashi was starting to feel uncomfortable, but the opportunity to enlighten his former Hokage of his heritage is something the elders would actually compliment him on. Please follow me to the Hyuga council room. Hiruzen raised an eyebrow but didn't say anything, instead opting to follow Hiyashi. The clan head walked through the compound for a couple minutes before standing in front of a decent circle-shaped building farthest away from the center of Konoha. He slid open the door and saw the elder council all sitting there in their spots, discussing the recent attack and how it will impact the Hyuga. One elder turned and saw Hiyashi escorting the third Hokage. Ah, Hiyashi Dono, third Dono. May we inquire as to why you've visited us? It is very unusual for a Hokage to come visit us. Hiyashi spoke first. Lord Third would like to know of our ancestor, Homura Otsutsuki. He asked for a physical description of his visage, and the first thing that came to mind was our tapestry. Hiyashi then gestured to the sprawling tapestry against the wall, Descoret ng the area above the council. The council made an audible noise in reverence for their ancestor and they all looked up at the pictures. Another elder spoke. We thank you for taking interest in our clan, more than any other Hokage. For that, you have earned a great deal of respect from us. He gestured towards a picture in the middle of the tapestry, of a man standing on the moon. The elder gave Hiruzen some time to take a look, but his eyes locked onto another picture in the tapestry. One of the same man and what he assumed was the Sage of Six Paths sealing a woman into the moon. Long silver hair, horns, white dress, white eyes, but with a Rinnegan with Sharingan Tomo on her forehead. His first thought, aside from the third eye, this was 100% Naruto's mother. The elder then began the description of Homura. Skin as pale as the moon, hair as silver as the stars that speckle the sky, Byakugan stronger than any seen today. And the last name of Otsutsuki, the family name of the rabbit goddess. None can use this last name unless she herself bestows it on you. It is the reason why we are the Hyuga, and the reason why there is the Uchiha and Senju. Do you know the name of this rabbit goddess? Hiruzen prodded to see if he could get her name. Unknown to him, Kaguya giggled inside Naruto's seal. All of the elders shook their head. Her name is lost to time. I apologize, as she would be our ancestor too. This knowledge is something we believe Homura did not pass down. Hiyashi nodded and looked back to Hiruzen, who was staring at the blanket bundle. A bundle that was wiggling. A bundle that just cooed and giggled. Forgive me for not asking earlier, but may I ask, who is the child you are holding? The third sighed, but smiled again. Naruto. He took another breath, Otsutsuki. Hiruzen then turned the child to face Hiyashi. Moon-pale skin, silver hair, bright white Byakugan. Hiyashi would have fainted if three of the elders didn't beat him to the floor. Sarutobi then spoke. This, rabbit goddess, told me to bring him to you, to treat him as royalty. Hiruzen sighed. This is also an S-rank secret, but the boy is also a Jinchuriki. I'm having a weird feeling that it isn't the Nine Tails, however. His seal for that is gone and only a black diamond remains. As for emphasis, he undid the blanket slightly to show the diamond to the non-fainted members and Hiyashi. Believe it or not, she didn't disappear exactly, the chakra she was using to project herself went back into his diamond seal when she was done threatening me. The elders all awed in reverence of this baby. But something was off. She threatened you. She said that her son must be treated like his station of royalty or the tailed beast inside him will end humanity on the planet. She also said she'd know if the boy was treated poorly. The elder scoffed, but for a very different reason than what Hiyashi or Hiruzen thought. Of course he'd be treated as such. If he is the rabbit goddess's son, that makes him as pure-blooded as Homura. He will be raised as the new clan head. With him marrying any Hyuga, that would be more pure than the main branch. We hate to say it, but if he were to marry out of the clan, his child would still be the most pure-blooded in centuries. Hiyashi stared wide-eyed at this. You all really believe this? The elder replied as if it wasn't even a thought. Yes. In my honest opinion Hiyashi, he could tell us to kill ourselves and we would do it with joy in our hearts. The other elders thought about it for a second, but then nodded their head in agreement. Hiyashi finally realized why this damn group of elders were a pain in his ass. This type of bloodline fanatism is the reason why everyone thinks we are creepy. I see it now. Hiyashi sighed and just accepted what was happening. Okay, I will raise the boy as if he was my own son, but no, I have a child on the way with Hifumi. I highly doubt she would complain to my child having someone to grow up with. The elders all nodded their head in agreement, but the third had one last thing to say. I'm glad he will get a good life, but my deal for doing this is to not disclose his Jinchuriki status at all costs. You may tell him when you feel he is ready, but at no time is his status to be known. There is no known seal, so it should be hard to notice, but I guarantee his appearance will draw attention. His mother has horns for Kami's sake. We accept, the hive mind of elders all responded at once. We will teach the boy how to hide them if need be. Naruto just giggled and cooed. Hiyashi finally took Naruto and looked at him up close, noticing how cute the little boy was. He's going to be troublesome when he's older. Hiyashi smiled and used a finger to play with the baby, who kept giggling and getting cuter in his eyes. Hiyashi shook his head like it was some type of magic and mentally prepared for the very soon moment of introducing his wife to a baby they are going to be raising. Chapter 2, Young Years. And, hi everyone, Ria here. I hope you enjoyed the first chapter of Son of the Celestial. I saw a review wondering how the power structure will work, so I'll throw something out real quick. Kaguya is definitely powerful. She had some pretty busted abilities in her base mode, including the all-killing Ash Bone and the 80 Gods Vacuum attack. These attacks are sure kills, but you have to remember that being a ninja is not about just insta-killing your way through life. From that perspective, Kaguya has no subtle attacks. She can shoot her hair like needles in a more projectile version of Jiraiya's Needle Jizo. The most passive ways to use these abilities is to coat one's arms in those giant claws Kaguya uses, which is just her utilizing only 2 vacuum fists instead of 80. Her greatest weakness is being OP in that way. If you want to bring up her dimensional shifting and other abilities like she uses, that is only possible to use with the Rinne-sharingan, which only come from eating the chakra fruit of the god tree. Something that will be possible, but not for years. This Naruto has access to Kaguya's hair techniques, the Tenseigan, which has a slight gravity orientation, similar to the Rinnegan that it can push and pull from what I remember of the last movie, and the Tenseigan chakra cloak without the truth-seeking orbs, the Ash Bones, something he can't use unless going for kills, which isn't very often in the base Naruto arcs, and chakra absorption. He will not gain an affinity to a chakra type until he absorbs that type. He knows how to use the types from Kaguya's memories, but that doesn't mean he has access to that element. Small reminder that Kaguya is one of the fastest Otsutsuki, one of the reasons why Naruto will have a thinner frame as her male counterpart. Keep in mind too, he's with the Hyugas, so Bunny Boy does know the gentle fist. It should be fun to watch him work. He is still OP, but just some rules for him to keep things engaging, ya know. End of note, Ria out. It's been 3 years, and surprisingly, Hiyashi has no issues raising the Otsutsuki prince. He was an adorable little boy that always tried to be overly formal. That alone would have been cute, but it made it even better with the fact that Naruto sometimes stumbled over words that were clearly too big for his mouth. Hiyashi knew that formalities were beaten into the main branch, but watching his behaviors and mannerisms, it was almost like the kid had a sixth sense for being a royal. He knew Naruto would never admit it, but Hiyashi was mostly sure that the boy was talking and getting lessons from his bunny mommy, a name he heard the boy say in his room when he thought he was alone a couple days ago. Flashback. Hiyashi was walking the halls of the main branch house when he heard giggling from Naruto's room. The clan head rose an eyebrow and creeped toward the door, careful to not alert the boy with strong Byakugan. The sound of the young boy's laughter was perfectly clear as Hiyashi stood by the door listening. Naruto finished with his tiny laughing fit and started talking in a hushed tone. Don't worry, bunny mommy. I'll be perfect and make you happy. The boy let loose the brightest smile and hugged a small open scroll. On it was a portrait clearly drawn by the boy of what he had assumed to be the rabbit goddess. Bunny mommy. Hiyashi had to hold in laughter, but what struck him as weird was that the boy seemed to still be talking, as if in a conversation. I understand, but the ash bones make me feel strange. Celestial chakra is clearly an enigmatic ability. Clearly the boy knew what he was trying to say, but his tiny mouth was struggling to say celestial and enigmatic. How cute, a female voice fawned from the other side of the doorframe, peeking in with him. Hiyashi quickly looked and saw his wife, Hifumi, looking into the room as well with a look like the little boy was a stuffed animal waiting to be squeezed. Hifumi was pregnant again, looking ready to deliver at any time now. Her eyes, however, had deep black marks underneath them as well as her face looking emaciated. She was getting sicker. Slowly they stepped away from the door and Hiyashi held onto his wife's skinny hands. "My love, you must lay down. You are not getting better and I fear for you," Hiyashi implored with all of his heart. Hifumi smiled and started a slow walk with Hiyashi back to their room to lay her down. "I can't help it, dear. Naruto is so precious. He and Hinata are inseparable at times, and it makes me want a boy of my own." In fact, Naruto was most likely the reason why Hifumi was pregnant again. After pampering the boy and seeing his cute interactions with their daughter Hinata, Hifumi practically begged for another child. She wanted her own little boy that would look up to Naruto. Another little boy to love and squeeze. "And what will you do if it's a girl?" Hiyashi smiled at his silly wife and obliged to her fantasies. Hifumi put a thinking finger on her lips and looked up, she then smiled. "She would be another beautiful and precious daughter of mine. I'd love her all the same and I could see more cute interactions with Naruto and my new daughter." Hiyashi could understand this, but suddenly he started to sweat when he saw Hifumi's loving smile turn into a sinister smirk. She was still a Hyuga, and all Hyuga had the same shit-eating grin when they were planning something. And if she wants, she can marry Naruto too, along with Hinata. I don't see them finding anyone better anyways. She then flipped her hand carelessly away as if disregarding any other possible suitors. Hiyashi would have done a spit take if there was liquid in his mouth. What are you talking about? Sure, Hinata would be in the running, but you'd put both of your daughters up to him. Hifumi's eyes became stern as she looked at him, and her voice darkened. "So you would have one of our daughters be a political tool to a diplomat, or have her commit incest with your brother's son? Neither daughter will be clan head as long as Naruto is here, and he's not going anywhere if I can help it. That gives our children no power, destined to wear a caged bird seal or destined to be sold off to another clan. That will not happen." Hiyashi's face became washed with worry, not thinking of these issues. His wife was always the better planner and could see these issues long before he could. I understand." Hifumi's face brightened up as they made it to their room. "Good. Now go handle your duties. I need to take a nap before I have to use the restroom 50 more times in a row." Hifumi chuckled as she sat and then laid on the bed. "I'll be back later to check on you, my love." Hiyashi Sofly smiled and closed the door. Flashback end. Today is the day of Hinata's third birthday, Hiyashi thought to himself with a smile. The event was going well. Hinata was in the yard playing with Naruto as the adults all talked in the living quarters. Not only was his daughter's birthday today, but today was also the day that Kumogakure signed a peace treaty with Konoha. Truly a fortunate day, Kami bless us. After some drinks, the Kumo delegate that was invited took his leave. Hiyashi, Hifumi, and Hizashi Hiyashi's brother were all not seated having a nice conversation to themselves. Hizashi, face slightly darkened with the blush of alcohol, chose to break a small, comfortable silence. "My son, Neji, seems to enjoy Lord Naruto. He told me the young lord told him some interesting facts about our Byakugan." Hiyashi raised an eyebrow. "Oh, and what were these facts?" Hizashi took a deep breath. "Did you know that the Byakugan had another stage?" Neji wouldn't stop talking about something called the Tenseigan. Hiyashi, caught mid-drink, spat alcohol all over the coffee table that divided the two couches. "The what? What the h? Ka shink." The sound of the sliding paper door slamming open drew the attention of everyone in the room. What they saw was a small boy in a white kimono, silver hair draped down his back and framing his face. They saw dirt on the boy, Naruto, but noticed a scowl on his small androgynous face. His tiny, regal eyebrows pinching together as much as they could. One hand gripped the door, and attached to his other arm as if clinging on for dear life, was his terrified daughter, Hinata. "Hiyashi-san, we have a problem. Please follow me immediately." For once, the young boy didn't care to offer pleasant formalities. Something was definitely wrong. Without asking any more questions, both Hizashi and Hiyashi got up from their couches and followed quickly after the boy. Hiyashi looked at his daughter, slightly shaking, but matching Naruto's pace in desperation, refusing to let go at any cost. "What has happened, young man?" Hiyashi's voice was stern and he'd get his answers. "Please, just follow me and I will answer any questions after I explain." Naruto's voice was quivering, but the resolve to show what happened kept his tiny legs moving. Hiyashi stayed silent until they reached the outside of the compound, the part of the compound with its back against the woods. On the floor next to the compound wall was a torn sack and a large pile of dust. Ash, some pile of refuse. What is this, Naruto? Naruto stopped and used his other hand to stroke Hinata's hair as he pulled her closer. Hinata's grip went from his arm to his chest, still refusing to let go of the boy. Silent sobs were heard from the girl. The Kumo representative. He tried to kidnap us. Naruto caught his breath and stood firm, but you could hear the emotions in his voice. I held on to Hinata while we were in the sack. And when I felt him jump, I stabbed through the sack. Naruto then pointed to the pile of ash. That's him there. Naruto looked up at Hiyashi with worry in his eyes, but also a silent anger. He tried to hurt us, Hiyashi-san. He tried to take us. I did the only thing I could. Am I in trouble? Naruto's eyes began to cloud with tears. I killed someone. Naruto began to start bawling tears. Hinata started crying louder and hugged Naruto tighter, and Naruto returned her hug, openly crying now. Snot started to run down his face as he looked up at Hiyashi. Bunny mommy said I did the right thing. But I don't want to get kicked out. I love it here. I love you and Hifumi-san, and Hinata-chan. Please don't make me leave. Hiyashi felt his heart crumble. This boy just had a traumatic experience, but he was more worried about him rightfully protecting himself and his daughter, and how it would affect the Hyuga clan. Hiyashi turned to look at the pile of ash, and then back to Naruto. Hiyashi took a step forward and put his hand on Naruto's shoulder, looking him in his eyes. Naruto, you won't leave us. Don't worry, but I need you to tell me what you did to this man. Naruto nodded and took a second to collect himself. He then freed a hand from Hinata's iron grip and held it up. Hiyashi-san, please don't touch this. You will die, so please don't. Suddenly, a pure white bone rod started to emerge from the small boy's hand. This is an all-killing ash bone. A Kekemora from Bu my mother Otsutsuki. Hiyashi caught that, but this wasn't the time. As the name says, it kills everything it touches that isn't celestial and turns it to ash. Naruto then retracted the bone back into his hand. Hiyashi then picked up a stick, walked over to the ash, and started poking and shifting through it. He was looking for anything. Bones, clothes, nails or teeth, nothing. It was all turned into absolute ash. No evidence. Kami truly has blessed us. Naruto. Hinata. Hiyashi looked at the two. Naruto looked directly at him and Hinata peeked an eye from his chest. You two saw or experienced nothing tonight. You never saw the Kumo ninja, you two were playing the whole time. Do you understand? Naruto's eyes zoned out for a second. Hiyashi assumed he was talking to his mother since this wasn't the first time he did this. He assumed she was explaining why he was told this. Suddenly Naruto's attention came back to Hiyashi and the boy nodded. Naruto then looked down at the girl in his arms. Hinata looked up with a tear-stained face, eyes full of trust for the boy. We can't tell anyone what happened tonight, okay? The clan will get into a lot of trouble if this mean man's village learns this happened. We are okay and this won't happen again, but from now on, you stay close to me, okay? Hinata visibly thought about what he said and gave him a sad smile. I won't say anything, Naru. I'll stay next to you always. The little girl hugged him tighter, causing Naruto to stroke her hair. I'm tired, Naru, can we go to bed? Naruto smiled. Of course, let's go home, okay? Hinata nodded and they walked hand in hand back to the main house. Hiyashi couldn't help but smile at the sweet interaction. For some reason, Hiyashi felt happy inside that his daughter wouldn't become the clan heir. He couldn't imagine what the pressure would do to his daughter. Hiyashi felt Naruto would weather any storm if it meant to keep his loved one safe. A comforting thought. As soon as the two kids disappeared from sight though, both Hiyashi and Hizashi's face went cold. Hiyashi looked towards his brother. No one will ever know of this. Of course, brother. Hizashi nodded sternly and the two brothers started to spread the ashes across the woods. -3 years later. It's almost time to start at your academy, son. Naruto's mother echoed in his head. Indeed, I'm actually looking forward to meeting others that aren't Hyugas. I am nervous about meeting others my age, however. Naruto thought back to Kaguya. The young boy usually talked to his mom whenever he was meditating and drawing in chakra, molding it into his celestial chakra. Fu. That's probably because you speak like me. A side effect of having some of my memories. Kaguya knew exactly why the boy was too formal for kids his age, but she'd have it no other way. Her cute son was perfect just the way he was, and him talking like the prince he was made her feel even more motherly to the boy. Sigh. You are correct. To be fair, I'm actually worried about Hinata. She's been getting more outspoken. Naruto scratched the back of his head, wondering how the shy little girl started becoming a firecracker. That event 3 years ago changed her and he didn't know how entirely. Naruto could feel her smirk. You mean Hina Haim? You can use your nickname for her with me. I've been witness to everything you've done. Fu, she simply is making sure no one goes near her man. She knows how composed you try to be, so she became the outspoken one. It wouldn't surprise me if she started trying to seduce you despite her age. She knows she can get away with it too, considering how much you dote on her and protect her. I made a promise to keep her safe. As long as she doesn't hurt me, what she does to others is of little importance as long as she doesn't embarrass the Hyuga. Naruto didn't even understand why he was trying to justify himself. Enjoy it while you can, we have many things to do in the future. Your lessons should be finished soon, and then you can plant a god tree if you'd like. Then you can have a reincarnation like your dear mother. That is the only way to fight off the other Otsutsuki that will eventually come. Kaguya always made sure to remind her boy that there were bigger fish in the sea. Isn't it possible to bring one to our side, or create another Otsutsuki? Naruto pondered this thought for a while, but chose to vocalize it. Kaguya, upon hearing this question, laughed harder than she had in. Most likely ever. My son, those snakes are not to be trusted. And I've already wasted my karma seal on you, so there is only one more way to make more full-blooded Otsutsuki. Kaguya's voice suddenly gained a sweet tone. When you are older and practice with Hina, we can talk about making more Otsutsuki. We can make an entire army of them if you'd like, I wouldn't mind. Naruto thought for a second. Why do I feel like there was a hidden meaning in that? Kaguya giggled. Think my boy, I know you aren't as dense as you are trying to act. Naruto blushed heavily and stood up to do some physical training for the afternoon. That's very immoral, mother. But you didn't say no, fu. With those words, Naruto shook those thoughts out of his head and left to go to the practice area in front of his main branch building. He stood in the middle of the area, looking around for Hinata. His long silver hair gently ruffled by the wind. Kaguya taught him a technique on how to use his hair as an extension of his body in combat, so it felt almost wrong to cut it. After not seeing her for a couple minutes, Naruto squinted his eyes and activated his Byakugan. His eyes could see much farther than a Hyuga pair of Byakugan. He glanced over the village and saw the signature he was looking for. She was in a small outcrop of trees, along with 3 other signatures. He saw her chakra flare and Naruto got nervous. What am I gonna do with her? I take it you found Lady Hinata. Naruto turned and saw Hazashi's son, Neji. Indeed, care to go for a run with me? It appears we will get in some exercise on the way there. Naruto then sighed knowing he was about to either watch Hinata threaten someone or he would have to defend her honor. Why not? Neji began, but then got that signature Hyuga shit-eating grin. You wouldn't think such a young boy would be wrapped around the finger of Hinata. Naruto was very aware of how androgynous he looks. His mother's genetics were too damn strong and Hifumi would constantly try to put him in makeup when she was still around. A fact that Neji, Hiashi, Hazashi, and even sometimes Hinata would never let him live down. His small eyebrows he got from his mom didn't help the royal princess look either. Just admit you're gay and move on, please. This was the only thing Naruto would say, knowing that Kaguya was already laughing in his mindscape. Any more out of him would just embarrass him further. Neji's eye twitched as they ran off to Hinata. A few minutes passed and they found Hinata standing her ground against what he assumed were bullies. The fattest one in the middle spoke. What are you gonna do, you freaky-eyed bitch? There are 3 of us, and we'll say whatever we want. If you insult my eyes, you insult all of the Hyuga clan. You'd insult Naru-kun and for that, I'll beat your ass. Hinata spat back at the boy. Mother above, where the hell was she learning to talk like this? The fat one fired off again. Big talk for a pipsqueak, we'll see if you bark loud when we beat you into the ground. As tough as a facade Hinata was putting up, Naruto saw a sliver of fear in her eyes. She was still the same inside no matter how she acted. Time to step in. Hina, you're late to practice. Can I ask why you are out here among the filth? Naruto didn't actually feel that way, but he needed to intimidate this generic pack of bullies. Unfortunately, most of the insults he knew came from his mom and the Hyuga, which was all about belittling others. It did get their attention rather quickly though. Hinata's face lit up in happiness as she used the distraction to dart into Naruto's arms. Naru-kun, I just went to get some things for dinner, and these guys insulted me. They called me ugly and bug-eyed and blind because of my eyes and… Hinata was going to keep going but got interrupted by the scrawny bully. We didn't say all of that. We insulted her eyes, but don't make the rest of that up, you crazy little bitch. It almost seemed like the bullies were exhausted already. Naruto knew Hinata was trying to get him riled up so he'd beat these kids up. And it was kind of working. What do you have to say about the eyes of the Hyuga, exactly? The fat one chimed in again. You two bitches brought your boyfriend to fight your battle for you. He pointed towards Neji. Another girl joke. Naruto's eye twitched. Instead of being insulted, Neji lost his composure and started laughing hard on the ground. Ha ha ha. See, even others think you're a girl, you don't even need makeup. Ha ha ha. Naruto's eye twitched even harder. One more fucking word. Hinata reached up and gave Naruto a peck on his cheek. Don't worry, Naru-kun. I think you're manly. Naruto started to calm down. This bitch wants to be manly, ha ha ha. Maybe fix and grow your fucking eyebrows, princess. Then maybe you'll be manly. The fat one laughed even louder. Fuck it. Listen, you little shit, I hope you aren't from clans because there is going to be a lot of paperwork for your parents to get your ass out of the hospital. Naruto pulsed his chakra, feeling his eyes burn for a second. It was his second time doing this, so he wasn't used to the feeling yet. Hinata looked at his eyes morph into a faint, glowing blue iris. A bright white lotus was displayed with a light blue dot in the middle, signifying his pupil. He did it again, Neji ni. Hinata jumped back towards Neji, while Neji only looked to see what would happen. No sooner than that, Naruto raised his hand and felt himself pull the poor fat kid's neck into his grasp. The two other bullies shrieked in fear and ran as fast as their legs could move. The fat bully looked into Naruto's eyes in fear, but suddenly said, "Beautiful." A giant tick mark appeared on his forehead and he slammed the boy's head into the ground, knocking him out. Damn it, what the fuck, man? I'm a boy, Naruto shouted at the top of his lungs. Neji snickered hard, trying to hold in laughter so he didn't end up like the boy on the ground. Hinata came up and hugged Naruto on his side. Naru-kun, put away the Tensegan or we'll get in more trouble. This shook Naruto, causing Kaguya to laugh again in his head. Naruto retracted his chakra from his eyes and his pale eyes came back. We should leave here. Both of the Hyugas nodded, Neji's nod being forced since he was holding in laughter. You wonder where Hinata learns that language, but it's definitely from you. Naruto sighed and they took off back to the compound. As soon as they stepped in the compound, Hisashi was already waiting for them. All three kids gulped. Out pretty late, considering tomorrow is Lord Naruto and Lady Hinata's first day to the academy. Neji, you should know better. Naruto did the only thing he could think of to get out of this quickly. He bowed. I apologize for our unseemly behavior. As the clan heir, the responsibility falls on my shoulders. Hisashi nodded, but then spoke. Naruto-sama, you know better than to bow before a branch member. Raise your head. Hisashi-sama has called for you and Hinata to the elders' building. Understood. Naruto took Hinata's hand and they both took off away from Hisashi. Hisashi stared at Neji for a second and then smiled. So what happened, son? Neji smirked back. The young lord snapped after being called a girl. Then one of the boys called his eyes beautiful. Neji snickered. Hisashi let out a subdued laugh. That boy tries to hold in his emotions too much. Everyone in the compound knows how expressionate he is, but he holds it in because of his name. The academy will be good for him. The Hyuga are expected to act like that, but Naruto has the power, authority, and right to act how he pleases. And that in turn shows his self-control. He has already voiced his displeasure with the caged bird seal, let alone the main branch clan dynamic. He knows that he can't effectively do anything until he is clan head, so he shows restraint. Neji countered. Hisashi smiled ever so slightly and looked up toward the setting sun. To be honest, in his eyes, we could all be very well the same. We fight over blood purity and look silly compared to the one who can't tell the difference between us all. But maybe that is what the Hyuga need. Neji nodded thoughtfully. Elders' Council Room. Do you know why you are here, Otsutsuki-sama? The voice of the oldest elder called out to Naruto as soon as he and Hinata made it to the middle of the room. Naruto looked around and found all 8 elders, and Hisashi, all sitting in their places at their half-moon-shaped table. No, I do not. Naruto replied simply. I'm sure you will inform me shortly. The oldest elder nodded. Correct. Tomorrow is your first day of the academy, so we feel it necessary to inform you of a council decision. Naruto raised a small eyebrow. And this decision has to do with myself and Hinata here. He had a strong feeling of what was happening, but Naruto decided to hear it from the horse's mouth. Or elder's mouth in this case. He looked over at Hinata, seeing a searching expression on her face, then reality dawned on her. Then a brief smile before her face went stoic again. All of this happened in the span of a second. Indeed. Before you start learning about the rest of the world and interacting with others, we want to explain matters of betrothal. As an Otsutsuki, you have the purest bloodline of Byakugan since our ancestor Homura Otsutsuki. More pure, since I'm basically a genetic match for Usagi Hime, Naruto thought. Fufufu, Usagi Hime is a new one. I happily accept. Kaguya spouted off in his head and Naruto rolled his eyes and smiled. So to be direct, if I may be so bold. You wish for me to be engaged to Hina here so I can eventually strengthen the blood of the Hyuga. Naruto smirked and looked at Hinata. I don't know if Hina here would be interested in me though, so maybe you should ask her. Hinata, shocked by what he said, blushed. Well, I would actually really love to be engaged to you. The sentence kept getting quieter as she went on. Naruto chuckled and threw an arm around her shoulder and leaned on her, since he was a couple inches taller than her. There, engagement approved. But is Hiyashi-san okay with this? Naruto looked at Hinata's father. Hiyashi looked back at him. A small, barely noticeable smile crossed his face as he gave Naruto a slight head nod. I forget you're sick sometimes with how aware you are of things. Another elder piped up. We do apologize that you will be together with Hinata. Naruto immediately interrupted. Excuse me, why would there be an issue? Bloodline. In that case, none of you are worthy to be sitting around that table while I stand in the middle of you like I am being assigned a marriage. Do you understand this? Kaguya nodded as well in his mindscape with a smirk. The elders slightly squirmed. Sweet son of mine, you make me so happy. Would you like some authority to back up your words? Kaguya asked. Naruto slightly smiled. It is all right, and I am thankful. I am aware how you feel about people taking what is yours. Nonsense, you have never asked for anything, let alone take from me. My will is out in the world already, but you have won my heart through your own efforts. I give to you freely. I give you this. As soon as she said it, Naruto felt a surge of celestial chakra. His chest felt heavy, and felt something change. The elders watched in reverence, awe, and horror as the small boy emitted a silver chakra. Horns started to sprout on top of his head, mirroring the same of Kaguya's head. Suddenly the room's air got heavy around everyone, except for Hiyashi and Hinata. A message for them, son. Kaguya simply spoke to Naruto, informing that she was going to speak through him. His silence was consent as he waited for her. The room got even heavier, forcing the council to try and hold their heads off the desk. I am the matriarch of the Otsutsuki. A female voice overlapped with the boys rolled over all in the room. Two elders fainted immediately. My son's words are my own. Do not insult his chosen partner, as you are insulting myself as well. The elders started shaking and babbling apologies, barely discernible to anyone. Naruto turned to look at Hinata, but what Hinata saw in his eyes was not Naruto. Hinata was about to freak out, but a gentle smile crossed his face. Don't fret, child, you have my blessing. Enjoy my son before you have to share with me. Kaguya, through Naruto, winked at the girl and the power retreated. Hiyashi dropped a bead of sweat. Share. No, she wouldn't. What? Ah, Kami. Stop, please don't continue that thought. I can't believe she actually said that. Fucking horny Rabbi OWW, okay, I'm sorry. You really said that, what the fuck is wrong with you? Everyone watched Naruto have a meltdown and arguing with what they assumed was the rabbit goddess with different opinions. Hiyashi actually felt bad for the boy. The elders were originally scared, but the thought of another pure-blood Otsutsuki excited them. Hinata was still thinking about what the goddess said, and actually felt a little angry. Hell no, he's mine, you damn rabbit. I don't care who you are, Hinata thought. Hinata immediately latched to Naruto defensively. Naruto cursed in his hat at his mom while she was laughing in his head. You can't have Naru-kun. Hinata shouted into his ear, thinking that if she yelled loud enough, Kaguya would hear her. Naruto's ear bled before immediately healing. Hina, she can hear everything I can hear. Hinata blushed in embarrassment, but didn't let go. Chapter 3, Academy Day. And, hiya, Ria here. If you haven't noticed, I'm trying to maintain a bigger presence through this so I can talk to you and know I'm reading these reviews. I appreciate them and even welcome bad ones as long as they are productive. Before I cover reviews though, I wanted to tell you that this chapter is covering Naruto's first day at the academy and the effects of his appearance to the rest of the village. He has stayed in the Hyuga compound for the most part, knowing his appearance would draw a lot of attention. Any time he leaves the compound in this chapter, it is his first time doing so. I also enjoy writing from other people's perspectives, and you will see it in this chapter as well. There are a lot of politics in Konoha, since it is a delicate ecosystem. I will show others' perspectives of Naruto's actions and there are always going to be consequences to anything anyone does. Hinata is a little cutie, so most of her moments are going to be love-centric, but that doesn't mean she will be like that forever. She is currently 6 and I find it more realistic that her mind is more full of Naruto and will gladly backseat anything else at the moment. As for some of the reviews. Yes, the Otsutsuki are gonna be the eventual big bad of this series. If you think Jigen Ishiki wouldn't find out another Otsutsuki was around eventually when Naruto starts becoming more well known, then you are a silly baby. As for love interests, as I said earlier, Hinata is going to basically start becoming more and more like her road to version, or alter Hinata is what I'll call her when I'm talking about the differences. This Hinata is already starting to display more of an outspoken personality when it comes to Naruto, as you'll see in this chapter. She will eventually be much more open with her dislike of women approaching Naruto, and just like alter Hinata, start violently threatening them like she did to Sakura in the movie. Because of this, I find it very unlikely you'll see any other human love interests around the lad. I haven't decided if I want Kaguya to hop in, but if she stays insane, acts animalistically like the bunny 10 tails, insists on fostering and grooming Naruto to be her true heir, I see no reason why she wouldn't want her. Ideal, but I'll decide that later and just write off anything the horny bunny says is teasing. End of end. Ria out. The first day of the Ninja Academy came sooner than wanted for some, but for Hinata Hyuga, it couldn't come soon enough. She laid in bed staring at the ceiling with a big smile on her face. After being formally engaged to the person she loves, she spent most of the night rolling around in bed giggling and kicking her blankets all over her room. She couldn't help it, it was the best day of her life so far. She even got his mother's blessing. She then stared at her ceiling with a straight face. His damn mother said she'd have to share. What the fuck was that? Hinata was still young, so she didn't understand everything, but she had a weird feeling she didn't like what the rabbit goddess said. Hinata harumphed, and then started to get up and make her bed. While she was cleaning up and about to get ready for her first day, a knock on the door followed sliding was heard. Was Naruto here? In her room. They haven't cuddled and slept for a while together. Wait, but it's the morning, maybe he came to get her. No, he'd. Big sis, stop daydreaming about Naruni and let's pick you out some clothes for today. It was her little sister, Hanabi, who came to make sure she was awake and to knock her out her daydreams. Hinata smiled and nodded her head. Okay, Hanabi. What should I wear? Hanabi cutely thought with her finger on her chin and started going through her drawers. She pulled out a black shirt, Hinata's signature jacket top off of a hanger from her closet, and some shorts from. Whose shorts were those? Here you go sis. Where did you get these shorts? Aren't these a little too short? Hinata asked with a questioning look at her little sister. Don't worry. Girls should wear skirts and shorts to look good, right? You'd never wear a skirt, so that means you gotta wear shorts. Hanabi closed her eyes and nodded like it was the most logical conclusion. I know what you're saying, but I don't want to look good for Oath. You don't want to look good for Naruni. Hanabi looked at her like the question she asked shouldn't have even been a question. Quote. That's what I thought. Hanabi smiled again sweetly, the same smile their mom gave her when she was going to get her way no matter what before she passed. Hinata sighed and accepted defeat. Okay, but if he doesn't like them, I'm burning them. Hanabi giggled, put the extra clothes back in the drawer and ran out of the room and slammed the door, leaving just as fast as she came. Hinata looked at the clothes, sighed, blushed, and then got dressed. Her hair was still a little out of sorts, but that means she'd get a treat in a bit. Hinata then walked out onto the deck of the main branch building and looked into the small garden in front of it, spotting her favorite person. There was Naruto, crouched over, feeding his pet rabbits, his silver hair draping over his shoulder. He tucked some hair behind his ear and Hinata could make out his beautiful face. That wasn't fair, how can a boy have such a face? If it was her first time, she was sure she'd also mistake him for a girl, but she knew better. She trained with him in the summer and saw him shirtless. Hinata knew he had almost no baby fat on him, the guy was crafted like a god. He's only a kid, and Hinata couldn't even imagine what he'd look like when he is older. His skin was somehow pale too, despite how often he was outside. Hinata blushed when she saw him cutely scold a baby rabbit for biting his finger while he was feeding it. She took a breath and decided it was time to make her presence known. As she walked close, Naruto looked up, he gave Hinata his signature bright teethy smile. A smile that she never saw paired with Byakugan except for him. Another testament of how strong his personality was to maintain his sense of self through all the rigorous Hyuga etiquette lessons. Something Hinata cherished and wanted to mirror. Good morning Hina-hime. You must have slept well, would you like me to brush that bedhead away? Naruto looked directly into her eyes with no malice or judgment. The only person besides her sister that wasn't doing something for her in exchange for something. How could she not love this boy? Yes, please. Hinata chirped as she sat down on the deck edge. Naruto stood up and walked behind her, brush already in hand and sat down behind her. He clearly expected this, but didn't say anything, like it was a part of his normal routine. The bunnies all ran around in the garden as he steadily brushed her hair free of any knots. He was the best at this in the whole compound, but it didn't surprise her, considering how much hair he had himself. How long does it take to brush your own hair, Naru-kun? I wake up with perfect hair. Hinata pouted. But, you can brush it if you'd like, should you wake up at a reasonable time. Hinata smiled. Okay, I'd like that. A couple minutes passed, and Naruto stood up and offered Hinata a hand up. She took it and he held on, escorting her to go eat before they left. So what made you wear shorts instead of your usual pants? Naruto asked, looking elsewhere. He noticed. Hanabi said I should wear them, did they look bad? I am sorry. Hinata got self-conscious and tried to pull her jacket down lower with her free hand. Not at all, they are cute. Naruto said while scratching his cheek and slightly blushing. Oh, really? You like them? Yes, Naruto said, his face darkening in a blush a little more. Good. Hinata, suddenly happy and making a resolution to wear them more often, started to skip and pull Naruto to go eat. -45 minutes later. Naruto and Hinata stood in front of their classroom door, both nervous for different reasons. This is your first step beyond the Hyuga, my dear son. Are you ready? Kaguya could sense his nerves, but Naruto resolved himself. Naruto smiled. Of course, as you said, this is just the first step. Followed by many more on my path. Fufufu, well spoken. Kaguya sat down on a well-cushioned chair she created in his mindscape, ready to watch her son. Are you ready, Hinaheim? Naruto asked as he looked at her. Yeah, just summoning some courage. Hinata stated as she closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Naruto, feeling his humor bone coming out, smiled and leaned forward, kissing Hinata's forehead. Her eyes shot open, and blinked a couple times. Naruto chuckled and opened the sliding door and walked into the room. Hinata blinked a few more times, lightly touched her forehead and blushed. She then lightly smiled and followed after him. Looking into the room, there were only a few people at the moment. Class was in 20 or so minutes, but Naruto and Hinata wanted a good look at the class beforehand. The board at the front of the room said, "Welcome to the academy. Please take a seat where you like." He would take the board up on that. He scanned the chairs and saw most spots open, aside from two. One near the back, occupied by a lazy-looking boy with his black hair pulled back into a puffy ponytail, and a black, half-spiky-haired boy near the front with his elbows on the desk, hands covering half of his face as if he was in contemplation. Naruto turned to whisper into Hinata's ear. Any preference in seating? We can see well no matter where we sit. Hinata slightly giggled thinking about how true it was, but pointed towards the middle seats, one near the stairs that swept through the rows and one in the very middle. Naruto nodded and headed towards their seats, escorting Hinata into the middle seat. Naruto sat down and immediately felt a gaze on the back of his head. Without turning around, he spoke. It's impolite to stare at those you don't know. My name is Naruto Otsutsuki, may I ask for yours? Also, before it even escalates to that point, I am a boy. Hinata giggled and then a silent couple of seconds passed before he heard a reply. Troublesome. My name is Shikamaru Nara. Thank you for the clarification before the situation got more troublesome later. Naruto turned around, smiled and nodded. Trust me, the sooner everyone knows, the easier my time in class will be. If you don't mind me asking, why do you not grow out your hair more? I'm told the Nara use shadows to fight, so wouldn't having your hair out of a ponytail and longer create more of a shadow for yourself? Shikamaru's eyes widened and then adopted a look of deep thought. Not a bad idea, but sounds like a drag to do. Wouldn't be less of a drag than tightly binding a ponytail each morning. Bedhead would be your strength, would it not? You aren't a normal Hyuga. Shikamaru narrowed his lazy eyes, but Naruto could see thoughts brewing. I, indeed, am not a normal Hyuga, I'm not a Hyuga at all. You could ask any of them. Naruto gestured towards Hinata. Shikamaru's lazy gaze fell on Hinata, who simply waved. I'm Hinata Hyuga, a pleasure to meet you. Naruto is not a Hyuga, but from the clan the Hyuga originate from. That is all I can or will say. This statement drew the attention of the boy down near the front, who quickly turned around and looked at Naruto, but Naruto simply smiled and gave a slight bow. Good morning, may I know your name? I can see from your crest on your back that you are an Uchiha, but I don't like coming to assumptions. Quote ellipsis. Sasuke Uchiha. What do you mean the Hyuga originated from your clan? The now identified Sasuke narrowed his eyes. Are all Uchiha this? What's a nice word? Suspicious. Yes, your Uchiha clan also comes from us. My mother has the original version of your Sharingan. If you are interested in the Otsutsuki and your ancestral origins, come to the Hyuga compound and ask for me. Sasuke narrowed his eyes even more. You expect me to believe you? I bet you are just a bastard whose parent was a Hyuga and got kicked out. Do you insist on being hostile? Naruto's eyes also narrowed. Hinata was starting to get worked up too. Who the fuck do you think you are, talking to my fiancé like that? Hinata began to see red when she felt Naruto's hand on her shoulder. She took a deep breath and stood closer to Naruto to calm down. If you want to learn where your clan came from, I insist you come. Naruto declared, making sure there was no hostility in his voice. I'm alright, you incestual Hyugas would probably try and jump me and take my eyes. Sasuke smirked as if he said the most clever comeback. Even Shikamaru groaned knowing where this was going. Are you sure that's the hill you want to die on? You know, the Uchiha does the same right. Are you from a main line? Naruto raised a small eyebrow. My father is. Was the clan head, what of it? Sasuke sneered out his reply, being forced to remember what only happened not too long ago. You know that there is like a 75% chance your parents were either cousins or closer in the family tree, right? Keep the bloodline pure, that kind of thing. There is no way you didn't know that. You can't be that. It's my first day so I shouldn't say that. You can't be that uninformed, can you? Shikamaru, I'm not delusional, am I? Naruto needed an outside opinion on this. Someone not from the hardcore bloodline clans. Getting dragged into this is troublesome, but yeah. It's pretty well known, not just in Konoha, but the whole world that bloodline clans. Keep the bloodline pure, I'm gonna steal that by the way. Shikamaru stated before seeing Naruto wink at him. Shikamaru almost blushed but remembered that was a boy and calmed down. Sasuke turned red, flipped Naruto off and laid his head down on the table. Well, it appears that was that at the moment. Slowly students started to trickle in. People of all shapes and sizes came through the door, and Shikamaru seemed rather fond of a fat boy that sat next to him. Soon the teacher came in and introduced himself as Iruka Umino. The teacher then had all the students introduce themselves. Some strange form of fate was pulling the strings, because every main clan was present in this room. Nara, Akamaiki, Yamanaka, Uchiha, Inuzuka, Abarame, and Hyuga. As introductions were heading up the aisles, it was Hinata's turn to introduce herself. As she stood up, a wolf whistle came from the Inuzuka boy next to her on her other side. Naruto looked at him with pity, knowing he wouldn't even have to do anything. Hinata stands up. Hello, my name is Hinata Hyuga. I am from the main branch family. I love cinnamon rolls and, she looked at Kiba with a dangerous look, my fiancé. I dislike people who try and get on my good side for shallow reasons and, Hinata shivers, shrimp. She then sits down. Everyone is shocked at the introduction and Naruto laughed audibly. This was a weird pair of Hyugas. Iruka recovers finally and makes a statement. Class, for those who don't know, some of our noble clans often are betrothed at a young age and there are many opportunities to break it off down the road if feelings change. Iruka worded it to make it sound like Hinata didn't want to be engaged, and that made her mad. She took a deep breath after feeling Naruto's hand on her leg. Sensei, I actually am perfectly fine with my engagement and wouldn't want it any other way. He treats me well, cares about me, and, well, just look at him. She pointed a finger directly at Naruto's face, who in turn let loose a smile that most of the boys and girls considered deadly. I guess it's time for my introduction then, Naruto stood up, straightened his white kimono, and brushed some of his stray hairs behind his ear. An act that confused everyone who just heard his voice. This was a boy. Yes, I'm male. Yes, my hair is as good the Yamanaka's over there. Ino gave a smile and a thumbs up for the compliment, seeing how well kept his was. Yes, I am Hinata-chan's fiancé. Now that those answers are out of the way, my name is Naruto Otsutsuki. Since everyone else has given me the knowledge of their clan relations, I will disclose that I am the current heir to the Hyuga due to my pure ancestry, not by marriage. That is all I will say about that. If you have an interest in Hyuga ancestry, please visit the compound. The elders would love to educate the whole world of it if they had the opportunity. Hinata lightly giggled at that. I love to cook, tend to my rabbits, and be around my precious people. I dislike people who don't know the difference between confidence and arrogance and makeup. Naruto bowed and sat down. Hinata giggled again, knowing Hanabi put lipstick on his face the other day without him noticing, causing the whole family to take pictures, all of a sudden. Naruto didn't find out until he put his mouth on a glass and saw the marks from the lipstick. The class was silent again, but Kiba spoke up, slightly pissed. This pretty boy wearing all white is your fiancé. I wear white because I know you can't dirty it. Naruto looked at the boy with the family trait that seemed to extend back to the Otsutsuki. A massive shit-eating smirk. Before the boy could get up, Naruto looked like he was about to flip his hair over his shoulder in dismissal with his hand, but several hairs came flying out like small Senbon, pinning his jacket to his seat. The hairs were so small, Haruka couldn't see it from the front of class. Naruto smirked again and spooked Kiba, causing him to shut up. Introductions finished and the rest of class started. The rest of the day became pretty uneventful. A few people came up to talk to Naruto and Hinata, but the girls all flocking around Sasuke helped them avoid the limelight. The day continued and soon the school day was over. Surprisingly, Shikamaru stopped the pair. It's troublesome, but is that offer to learn about your clan still on the table? I'd like to bring my dad, he likes things like that. Naruto smiled. Of course, we can eat dinner and discuss any questions or history you or your dad are interested in. I'll alert the guards and the elders. I'm sure those old men will prepare a feast as an excuse to keep you there to hear them ramble about their heritage. Shikamaru smiled back. Sounds like a drag, but I'll see you there tonight then. Naruto's prediction was exactly right. The Elder Council's chamber was filled with food when the Naras arrived. Shikamaru's mom, Yoshino, was also there. The Naras listened to the Hyuga elders talk about the bloodline, and their great ancestor, Homura Otsutsuki. It was honestly getting annoying hearing everyone talk about him and not his mother, but Naruto knew that wasn't a good idea. The Nara also explained about their family, as well as their family deer and forest. It was intriguing, so Naruto paid as much attention as possible. What truly surprised Naruto was that the elders were listening too. After dinner and the long chat, Naruto escorted the Naras to the end of the compound. Thank you for taking the time to come by. All of you. Naruto smiled and bowed. Yoshino and Shikaku smiled, returning the bow. Shikaku then spoke. No, thank you. It wasn't as troublesome as I thought it would be. Our son also told us about your hair idea to increase the size of our shadow. It's a very interesting idea. Shikamaru's ear perked up at this and chimed in. Actually, Naruto, you just reminded me that you used your hair to pin Kiba to his chair before he could freak out. What was that? Shikaku raised an eyebrow. Naruto chuckled and lifted up some of his hair. I just used chakra through my hair, stiffened it to the strength of Senbon, and then shot off some pieces of it. Kind of like a mini Senbon barrage. It's a bit of a family technique. Naruto took the hair in his hand and threw it back behind him with the rest of his hair. Honestly, I was thinking of pulling most of my hair back into a high ponytail, maybe less people will see me as a guy. Naruto chuckled. Shikamaru highly doubted it, but thought he'd support his new friend. That could probably work. Naruto closed his eyes and smiled. Yeah, I should. Naruto took a strand of hair, pushed some chakra through his fingers. The hair lengthened to twice its length and then snapped off at its normal length. Naruto then used it to tie his hair into a high ponytail, leaving his bangs to frame the sides of his face. Naruto looked at them with a hopeful look. Well. Yoshino couldn't hold in a giggle. It looks great, Naruto-kun. You should keep it like that. Shikamaru had a bead of sweat drip down his face. It was much worse. He could see the nape of his neck, which looked even more feminine despite being able to see some muscle drop into his shoulder. Shikamaru looked away and changed the subject. So you can grow your hair with chakra. I thought you'd eventually go bald if you had to go all out in a fight. I see why you don't cut it though. Naruto frowned at the change in topic, causing Yoshino to giggle again. Still, Naruto responded to his guest. Even if I wanted to cut it, which I wouldn't, scissors wouldn't be able to cut it. It'd be like trying to cut ninja wire with popsicle sticks. Naruto grew another long hair from his bangs and snapped it off and handed it to Shikamaru. Go ahead and try to break it. Don't smell it though. Naruto smirked. Why would I smell it, you weirdo? Troublesome guy, I swear. Shikamaru slightly blushed from the teasing and took the hair. He tried to pull it hard, but it snapped taut and made a metallic noise as it vibrated. What the? I can still control it too. Naruto then made the hair strand retract and pull Shikamaru's hands together, only for the strand to wrap and clasp Shikamaru's hands together. Shikaku's eyes went wide in shock and Naruto chuckled. Naruto then stepped forward and touched his hair strand. It dissolved, freeing Shikamaru. It only responds to my family's chakra, so I guess it could be considered a Kekemora. If we end up on the same team in the future, I'll tell you more. Naruto nodded sagely, not revealing more than he has to. Shikaku smiled. You should come over some shogi sometime, can you play? Naruto smiled and laughed. He turned his face to see Hinata approaching. Of course, one doesn't survive in a noble clan without being forced to learn. Naruto then slightly bowed at Shikamaru. I sincerely apologize if my mannerisms are uncomfortable for you, but I promise I am honest and care about my friends. Would you be willing to count yourself amongst my friends? I'd love to play shogi with you and your family, should you wish. Shikamaru was taken aback by such a formal, yet direct question. Ah, this is a drag, I'll be your friend, Naruto. I can tell you mean well, but you don't need to be so formal in asking people to be your friends. I'll try, but I make no promises. Shikaku and Yoshino smiled and then saw Hinata finish walking up. They watched her look at Naruto's now exposed neck, blush heavily, and then hold his hand. Could you keep your hair up from now on? She quietly asked. Naruto let out a real laugh and gave a bright smile. Well, that's 2 votes at least. I can have it up for you, at least. Hinata smiled a bright smile too and hugged him, putting her head right into the nape of his neck without having to worry about his hair. Naruto laughed and then used a free hand to wave goodbye to his guests. Please come by again soon. I would love to host you again. Good night Naruto, thank you. Shikamaru casually waved and then left with his parents. -5 minutes later. Shikamaru and his parents walked in silence towards the Nara compound, all left in thought. Yoshino broke it first. Naruto seems like he'll be a great and dependable friend. Honestly, when I saw him, I thought you were introducing me to a girl you liked. She giggled and made Shikamaru blush. Shikaku laughed, but then gained a calculative look. All jokes aside, what do you think of Naruto Otsutsuki, son? Shikamaru thought for a second before he spoke. When I first saw him, he walked in with Hinata. I immediately assumed they were 2 arrogant Hyuga girls. When they sat down, Naruto immediately noticed and instead of belittling me, he kindly introduced himself and then identified himself as a boy. Which means he is aware of how he looks. Which is troublesome, Shikamaru coughed before continuing. He then brought up his lineage, which I doubted until the recent history lesson. Which makes him more troublesome. But him declaring his lineage upset the Uchiha boy, Sasuke. He then offered Sasuke to learn about him, but Sasuke spouted off and said some pretty ignorant things while Naruto still wasn't acting hostile. Shikaku raised an eyebrow. Ignorant. Shikamaru nodded. He tried to insult Naruto with an incest joke, which would have been a good dig, but it meant nothing coming from an Uchiha. Naruto pointed it out, but still brought it up in a way to not upset Sasuke. It had the opposite effect and embarrassed him and he shut up for the rest of the day. Shikaku laughed. Fair enough, but now that we know a little about the Otsutsuki, it couldn't even be considered incest between him and Hinata. From what I understood, the Hyuga has been its own clan for centuries at this point. But that brings up more questions. Shikamaru narrowed his eyes. About how a dead clan suddenly appeared, and it's supposedly just as pure as it was before it disappeared. Or the fact that the Hyuga elders basically said Naruto's mother is a goddess. Or the fact that his lineage would make him a much younger brother of the founding shinobi of the world. Or the fact that his blood could produce another set of Senju, Uchiha, and Hyuga if he ends up like his mother. I don't know about you, but the fact that he looks much more feminine compared to his brothers could mean he is a lot closer to her than both the Sage of Six Paths and Homura Otsutsuki. Shikaku just now realized how much potential his son truly has. Exactly son, I need to talk to the Hokage. This is too big for him to just be unaware of what is happening. Honey, he looked at Yoshino. She only sighed and flicked her hand away. Go ahead, I don't think that sweet child would do anything, but I know you won't stop thinking about it until you talk to Lord Third. Shikamaru waved and continued walking with his mother while Shikaku used a shunshin. Hokage's office. Hiruzen was finally finished with his tasks today. He let out a deep sigh of relief, he had every plan to go home soon. His face gained a determined look though. I have one last important task, something that cannot be skipped. The third Hokage moved with practiced ease, reaching into his desk like he does every day. Quickly opening his desk drawer, he reached until he felt a book against the very back of the drawer. You can't hide from me, old friend. The old man pulled the book out, closed his drawer, and took a deep breath, and looked at it. Aika, I need ya, Hiruzen thought with a giggle and immediately opened to where he left off. As soon as his eyes landed on a page, a brisk knock-knock came from the door in his office. Hokage-sama, Shikaku Nara is here to see you, he says it's urgent. With a few muttered curses, he put the book back into the drawer and assumed a business pose on his desk. One that wouldn't portray the fact that he was trying to read porn in the office. Tell him to enter. The door slowly swung open, revealing the Nara head. Shikaku came mulling into the room and sat on the couch that was up against a window to the left of the Hokage's desk. What would you like to discuss, Shikaku? The Hokage didn't take offense from the lazy Nara, since his whole clan was like this. Shikaku turned his resting head and looked into the Hokage's eyes. Naruto Otsutsuki. What the hell is that boy? I was just given a very troublesome history lesson by the old men of the Hyuga clan, and honestly, it didn't make me feel better. At all. The third Hokage knew someone was going to come to him when the boy made it to the academy, but he honestly thought it would have been Danzo. To be fair, it was much easier to hide Naruto within the Hyuga clan since they operated efficiently by themselves. As long as no one brought up clan members, heirs, or wanted to be nosy, no one would have found out about him. Suddenly, the door opened. When you bring up demons, they arrive at your doorstep, it seems, Hiruzen thought. Danzo did indeed walk in with a steady sound of his cane clacking against the floor. When he stood in the middle of the office, he narrowed his one visible eye onto his old colleague. I feel it is important to the security of Konoha that I am informed as well. Who or what is this Otsutsuki? Hiruzen sighed and stroked his temples. He then pulled out a scroll from a different desk drawer and lobbed it to Shikaku. Naruto is the current heir apparent to the Hyuga clan, and since he is, information cannot be given freely without the presence of the current clan head present. This scroll, however, is a letter I received from the boy in question this morning. A branch member of the clan brought it by. Shikaku, please read it so Danzo can hear. The third Hokage could only be impressed. Naruto was more shrewd than he thought. Shikaku opened up the scroll and skimmed it before reading. His eyes went wide for a second before they returned to normal and smiled slightly. He has very elegant handwriting and vocabulary for a child. Indeed, please read now Shikaku. Shikaku nodded. My humble greetings Lord Third Hokage. I apologize for not greeting you in person since my stay here in Konoha, but as you know, Hiyashi-san has been grooming me for the position of clan head. Between that and a lack of wanting my skills to wane, I have been unpleasantly tied up. This letter is to inform you of a few decisions. One made for me willingly, and two made by myself. The decision made for me that I willingly allow is the betrothal to Hinata Hyuga, of the main branch house of Hyuga. We have grown up together, so I cherish her in her presence. Therefore, this arrangement was mutually beneficial to both of us. I asked Hiyashi-san to let me break this news to you, but you are more than welcome to ask him about this development during the next council meeting. Now on to my own decisions. I say these things with the Hyuga elders and clan heads' blessing, if my own name does not hold enough weight. I am certain my inclusion of the academy will raise many eyes to look in my direction. I will not hide my heritage or behave differently, as it would be a direct insult to not only the rabbit goddess but also the descendants that helped create the village of Konoha. I am an Otsutsuki, and all come from our clan. We give freely, but we are not to be taken from. If you wish to learn of my, and in turn, your village's ancestry, you may visit the Hyuga clan for proper instruction. Know that my eyes are leagues above the Byakugan of the Hyuga, and I will know if our compound has anything planted in your visit. I have most, if not all chakra signatures of the shinobi in Konoha both above and below. Have full faith in my ability to snuff any conspiracy that arises against the clan that has taken care of me. Danzo's hand gripped his cane tight. He's dangerous, he knows my root operatives. The second decision I have made, I will now tell you. Upon my graduation of the academy and I have proven myself worthy of trust to the village to each participating clan, I ask that I am allowed to stand in front of the council to both ask and answer questions to alleviate the anxiety of its members. I will explain all that I know except ones pertaining to sensitive information about my mother. I feel that is understandable, especially if you find out who she is. She would be very angry and can be very hard to calm down. I've only known her to be nice to myself in her whole existence, and I don't doubt she would go to any lengths to snuff any obstacles I encounter that she thinks I can't handle. She can be a beast at times. Sincerely. Naruto Otsutsuki. Clan heir to the Hyuga and herald of the rabbit. Danzo and Shikaku just took in more knowledge than they expected. Shikaku rubbed his head after he rolled the scroll and handed it back to the Hokage. That left me with more questions than answers. I feel like he purposely left clues in this letter that only certain people will understand. Are you sure this kid is only 6? Shikaku's headache grew. Shikaku understood the rabbit goddess was supposed to be his mother from the dinner lesson they just got. Herald of the rabbit. Okay, he speaks for his mother, very concerning but still made sense. Shinobi above and below. How troublesome. Danzo reacted though, so something he's involved with. Troublesome. What did he mean by his mother being a beast sometimes? He put emphasis on it. Something isn't lining up. Is he the Jinchuriki the Hokage has been hiding? But his mother isn't a fox, she literally goes by a rabbit. Troublesome. Troublesome. I need more time to think. Shikaku slumped on the couch, gripping his temples and repeating his catchphrase as if it were a mantra. Hiruzen chuckled and then locked eyes. I with Danzo. I take it you received your warning, as well as an invitation. The Hokage would not expand on what he meant, he knew Danzo better than that. Indeed, it appears I'm in need of a history lesson. I'm even more curious to see what excuses this. Articulate child will come up with given 6 years to explain himself. Hiruzen chuckled, the kid bought himself time, and only time itself would tell what would happen. Chapter 4, Graduation and Council. N. Ria here. This is a long chapter, and so will the next one. I apologize. First, my inspiration behind Naruto's fighting style is a combination of the gentle fist Juken, Judo, and Capoeira, a martial arts focused around fluid, break-dance style kicks and movements. Flexibility and unnatural balance will help Naruto commit to attacks that would leave most people open. What made me think of this was the Hyuga's 8 trigrams, revolving heaven rotation. It involves forcing chakra out of your whole body while spinning. I felt that the Hyuga underutilized their legs beyond this. Kicks with chakra forced out through the impact points sounds devastating, and I wanted to play around with that. Fighting games are my passion, so designing fights around this whirlwind of a person sounded super fun, and I plan to have some great fight scenes, hopefully. As I was making the council meeting, I felt it was a good time to establish my backstory and changes I made to the original Kaguya story. A mix of the original Naruto lore, Boruto add-ons, and a little touch of my influence to back up the story I want to tell. If my retelling of past events is boring, don't hesitate to skip it. Just know a few things may not make sense in that case. I needed a way to bind Naruto to Konoha and thought of an interesting way to do it, so I did that as well. I had a lot of fun with it, but I understand it may rub people a certain way. I don't regret it at all though. World building is important, and the sooner it's finished, the sooner we can flow through story beats and have fun. Once again, I apologize for the length, but I'm gonna do it again so I'm not too sorry. I broke the storytelling up to prevent long-ass paragraphs, so hopefully that helps. End of N. Ria out. 6 years. That's how fast time flew. Today was a day that was important for many reasons to Naruto. A day for his graduation test. A day to address the council. A day to prepare to take his first step into the world of shinobi as a genin. Naruto stood, looking at the academy building. He now stood at a height of 5 feet 4, not super tall, but taller than many at his age of 12. His long, silver hair still tied in a high ponytail he'd grown fond of over time. Its length was still excessive, reaching to the top of his pelvis, so one could imagine how far it would go out of its ponytail. No matter how hard he tried, his more androgynous features made him even more confusing, not being aided with his Royal Heim-style small eyebrows. No matter how much he aged or tried to gain muscle mass, he couldn't bulk out his body to look more manly. He just ended up toned and defined. A fact that for some reason pissed him off, but made Hinata happy. Naruto shook the thoughts out of his head before he pissed himself off. He straightened his kimono top and pulled the bottom of his gray pants to make sure they were snug. Naruto was still getting used to it, but Hinata convinced him a full kimono was not practical for ninja. From then on, he changed his clothes to a white kimono top designed with 6 black tomo on the collar, billowing sleeves to hide his hands, a black obi, and gray pants that tucked into a pair of black shinobi sandals. The monochromatic look was something he liked for some reason. He'd feel like a clown if he wore colors for some reason, probably because of how pale he was. One thing bugged him though. Where was he going to wear his headband? This thought alone caused him to leave later than usual. His forehead. Hell no, that'd draw attention to his eyebrows and he'd look ridiculous. His neck. That would be good, but Hinata would be mad and complain about it being in her way. His arm. Sure, but just thinking about it cutting off airflow in his kimono top pissed him off. My son, as I'm sure these thoughts are important to you, you'll never have to worry about wearing one at all unless you get to class. Kaguya chided. Naruto shook another set of thoughts out his head and moved to class. As Naruto opened up the sliding door to class, he saw everyone chatting in their groups, excited about the final test for graduation. Sasuke was trying to sit by himself, but was being hounded by his group of fangirls. Naruto didn't talk to him much on purpose after finding out the boy was a perpetual prick, but he still felt bad for the boy. He couldn't even sulk in silence without being harassed. Ino would be joining Sakura and the other annoying girls, but she was talking to Hinata at the moment. This was a friendship Naruto didn't see coming, but Hinata would rotate her style for a couple years. This brought Ino and her fashionista personality to be drawn to her. After Hinata's body started developing, she started wearing her jacket open and sported a black crop top. This was something Hinata claimed was a power move, and was clearly influenced by Ino. Naruto wasn't complaining and thought she looked cute in whatever she wore, but knew better to not get involved with clothing choices beyond that. He would end up in a dress, and that would never happen again. Naruto walked up to the two. Good morning, ladies. Are you looking forward to graduation? Hinata immediately wrapped herself around one of Naruto's arms. Nice of you to finally join us, I was wondering how long you'd stand out there, Hinata giggled. And yes, I'm excited. Ino smiled widely. Yup, I'll prove I'm the best, get my own hubby, Sasuke, when he sees how well I did, and get one over on Miss Forehead over there. Her smile got even brighter as she gave a thumbs up. Strength might be the right approach for Sasuke. Hinata thought. I don't get what you see in him though, but I'll support my friend. Ino snickered. And I don't know how I would feel being with a guy with better hair than me like Naruto, sorry. I go with dark, brooding, and handsome though. Hinata visibly frowned. And you'll never have to worry about that either, so stick to your Uchiha. Ino laughed, knowing how defensive she got over Naruto, she couldn't help riling her up. Down girl, ha ha ha, he's all yours, I know better after I saw you threatening Billboard Brow. Sakura heard that, scowled at Ino, and went back to annoying the living hell out of Sasuke. Naruto just shook his head. Ruruka walked in and everyone moved to their seats. Alright class, congratulations on making it this far. Before we begin, I wanted to tell you all how proud I am of you all. I wanted to tell you that Mizuki-sensei will not be present due to circumstances. It's hard to find proctors that will remain impartial, so the third Hokage has personally volunteered to help oversee the tests. At that moment, the third Hokage walked into the class and nodded at the students. Greetings, I've come to see the future of Konoha and look forward to meeting you all. The class had varying reactions, but all of them excited. Ruruka clapped his hands to get attention back on him. Okay class, settle down. I'm going to pass out your written exam now. After the exams were passed out, the next hour flew by with relative ease. Most students were done by the 30-minute mark, but everyone snickered as Kiba was sweating and took the whole duration. Okay class, time is up. Everyone pass your tests to the front of the classroom, and then we will step outside for kunai throwing and sparring. Ruruka alerted. Naruto made it a habit of harassing Kiba since their first meeting in class and had no intention of changing that right now. Sensei, can you put Inuzuka-san's paper in a different pile? It looks soaked in sweat and I don't want my paper to fade. The class laughed only for Kiba to shout, face red in embarrassment. Shut up, you bastard. Naruto chuckled into his sleeve. Naruto, stop being a bully. Ruruka slightly smiled. I'd never ruin the rest of the tests like that. This drew a smile even to Hirizen's face. Alright, class. Move it. Ruruka, the Hokage, and the class all moved outside to the public academy training area. The kunai throwing part happened quickly, the only people really not doing well were most of the civilian children. The part that everyone tensed at was the sparring portion. Ruruka pointed to the Hokage standing in the middle of the sparring circle. You have the great honor today of the Hokage testing your taijutsu. This is a privilege, so show him everything you've got understand. I want to see how you do, but do keep in mind I'm an old man, Ruruka, Hirizen chuckled. Almost everyone collectively gulped. To be honest, the Hokage was allowing everyone to spar the entire time duration, catching and blocking the flailing hands and feet of young children with ease. Naruto didn't know what to expect however, this was the Hokage after all. Sasuke and Hinata did quite well, both showcasing their clan's fighting prowess. Naruto was very proud of Hinata as she has been practicing altering her Juken style to be more fluid with him. Once her limbs lengthen a bit, she will be a monster. After she was finished, she smiled and ran over and jumped onto Naruto's neck, spinning around him and landing in front of him. How did the form look? It felt much better today. Naruto smiled down at her. It is improving by leaps and bounds. Hinata giggled. Hirizen thought something different though. He didn't even budge under her weight. The boy has insane core and neck muscles. Okay, next. Naruto Otsutsuki. Please enter the circle. Ruruka shouted. Wish me luck, Hinaheim. Naruto smiled and Hinata gave him a peck on the cheek. I'll be waiting. Naruto chuckled as walked over and stood in front of the Hokage. Remember, only taijutsu. No low blows to private areas and show respect to your opponent. And Naruto, you can't use hair, I'm counting that as Senbon knowing you. Naruto bowed to the Hokage in response to Ruruka's words. Hair, Sarutobi thought as he narrowed his eyes. Naruto sunk into the gentle fist stance with both of his open hands pointed outwards towards his left and right. That isn't the normal Juken stance, why is he doing that with his hands? The third Hokage's interest was piqued. He was called the professor for a reason, and seeing something new, even from a child, was slightly exhilarating. Begin. As soon as the voice was heard, Hirizen watched the boy take a step forward and fall towards the ground with his legs slightly crouched, turning so his back would hit it first. But right before he touched the ground, his legs straightened and propelled him forward rapidly. An upside-down palm strike headed towards his chest. Hiruzen raised a hand to deflect it, but his eyes widened when he saw Naruto change his palm strike to 2 fingers, aimed directly at the wrist coming to block the attack. He was aiming for my wrist and baited out my hand. The third thought in wonder. Instead of deflecting the attack, the third Hokage instead moved his body and face to the right so the attack would end with the boy falling, maybe to recover by rolling. That was not what happened. The same hand that was still swinging, swung down and planted 2 fingers into the ground. Inverse 8 trigrams. The boy shouted. What the hell is that? Hiruzen took a real guarded position. Naruto then hoisted his legs above him in a quick one-handed handstand while his body fell forward. Was he going to launch himself back onto his feet? Revolving hell heel rotation. The boy used the momentum to spin his legs in a tornado, both legs flared out as chakra spread from his feet, using his free hand to push chakra along the ground like a propellant, making his spin speed up at a ridiculous rate. What the hell? Who the hell would come up with something like that? This was the thought Hiruzen had as he jumped back to avoid the large spinning ball of released chakra. Naruto suddenly came to a halt, ceasing the rotation and threw himself back onto his feet, into a normal Juken stance. Iruka-sensei, are you going to call it? Naruto said as he stood straight and then pointed at the circle. Hiruzen looked down. He jumped out of the circle. His eyes widened and then he started to smile. Clever kid, he just wanted to catch me by surprise and get me out of the circle. Indeed, I have lost. Well done, my boy. A ninja must always expect the unexpected, something I did not put into practice well today. Iruka stood there slack-jawed, coughed to correct himself and then turned to Naruto. Well done Naruto. Great job. Naruto nodded and bowed. Thank you sensei, and thank you Lord Third. I'm aware I would stand no chance in a real fight, but I am sure I will hold this victory over your head for the foreseeable future. Hiruzen belly laughed and wiped a tear from his eye. Indeed, my boy, you've earned it. Just know I'll be coming for you when you can handle a real fight to get my honor back. Naruto covered his mouth and chuckled. Of course, Lord Third. Naruto walked back to the other gaping children and Hinata rocketed into him with a kiss and a bright smile. That was amazing. When did you finish getting down the heel rotation? Naruto put a thinking finger on his chin and looked up. Right now. Hinata looked at him in shock, and then exasperation. Kami, Naru-kun, you just needed to spar, not show off. I wouldn't have, but it isn't every day you can spar with the Hokage. Naruto just shrugged. Hinata let out another sigh. A few more kids went through sparring and they all returned to the classroom. Iruka stood in front of the children again. Okay, last part. Time to test your practical jutsus. I'll be calling you into the room adjacent to test with the Hokage. Should you pass, you will receive your headbands. One by one, the clan kids came out with headbands and all but one civilian passed. Naruto felt something off with him being the last one called but he just shrugged it off. Hinata came back with her headband around her neck and gave him a bright smile. Just you left. Don't collapse under the pressure. Hinata giggled into her hand while Naruto rolled his eyes. Who knows? I may just be too bad at this jutsu stuff. Naruto winked as he heard his name called. Naruto arrived in the room and walked in front of his 2 testers. Okay Naruto, we won't waste your time. Please show us a Kawarimi first. Iruka stated. Understood. Naruto thought for a second and smirked. Do you have any preferences for the substitution? Iruka smiled and looked at Hiruzen. Lord Hokage. The Hokage thought for a second. How far can you substitute something? Naruto's smirk widened and activated his Byakugan. As long as I can see it. Hiruzen smiled evilly. Is there anyone here that isn't supposed to be? Indeed. Naruto then disappeared in a puff of smoke, only for a shinobi wearing a blank mask to appear. The root operative looked around and freaked out, only to disappear, replaced by Naruto again. I jumped off the roof of the next building over before I substituted back. Iruka freaked and then passed out, but Hiruzen laughed hard again. That was great, my boy. I think we'll get along just fine. Since Iruka is taking a leave of absence from his own body, please proceed with a henge. Naruto thought of Hinata, and then poofed into a perfect copy of her. She was the first person that came to mind, so please don't ogle my fiancé, Lord Third. Naruto spoke in Hinata's voice, amusing the Hokage. Hiruzen chuckled but then nodded. Very good, you can change back and then show me a bunshin. I feel like you have something interesting beside the shadow clone. Naruto smiled. You are correct, Lord Third. Naruto smacked his hands together. Tengoku Bunshin. Suddenly a clone faded into existence, as if a genjutsu was dispelled and it was there the whole time. I can only make one of these, but it's also the only clone I can make with my own chakra. It knows everything I know and do and I know everything it knows and does. To give an example, the Hokage watched the two Narutos act like the kids they were for the first time. Play rock, paper, scissors and get the same answer each time to prove they both knew what was going to be thrown. Then they did a needlessly long and impromptu series of handshakes, bumps, and explosions. Please ask something to it that I can't hear. Naruto then walked to the far end of the room and stood there. Hiruzen then whispered into the clone's ear and the real Naruto responded from the other side of the room. The chakra I use is celestial chakra, but the explanation can wait until we are in front of the council. The clone then faded out of existence like it never existed. Hiruzen was absolutely shocked and would be asking for extensive details on this clone, but outwardly remained composed. He already lost to the boy once today. Excellent, my boy. I think you've passed this with flying colors. Please select a headband and go to the other room while I wake up your sensei. Naruto bowed in acceptance and walked over to the table. He hesitated for a second though. Noticing this, Hiruzen decided to inquire. What's wrong, Naruto? Can I put the Konoha plate on my obi? I couldn't think of a better location where it would look good on me. Naruto asked hesitantly. Of course, my boy. People put it in stanger places. As long as it is visible so people understand that you are a shinobi of Konoha. The Yamanaka heir is wearing hers as a belt already, so it's fine. Thank you, Lord Third. Naruto then took a black headband, sharpened a hair and cut the fabric underneath it, and then used that hair to weave it into his obi so it showed in the front. He then humphed in satisfaction and then left the room after bowing. This is going to be an entertaining council meeting. Shortly after, Ruruka walked into the room. Okay, I want you all to know again how happy I am for those of you that passed. Your team assignments will be located here in this class at 10 next week. You've all had a long day and I encourage you to celebrate with your family. Naruto, the Hokage says it's time for your meeting, but he didn't tell me what it was for. Naruto stood up and bowed. Understood, sensei. I'll be taking my leave. He turned to face Hinata. I'll see you at home. Hinata smiled and nodded as Naruto left. -20 minutes later, council room. Naruto and the Hokage walked into the council room together. Hiruzen waved the boy to stay in the middle while he moved to sit down behind his desk. Two older people were sitting next to him, while another stood beside the Hokage's table covered in bandages and holding a cane in his good hand. Naruto looked around and saw some faces he recognized and many he did not, but he could guess them from their features. Good afternoon everyone. I'm sure many of you know why you are here today and many more have questions. Some of us have patiently waited 6 years to ask, so waiting a few more moments will be bearable. All of the council members present have had an opportunity to talk to the Hyuga clan elders and Hiyashi, so base knowledge has been given and so questions could be formed properly. No civilians are present as this entire conversation does not concern them. The Hokage looked around and received nods all around before continuing. First, I'd like to introduce Naruto to the council. As you know, I am Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage. Hiruzen gestured to the older man next to him. This is Homura Mitokado. He then gestured to the older lady next to him, and Kaharu Udatane. They were my teammates and trusted elders of the council. He then gestured to the bandaged man. This is Danzo Shimura, an old friend of mine and also an elder of the council. Naruto bowed to each one respectfully as they were introduced. This made Homura and Kaharu nod in approval for the boy's proper manners. The Hokage then gestured to the table of clan heads on Naruto's left. These are the prominent clan heads of the village. From the left, you have Shibi Aburame, Inoichi Yamanaka, Sume Inuzuka, Choza Akamaiki, Hiyashi Hyuga, and Shikaku Nara. I'm sure you recognize both Shikaku and Hiyashi. Naruto once again bowed to each one as they were introduced. It is nice to have this opportunity to meet you. My name is Naruto Otsutsuki. The Hokage is correct as I currently reside within the Hyuga compound and I have had the pleasure of interacting with the Nara family. I sincerely apologize for not being able to encounter the rest of you casually before this meeting. The council, except for Sume and Danzo, all nodded and smiled. Sume broke the comfortable silence. Are you always this formal, kid? I see why my son is uncomfortable around you. Naruto politely closed his eyes and gave a sweet smile. Your son is uncomfortable around me because he thinks I look like beautiful girl and it makes him question himself. He then went on to actively pursue my fiancé sexually and got beat up by said girl. I would say that would make anyone uncomfortable. Sume sank into her seat, trying to turn invisible as a few other clan heads snickered. That's cold, kid, was heard from the laughing Akamaiki head. Naruto was not here to show that his kindness made him a pushover. That matter aside, where would you like me to start? Homura was the first one up. Where has the Otsutsuki clan been hiding for centuries? Such a legendary clan can't just suddenly appear without seeming suspicious. Naruto nodded in recognition. I understand. I was allowed to speak a majority of this by my mother, but understand that some things will be intentionally omitted. I will still speak the complete truth, and in recognition to the respect you have offered me, I will do the same. What do you mean allowed? Hiruzen spoke up. Think of it as how this village's clans work. Matters of the clan are directly monitored and addressed by the clan head. The clan head would be my mother, and I am allowed to inform you of things the clan head. This is why my title would be considered Herald of the Rabbit. I know you have many questions about my mother, but what I can tell you about her will be included in my answer to Mitokado-san. Very well, I apologize for interrupting. Please continue, Naruto. Naruto nodded. To understand where the Otsutsuki has been, I have to talk about why they disappeared. I am not allowed to tell you her name, as only Otsutsuki may know, but for the sake of this story, her name will be Usagi-sama. Fufufu. How cute. Go on, little bunny, tell a story about bunny mommy, Kaguya teased. Naruto's eye twitched and then regained composure. Usagi-sama came here with a clan member to collect chakra and bring it back to her people far from this planet. While here, she fell in love with the people of this planet and decided to betray her clansmen in favor of saving them. She tore the legs off of her clansmen and used it to fertilize something called a god seed. This seed absorbed chakra from the planet until the seed became a god tree. The tree bore a single fruit, a chakra fruit, and this fruit was the objective of the other Otsutsuki. Naruto started slowly pacing as he told his abridged story. They wanted this fruit to continue growing until it sucked the planet dry and left every living thing on this planet to wither and die. More Otsutsuki would come from beyond the stars to claim it. There was no way to stop all of them from coming. There was only one way to get that type of power. Naruto stopped and looked at the Homura. The man was gripping his chair and absorbing every word. Usagi-sama did the only thing she could do. She ate the chakra fruit from the god tree. This granted her the abilities and powers of the planet and every living thing on it. She awoke the reincarnation, and with this power, she could protect her new home and save the humans of this land. Content with becoming the guardian of the tree, she made sure that the roots didn't seep too deep into the planet to kill it. While she was tending to the god tree, a daimyo of the land of ancestors approached her and offered her the opportunity to live amongst the people she loved, but she would be his concubine. Naruto looked sad, but continued. During this period, she gave birth to twins, Hagoromo and Homura. My genetic half-brothers. She wasn't fond of how they came to be, but she still loved her children. Something was wrong though. She looked at her children and noticed they bore some of her features, but something was wrong. Usagi-sama felt weaker. The chakra she absorbed from the fruit, a third went into each of her children. She grew furious, not because she hated her children. She grew furious because she lost the power to fight off Otsutsuki. What was she to do when they would come? And they would come, not a matter of if, but when. Naruto raised a finger to emphasize this. Usagi-sama closed herself off from most, including her children as they started to get older. She worked through every plan she could, but reached one conclusion. She would have to kill her own children and take back their chakra, or she would have to sacrifice people to the god tree in hopes of developing another chakra fruit. Usagi-sama couldn't bear the burden of killing her own offspring. She would not let roots go into the core as that would kill the planet, so she had to manually feed the tree. Naruto recalled the memories Kaguya gave him and shuddered. One day, she messed up. She accidentally sacrificed the lover of her son, Hagoromo. She knew she had seen her before, but she was so mentally broken at the time from having to commit these atrocities. Naruto then looked directly at Danzo. Sometimes we lose ourselves in the bigger picture and forget why we started doing the things we do in the first place. Danzo shivered. His ambitions seemed so small compared to this. Hagoromo was furious, distraught, destroyed. He was many things, but most of all, he was resolute. He would not hear Usagi-sama's reasoning, and would not believe an apology. Homura joined his brother to bring their mother down. The two did not understand the issue with the Otsutsuki, and could care less at this moment. In desperation, Usagi-sama merged with the god tree. Something not done before. She couldn't control the power. Her sanity slipped and shattered since the chakra influx was too intense. Naruto slightly grabbed his head, as if experiencing it himself through his mother's memory. When she completely merged, she became the Kyuubi, the ten-tailed beast. Gasps were heard all around, but Naruto wasn't finished. The two brothers, thinking they were merely defeating a monster, ripped the chakra from the Kyuubi and put it into Hagoromo. They then sealed Usagi-sama's body separately using the planet's energy. The seal drew in so much earth, it rose into the sky and became the moon. A silent prison for Usagi-sama. Broken. Alone. Naruto heard tears in his mindscape. Hagoromo Otsutsuki held onto this chakra for the rest of his life, becoming what you know as the Sage of Six Paths. At the end of his life, to prevent the Kyuubi, and unknowingly his mother, from living again, he split the chakra into 9 beasts. Your Biju. Homura decided to move to the moon, leaving behind offspring on the planet. Those offspring became the Hyuga. Hagoromo's descendants broke into 2 houses, based on what power they received from him. Senju, the body, and Uchiha, the eyes and spirit. Asura and Indra respectively. That is why the Otsutsuki disappeared. Everyone sat in silence for a few minutes digesting this information. Kaharu nodded. Thank you, that story is hard to believe, but I believe it because you did not paint your family in a positive light as you very well could have. But that does not explain how you, and Otsutsuki are here. Is Usagi-sama your mother, or are you another foreigner from beyond? Naruto nodded, glad he was being met with some skepticism. He liked talking to these people more than the Hyuga Council. That brings me into the equation. First, I am what you would call a Jinchuriki, but not so at the same time. Another round of gasps from the peanut gallery. It was Hiruzen, however, that narrowed his eyes. What do you mean you are, but you aren't? Someone summoned Usagi-sama's body near the 9 tails during the night of the attack. Naruto could swear if these people breath any harder, they'll pass out. I was born that night, and my birth father tried to seal the 9 tails inside of my baby body, but Usagi-hime's sanity started to kick in after she was halfway finished eating the fox. She then marked me and entered into my body with the 9 tails. Wait, your birth father tried to seal the Kyuubi into you. Your birth father is Minato Namikaze. Kaharu was floored. If that was the yellow-haired man, then yes. Naruto waved his hand dismissively, searching for these specific memories. The next thing to happen was Usagi-sama finishing the Kyuubi, absorbing the seal that was placed on me, and then Naruto furrowed his tiny eyebrows. You were going to take my body. We are gonna talk about this later, you understand. Naruto tried to be stern with Kaguya but she simply giggled in return. Sigh. She was going to reincarnate through my body, but found that I harbored a reincarnated soul from Asura, Hagoromo's son. She then felt bad about what she was doing, remembering her love for her family. She allowed the reincarnation to continue until I was genetically 100% Otsutsuki, making me much more pure than both of Hagoromo and Homura. At that point, she stopped and allowed me to be my own person. Naruto wasn't intending to, but he didn't really want to talk about himself, so he tried skimming the facts. It would be fair to say I was Lord Fourth's son. I am no longer. I house my now genetic mother, who is also the Kyuubi, but it's more fair to say we have a symbiotic relationship until I can free her. There is no seal holding her in me, and even if I remove the mark she gave me, which I have, it wouldn't do anything. She will eventually be able to come out if all goes well, so we can hold off any relatives that try and visit. The third Hokage thought for a second. That's quite a heavy burden. This is a new layer of politics and potential war that we wouldn't have known about without this meeting today. Naruto nodded. It is my burden to bear, but I thank you for your understanding. And what is the rabbit goddess's intention with humanity? Now that all of this has happened. Danzo narrowed his eye. Naruto looked down. I will be honest. She is not a fan of humans anymore. It's true that Hagoromo and Homura purposely did not mention her, but she spent many years not only as the guardian of the tree, but as the reason humanity has chakra and can live and die freely after so many years. She is disappointed that the world has forgotten her. She is not blind to the atrocities she performed in the name of peace, but it was not the first time or the last time leaders have made that heavy decision. To sacrifice the few to save the many. Isn't that what shinobi do for their village? Danzo didn't even hesitate. Of course, we are shinobi. We will endure, but that does not guarantee her cooperation. Naruto nodded to that. She still looks to this planet as a home, and a refuge away from the monstrous ways of the other Otsutsuki. She has told me she will help protect this planet as it is my birthplace, but it is my training if I participate in your worldly affairs. Shikaku spoke up. You said you would not answer anything personal about your mother, yet you told us her life story. Why can't you disclose her name? That was not personal. I am giving you your history back that was forgotten to time. The origin of chakra, unblemished yet imperfect as it was, not tainted by potential lies told by the Sage of Six Paths. Naruto's face then went stern. You do not have my mother's name because you don't know what it means to know it. It would tie me indefinitely to this village as the name will spread. It would make you a superpower over the rest of the elemental continent and give you my undivided support in your dealings, war or otherwise. But with that boon, a bane. Any Otsutsuki dwelling in the shadows or arriving will come here first. Konoha will be the #1 target on this planet with not only your enemies, but our enemies. I will outlive all of you and your children's children if I do not fall in battle. I will have unimaginable sway in this village, making my voice as a second Hokage from the shadows, my mother is my daimyo. Can you and your descendants bear this burden? Shikaku gulped and looked towards Hiruzen, whose face turned cold. That is indeed a lot of power behind a name. This is obviously something that would need to be discussed amongst ourselves for quite some time, but it must be considered if we will be under the attack of a celestial superpower. We would perish all the same if they are as strong as you make them seem, regardless of our affiliation with you. Danzo firmed his gaze. We should take this deal. If it means that we would be strong enough to put down other villages and stand against these other Otsutsuki, we should take a lesson from the rabbit goddess and make the necessary sacrifice. This declaration made all but Hiashi wriggle uncomfortably in their seats. Hiruzen looked around the room, but saw no true objection to Danzo's words. That was the most disturbing thing to him, but he too understood. Naruto, if you would, please tell us the benefits and responsibilities of knowing the rabbit goddess's name. This caught the boy by surprise, but he bowed and began. You will receive my unconditional support in your wars, shinobi missions, and politics should you require it. Your village will become the home of the Otsutsuki clan and, since I am currently the heir of the Hyuga clan, the Hyuga will become a single branch family. The caged bird seal will personally be removed by me and the main and branch structure of the Hyuga will vanish, as all are considered the same blood purity compared to the Otsutsuki. This is a boon for the current branch members and also agreed upon by Hiashi-san and Hinata-san. Konohagakure will gain the benefit of having the 10 tails, Jinchuriki, of which I can show a demonstration for verification, but only briefly if my mother Aloshi says she'd like to stretch so she is willing. The council sweated, but Hiruzen still beckoned him to continue. My offspring with my betrothed will also be somewhat similar to Hagoromo and Homura, half Otsutsuki. This will be what you would consider the greatest boon that is visible to you. Hiruzen and the elders all went wide-eyed before the Hokage spoke. Konoha would have its own sage of 6 paths. Indeed, and the Sharingan, and hence the Uchiha will be born again. The Senju would also be reset. That would make the titles of last Uchiha for Sasuke-san and last Senju for Tsunade no longer an issue, as the clans would be reborn anew. The entire council all looked in awe at this revelation. Excuse me, Naruto, but you do not have the Sharingan. How will your descendants develop it? Koharu asked. That brings me to Konoha's responsibilities. Everyone tensed. You would be responsible for putting me into contact with all known Jinchuriki. I will not kill them, but I will siphon some chakra from each tailed beast. This will restore my mother to her full strength as the Jubi. I will eventually seek them out on my own, but this would help me not use less drastic measures. Danzo smirked. This is a small price to pay and I will send Root out immediately to find them. Hiruzen, still stern-faced, asked another question. And how does this relate to the Sharingan and the new Uchiha? Naruto slightly smirked in response. My mother is the 10 tails. One fused with the god tree. She did not say why or how, but with the power of each tailed beast, she can produce another chakra fruit as long as I meditate and absorb the planet's nature energy for a while. I have been absorbing nature chakras since I was 4 at her behest, and should have enough by the time I've come into contact with all the tailed beasts. Once I have eaten it, my Sharingan will awaken as a third eye. This will allow me to pass the Rinnegan, and in turn the Sharingan its weaker form down to my offspring. If my child has only one child of their own instead of 2, then the next offspring will possess the Rinnegan as well. Koharu absorbed this new knowledge. Please entertain my morbid curiosity, but what would happen if a human ate the chakra fruit? Without missing a beat, Naruto replied. Your body would be overwhelmed with the chakra of the planet and its people. Then your chakra coils would instantly disintegrate and you would explode. And that would be just from touching the juice, let alone taking a bite. Danzo's plan to steal the fruit died as fast as it came. So we would be turning you into a god. Naruto smiled sweetly and looked at Danzo. Your god, I would be at your disposal. I will conquer nations for you if you can justify it to me. In fact, Shimura-san, I would already be willing to grant you one favor that doesn't harm Konoha. There would be a price though. Danzo gripped his cane. And price would I pay? My mother says I should take your right arm in its entirety. It would be painless and I can eventually provide you with another. You can keep the other thing as well as a token of good faith. My eyes see all, Shimura-san. Much more than what that can do. Danzo gripped his cane even harder. A favor of a future god in return for my arm. And he clearly alluded that I can keep Shisui's eye. Are you threatening me, boy? Danzo growled. Nonsense, you know I am not. You can turn it down, just know I can use the yin and yang in that arm of yours. I won't even leave proof of what it is, if that is what you are cautious over. Naruto waved dismissively. Hiruzen spoke. What are you talking about? Shimura-san's resolve. Whether he truly means that he will sacrifice for the village or not. Danzo clenched again as Naruto continued. You can answer after the council decides on their own proposal, I am not an impatient man. Danzo was trapped, regardless of how he felt. The answer was already made for me, it seems. Damn brat, I wouldn't even be able to leave this room without questions about my arm now, anyways. He knew what he was doing. Naruto then turned back to Hiruzen. Would the council like to discuss this price for knowing my mother's name? Hiruzen looked around. Are there any questions, first? Tsume leaned forward. Will the Hyuga gain more status than they already have? Naruto shook her head. The clan power dynamic among you will not change. The only thing that will change is the branch house sharing the same status as the main house, standing as one clan not divided. For reassurance to the elders and current main branch, if any eyes are stolen after the removal of the caged bird seal, I will sense them and kill them. Dojutsu belonging to Konoha will remain in Konoha unless a member has moved out of the village. Hiyashi nodded at this. That would stop Kumo, Shikaku thought. What would be the status of the Otsutsuki clan? Kaharu asked. We would live among the Hyuga, as it is easier to hide in plain sight. There is no need to terrify or alert the villagers of a new compound and risk causing unrest. They may continue to think that the Otsutsuki are relatives to the Hyuga. Plus, I am rather fond of them, living with them for so long. Naruto smiled and Kaharu nodded. Will the rabbit goddess have her own demands, in addition to yours? The Aburame clan head asked. I would be delighted if the humans stayed away from me when I am free. In fact, I'd rather not be around anyone other than my precious son. Fufufufu, Kaguya spoke in Naruto's mind. You have a serious complex, are you aware of this? Naruto blankly asked to his mother. Fufufu, what can I say? You're a perfect male version of me. If I can't love that, I might as well have stayed mindless. I'll have you eventually, it is inevitable. Naruto blushed and shook away his mother's words. What the hell is wrong with this woman? She only asks that she isn't bothered, and she will keep to herself. She has had enough of worldly affairs for the foreseeable future. Naruto said what a non-insane Kaguya would have replied with. How soon would you become a military asset? Danzo asked. Naruto raised a small eyebrow. On what scale? I did just become a genin, but I can still do some things. If we went to war with another village tomorrow, would you be ready to fight? Naruto pondered. Do you care about the innocents? Danzo looked at him. Let's assume that there are no innocents. Then the village would no longer exist as soon as I am in range. However, there is no such thing as complete evil among humans. Only a lack of understanding. As easy as it would be to rain all killing ash bones down on the village, reducing everything living to ash, that would only make the village I call my home to be frowned upon. Even among its own people. Hiruzen smiled at that answer. Sure, it was concerning that he could do something like that, but it also showed that he wasn't going to be a mindless weapon. Are there any more questions that you have? Naruto asked politely. The council still looked nervous, but resolve was settling in them. The Hokage saw this as well. Before we vote, the civilian council is to never know about anything decided today. Are we clear? Hiruzen wore a face that offered no challenge. Everyone nodded their head as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. Are there any in opposition to the exchange of learning the rabbit goddess's name? There was some hesitation from the elders and clan heads, but all remained quiet. Since there is no opposition, the council agrees to your terms, Naruto Otsutsuki. Kami save us all if this is the wrong choice. The Hokage thought. I understand. Suddenly, silver chakra surged around Naruto as he closed his eyes. Suddenly the chakra turned into a pale light blue-green and wrapped around Naruto in a cloak, his form gaining a spectral cyan appearance. Two horns shaped like rabbit ears took shape on top of his head. He opened up his eyes to reveal the Tensagen, the white lotus flower petals dancing in a slow circle. Suddenly, his voice reverberated through the room. I am Naruto Otsutsuki, Herald of the Rabbit. As the representative of the Otsutsuki, Konohagakure is now bound to the fate of the Otsutsuki. As such, the rabbit goddess shall be revealed. Her name, Kaguya Otsutsuki, rabbit goddess, progenitor and all-mother of chakra to this planet. First to merge with the tree. Upon her name and her sons, this village will not disclose the rabbit goddess name in return for the unending protection of this planet's Otsutsuki. Until every soul of our Otsutsuki fade into non-existence, Naruto Otsutsuki and his descendants stand with you. As Naruto's chakra cloak faded and his appearance went back to normal, the rest of the council felt the pressure of the oath made. They could only pray that they didn't sign a death warrant. Chapter 5, Buried Roots and Beginnings. And, hi, Ria here. Thanks for waiting, but we got a new chapter for your enjoyment. I saw some interesting reviews, so I'll address a couple things I saw. I strongly believe that Zetsu is not Kaguya's karma. If that was the case, she would have been revived a long time ago. Also, someone brought up that I moved the timeline up for the Uchiha massacre. I did, because of the increased paranoia. Everyone at that time knew Naruto was a Jinchuriki, but no one except the Hyuga and Hiruzen knew who it was in this timeline. I'm aging Itachi up a little more to fit in line with this, because Danzo would be turning heaven and earth to ease his suspicions. This is obviously my head canon and doesn't impact the story too much. This chapter will cover Danzo's deal, Akatsuki intentions, and the start of Team 7. Also, just because I know it will be asked eventually, Naruto has Kaguya's memories. She has been around a lot longer than Naruto, so his personality and morals towards human life are more from an Otsutsuki standing. He still cares about those close to him, he is just a lot less self-righteous about those not from his home. Alright, that is enough yapping, it's been a while since I posted, so enjoy. End of end, Ria out. After Konoha was undergoing world-changing revelations, a certain mercenary group was having a meeting in a megakure. A megakure, tallest tower, meeting room. Pain's Rinnegan swept across the room to the individuals sitting around the table. Seeing his elite members all looking back at him, Pain decided that it was time to address the ten-tailed problem in the room, or lack of it. It's been 12 years since you and Zetsu have been scouting for information on the boy, Toby. I haven't bothered you due to my self-sharing blame of what happened that night, but Akatsuki needs to know what happened and what to do now. Pain's eyes swiveled to look at the masked Toby, since Zetsu was missing. Since the Nine Tails incident, Toby stopped trying to keep up the cheery facade of his own design due to the stress of what happened. I have information. I really don't like it, but I have a spy among the Konoha Anbu that witnessed something. Hard to believe. Toby reached into a sleeve, grabbed some photos and scattered them across the table for all to see. The image was of a young kid with long silver hair, pale skin, Byakugan eyes, and a long thin and toned build. Everyone grabbed a picture. This little girl is the target. What tailed Biju is this brat? Kisame asked. Toby shook his head. I'm not sure, target, is the right word. This is Naruto Otsutsuki. 6 years ago he entered the Ninja Academy and he graduated a day ago. These images were taken on the academy. He claims that his clan is the origin of Dojutsu and the genetic half-brother to the Sage of Six Paths. A wild claim, but one supported by most of the village's shinobi and Hyuga clan. Didn't you say this little asshole was the son of the 4th Hokage and the former Nine-Tails Jinchuriki? How is he an Otsutsuki then, Deidara said as he flicked his wrist uncaringly. Pain then spoke up. I'm only revealing this because of its relevance to this boy. Pain then told them of the events that happened 12 years ago, including the event they named the Gedo Mazo incident. After the Gedo Mazo went into the boy, the Jinchuriki seal disappeared and the boy's skin, hair, and eyes changed. Then a female spirit appeared over the child and looked directly at us and we left. I felt a connection with the Rinnegan to that woman, and I am certain that it was the Gedo Mazo. Or whatever was inside of it. Obito nodded. Whatever happened with the Gedo Mazo when it went into the boy, I can safely conclude that he somehow merged with the Gedo Mazo afterwards. It may not be a stretch that the boy is the Gedo Mazo now. The silence around the table was deafening as all of the Akatsuki thought about this. Except for Deidara, he was thinking about blowing up Sasori for art purposes. Pain looked back towards his spiral-masked partner. Is there anything else, Toby? 2 things. Toby nods. The first thing is that my spy says that Konoha is inviting the leaders and Jinchuriki to the next Chunin exams as a way for the villages to display their power. No village would ever put an open invitation out for every major power to bring their own Jinchuriki into a village. It's like asking for Konoha to be destroyed. I suspect that this Otsutsuki boy wants the Biju still and Konoha is moving heaven and earth to give it to him. Pain puts a hand on the table and stays silent for a second before responding. You think the Gedo Mazo still wants the Biju? If he is the sentient Gedo Mazo, can he be reasoned with? If so, our plans may not have to change. I do think that Otsutsuki would want the other Biju. With how hungry it was when it went after the Nine Tails, it would be a safe assumption that its craving for more would be quite high. Word among the Anbu en route was that Naruto was willing to grant Danzo Shimura a favor in exchange for his right arm. I wouldn't believe that a boy would be able to grant a wish if he wasn't the Gedo Mazo. We may be able to earn a favor from him if we bring him Jinchuriki that wouldn't be able or willing to go to Konoha. The favor would give us a better relationship, but having the favor itself could be invaluable depending on what the limits are. Toby concluded. Kakuzu sighed. So business as usual anyways. We just dropped the Jinchuriki off somewhere else. Do you think he would pay us? Sasori then waved a hand. My information network says he is the heir apparent of the Hyuga clan, so I think that could be a strong possibility. Pain then nodded his head. Then we will approach him without hostility at first to discuss this before the Chunin exams. If this works, then the plan doesn't change. Toby, what is the second thing? Stress was heard audibly through Toby as he sighed. As soon as Zetsu heard information on Naruto Otsutsuki, he vanished without a trace. I don't think he would betray us and I hope he is just doing a deeper investigation, but it is something to note. Pain's eyes narrowed. Does he have any connection that we don't know about this? Toby remained unfazed. He will not divert from the mission, that I can assure you. He declared while avoiding the question. Pain continued to stare at him. He then turned to address the rest of the group. Itachi and Kisame, you are going to be responsible for the 9 tails and in turn, Naruto. I want Kisame taking the lead however, and if Naruto isn't hostile, you can show yourself Itachi. You have fresh ties to Konoha so even if he is young, he will not have forgotten the massacre you did. Understood. Both Itachi nodded their heads and left while Pain continued. The rest of you, focus on finding Jinchuriki not associated with the 5 villages. After they are found, we will find out whether we can take them willingly or not and go from there. The rest nod and head out of the room, leaving Pain and Conan. Pain closes his eyes before addressing his friend. Keep an eye on Toby and let me know if Zetsu comes around, Conan. Conan then nodded and vanished in a flurry of paper, leaving Pain alone to think. I've tried to call the Gedo several times and get severe headaches and nosebleeds. I don't even know if that Otsutsuki boy is even killable, so placating him is the only way. I can't let them know that though. Pain continued to think of a way to bring Naruto to his side to help fulfill his wishes to his dear friends. By any means. Back in Konoha. Naruto Otsutsuki was currently going through the caged bird seal notes in the living room of the main branch house, now just called the main house. He felt the need to make some headway on understanding the seal work for this, since he was given official permission to work on it now. Just absorb a caged bird seal, my dear son. You'll comprehend it better than doing all that reading. Kaguya was at her most bored when Naruto just sat there reading. You're just saying that because you want to tease me when I'm with Hinaheim. Naruto chuckled as he called out his mother. I have an appointment today soon, though. I can only do this for so long anyways, my brain will melt going through these disorganized notes. Kaguya chuckled. Indeed, that old man is paying with an arm for his village. Fufufu, truly a patriotic human. Naruto also laughed as a male Hyuga attendant knocked and entered the room. Naruto-sama, a representative of Danzo Shimura is here for you. Please do be careful, we do not trust him. Naruto gave a disarming smile to the former branch member. Do not worry, if he follows through, I promise it will help us out in the short and long run. The Hyuga attendant still slightly grumbled but nodded. Still, keep an eye on things. The former branch house stands behind you and will come at your call if things become too much to handle. We will never forget your promise to us and will gladly die for you. Naruto stood up to follow the attendant out. I appreciate your loyalty, but you should know by now that my intentions are to save you from a fate of doing such a thing, seal or not. The attendant slightly smiled as they approached the front of the compound. When they got there, a person in a blank Anbu mask and a black cloak was waiting by the entrance. Upon seeing Naruto, they simply bowed, turned around, and then started walking. Naruto chuckled and simply followed to the attendant's dismay. Tell Hinata and Hiyashi-san I'll be back a little later. Naruto then waved back to the attendant. Of course Naruto-sama. -15 minutes later. After a walk through a couple alleys, a few hidden passages, and several dim hallways, Naruto now found himself in a large circular room. A massive tree was planted in the middle, with doorways and hallways leading in all different directions. Root agents could be seen jumping from hallway to hallway, but as soon as a cane was heard, all of the agents immediately stopped what they were doing. They all turned and then started appearing on all the branches of the tree. Naruto watched the spectacle, eventually seeing all of the root agents in the tree like a flock of black birds. Truly an amazing display of discipline and might. I don't know why the forces above don't replicate this. I may be new to being a ninja, but this is what I assume is actually keeping Konoha safe. Naruto was being completely honest. Not even Kaguya's memories showed him something so well synchronized. Danzo was now in front Naruto, just a few paces away. I'll be honest as well, I wasn't expecting to hear that from one so young. You truly are more than meets the eye. If I didn't watch you swear your family to the village, you would have been on a very dangerous list. Naruto simply bowed. How am I supposed to be a potential protector if I couldn't see the village for what it was? I've been able to see this room from the outside since I was 4 and started gathering chakra. As much as I would like to continue pleasantries, Shimura-san, I'm sure you have questions for me. As long as you follow through with your side of our deal, you can ask whatever you like without worry. As you are aware, we are allies and ignorance between allies can lead to the downfall of a nation. Danzo made a calculating look, but then waved his hand. A root agent flickered by and handed Danzo a folder, and flickered back to the tree. This is your file, everything we've gathered on you. Confirm its accuracy if you will. Naruto stepped forward and took the file, opened it, and began to read. My Byakugan range right now is 10 kilometers in detail, 15 kilometers in accurate chakra sensing, as in I know exactly who it is if I'm aware of their particular signature. I also have no Kekkei Genkei. I am a source, so I have Kekkei Mora. I also have one kill, the Kumo representative that came for peace talks, but was actually trying to kidnap myself and Hinata Hyuga when we were younger. Naruto then flipped a couple pages. My blood type is not A, that is false information. Naruto snaps off a piece of his hair and pricks his finger. After squeezing his finger, a cyan-colored liquid glowing slightly silver dropped onto the floor, disintegrating on impact. My blood is heavily saturated in celestial chakra, so it could be considered its own type at this point. You can put type C as this would discourage people from thinking they could transfer blood and accidentally kill themselves. Naruto then flipped another page. I directly shape chakra. As long as I absorb a chakra nature type, I can use it. It's easier for me to directly shape it without hand seals as the hand seals you use doesn't work well on celestial chakra. Those would be the changes and additions of what you have here. Everything else is fairly accurate. You can even keep me in here as the Ten Tails Jinchuriki if that makes organization for you easier. Danzo stayed quiet as he took the file back. You are too trusting. What would you do if I sold this information to the enemy? Naruto gave a shit-eating grin. Your buyers would be ecstatic and would buy it for a ridiculous price. They would then try and harvest celestial chakra, explode, and die, giving us less enemies. Kaguya laughed in his mindscape. So you are saying you don't mind this information getting out because it would be meaningless? Danzo lifted his visible eyebrow and then slightly smirked. I may take you up on this offer. Naruto simply waved it off while Danzo asked another question. You've used the term celestial chakra, what is this? Naruto thought for a good second on how to properly describe it. There is chakra of the body, something that everyone has and uses to execute ninjutsu and chakra exercises. This is stored in the body in your chakra pool and naturally replenishes with rest and with time. There is nature chakra that sages and summoning animals use that is gathered from the planet. This is mixed into the body chakra in a balanced ratio and can boost the physical attributes of the body. For humans, this cannot be stored naturally in the chakra pool and must be pulled during or right before use. Celestial chakra is pulled from, Naruto pointed up, everything else in the universe. It is the building block of all things and is something that can be shaped easily. It is poison when concentrated for humans as they have chakra coils that literally can't fathom it. I have been gathering it for 8 years now and it generates at a profound rate, so my chakra pool has leaked into my body and bloodstream, saturating my body in it. Danzo thought for a second. Can the human body be slowly introduced to it? Naruto shrugged. I don't have any memories from my mother of that working, and I haven't personally tried. Honestly, I'd like my fiancé to be able to do it, but I'm not willing to sacrifice my future wife as an experiment. So if I gave you someone to experiment with it, would you do it? Danzo said quickly. Shimura-san, I can tell from your agents that they would be willing to die to make you happy, but they are still leaf shinobi. I won't kill the people I've sworn my family name to for an experiment. Naruto then thought for a second. If you give me someone or I acquire someone not from Konoha that would be willing to become a subordinate of mine, I'd allow it. They would need pretty flexible chakra coils, so maybe a Jinchuriki. I'd be able to completely take their biju without them dying if I could incorporate celestial chakra into their body. Naruto actually started considering this after some thought and would talk to Kaguya later. Danzo filed that away as a bargaining chip. If he could somehow add in a Jinchuriki, it may open up the door to getting more celestial chakra users for Konoha. It would also check off a biju under their agreement with the Otsutsuki. I know what my favor will be, I will let you know when the time is right. I'll need more answers, but we will talk more at a later time. Do what you came to do. Danzo finally spoke the words Naruto was waiting for with firm resolve. The young Otsutsuki then felt the eyes of every single root agent swerve from Danzo to himself. Internally, Naruto shook since it was his first time getting looked at like that by so many people. He closed his eyes and then opened them with his own resolve. I'm honestly astonished you didn't take it off your arm on your own. You really wish to have me cause you harm in front of your private army. Naruto then looked up at the tree and then back at Danzo. Indeed, you must not show me and my agents your resolve now. It is rare, but I am taking a large risk in handing you an olive branch by showing you my base. You've displayed power, but I must know if you have the resolve to get your hands dirty. A simple and fair test, my son. Unnecessary as you have already prepared to do that very thing since the council meeting, fufufu. Kaguya quipped in Naruto's mindscape, causing him to cover his mouth and chuckle. Very well, Danzo Shimura. I must tell you once again, I have access to my mother's memories. They are from her perspective and in turn, by remembering them, it is like I have done many great deeds and atrocities with my own hands. You'll have to forgive me as my morals and resolve were severely affected. Naruto then held a hand up towards the tree. Please have a root agent aim a fire jutsu at me so I can cauterize your wound. Danzo looked up at the tree and nodded in response. An agent then proceeded to roll through hand signs and propelled a fireball towards Naruto. As it made its way towards his open hand, the fireball began to shrink and get siphoned into his hand. Closing his eyes, the boy began to flex his hand and felt the chakra nature to feel it. He then opened his eyes and walked towards Danzo with an open hand glowing red with a silver outline and grabbed just above Danzo's now unsealed and exposed right arm above the elbow. Suddenly, Danzo winced as the heat of Naruto's hand melted directly into his arm, going through it like a hot blade through butter. Naruto then used his other hand to grab Danzo's wrist and pulled off his arm while cauterizing the pull point with his other hand. Danzo's now detached arm with Sharingan started to get absorbed by Naruto until it became shriveled beyond recognition. Naruto stepped away and let Danzo hold his now stumped arm. Naruto flexed his hand and spoke. I left the rest of the arm for the next part. Flexing his chakra, it started to glow green and silver. Suddenly, small flowers and plants started to come through the cracks in the concrete where the Otsutsuki prince was standing. He then walked forward and put his hand on Danzo's chest, over where Naruto felt the first Hokage's face. He then forced Mokuden chakra and nature energy into Danzo, turning the face and chest to wood and watched it spread down Danzo's stump and form a new wooden hand. I got rid of that silly face on your chest. This is living wood and will be symbiotic to your body. It will move to your command and allow Mokuden use, the same as your old arm. No need to wear bandages over it anymore, unless you enjoy the deception, as I'm sure you do. Danzo's pained face receded and he flexed his new wooden arm and smiled as he felt the power in the arm. This is much stronger than the Hashirama cells. Indeed, because this wood actually was grown out of you. It was not a botched experiment like that one. Naruto pointed at the shriveled mess on the floor. Your end is now paid, inform me of your favor when the time is right. I'm sure you have your schemes, and I will not interfere as long as there are no lives lost in Konoha. Danzo nodded. Indeed, you will know. Escort our esteemed guest out of Root HQ. 2 Root agents flickered in front of Naruto to bring him out of the base, leaving Danzo alone with the rest of Root. Stop observing Otsutsuki for a while. He has earned some trust, more than Hiruzen at least. He will not interfere in our plans, so begin poaching Jinchuriki. Takigakure has an uncontrollable Jinchuriki that they would gladly sell, so gather dirt on the leaders so we can procure their weapon. The Hokage will not stop us anymore if it is for Otsutsuki. All of the Root agents flickered away, leaving Danzo to chuckle to himself. The time for Konoha to be at the summit is soon. All the villages will break under the weight of the tree. Konoha streets. That man is a strange character. I need to detox from that whole experience. Naruto's face contorted like he just ate something bad. He is a mortal of necessary evil. He would most likely destroy the village and claim it would make the village stronger through adversity. Keep an eye on him, Kaguya warned. Indeed, even his positive emotions were wrapped in negativity. He is truly warped. I fully expected him to attack me. Instead, I'm pretty sure he is about to rabidly hunt some poor Jinchuriki. Fufufu, it just expedites things along. If you like the Jinchuriki, they could prove to be an ally. Teaching celestial chakra to a former Jinchuriki should be much easier than you told Danzo. Naruto hummed in agreement. Yes, but he doesn't need to know that. It seems you are as much of a schemer as you made Danzo out to be. Kaguya then laughed and agreed with Naruto's decision. Well, let's enjoy the calm before the storm. -6 days later, Academy classroom. Once everyone took a seat, Haruka clapped his hand to get everyone's attention. Good morning, everyone. I'm so proud of you all and I look forward to your splendid careers as ninja. I will now give you your team assignments. All the children cheered and Hinata turned to Naruto with a cheeky smile. I have a feeling they won't put us on the same team since we can fulfill the same roles on a team, but just know you aren't getting rid of me. Naruto smiled and gave Hinata a kiss. I would never do that, Hina-hime, you know better than that. Can y'all knock that shit off? Nobody wants to see that. Kiba snapped. Troublesome. That's not what your nosebleed says. Naruto is probably still a girl in your perverted fantasies. Shikamaru then smirked as he looked at a blushing Kiba. Shut up. Fuck you, man. Kiba growled back and looked away so no one could see his face. Team 7 will be Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno, and Naruto Otsutsuki. Your sensei will be Kakashi Hatake. Sakura cheered loudly only to get a book thrown at the back of her head. She went to turn around to shout, but saw a glaring and growling Hinata. Keep your flat chest away from my fiancé while you're on the same team. Or, I will end you. Naruto then put a placating hand on Hinata. Relax Hina-hime, Iruka-sensei isn't finished. Hinata then proceeded to cuddle and melt into Naruto as Iruka felt a bead of sweat drop down his face. Okay, teammate will be Shino Aburame, Hinata Hyuga, and Kiba Inuzuka. Your sensei will be Kurenai Yuhi. Shino nodded towards Hinata while Kiba fell to the ground in exasperation. I have a mute and a psycho to deal with. Why does Kami hate me? Everyone laughed at the poor dog boy. Team 9 is still in rotation from last year, so Team 10 will be Ino Yamanaka, Choji Akamaiki, and Shikamaru Nara. Your sensei will be Asuma Sarutobi. Naruto turned and looked at Shikamaru. It looks like they insist on another generation of Ina Shikacho. Shikamaru just put his head down on the table. I know. What a drag. I was hoping to get you as a teammate so I wouldn't have to do anything. Naruto laughed, drawing the eyes of everyone. Too bad, you're gonna have to use that humongous brain of yours. Just make strategies so you don't have to move too much. Shikamaru looked up at Naruto. I don't want to hear that from you. You're just as smart. I coulda left the strategies to you too. The Otsutsuki then got a shit-eating grin. I wouldn't have done it even if you asked. Even now, I'm gonna make Sakura do strategies since her brain her only redeeming attribute when it isn't filled with Sasuke. Hey, what the hell Naruto? Sakura looked at him in disbelief and looked at Sasuke for support. The only thing she saw was Sasuke giving the same smirk on his face. Please tell me you don't think the same thing, Sasuke-kun. The class snickered while Iruka continued. Okay, your senseis will be here after lunch. I hope to see you become splendid ninja. After lunch. Everyone said their temporary goodbyes as their corresponding sensei came to pick their new genin, leaving Sasuke, Sakura, and Naruto all sitting together at one of the desks close to the front. It's been an hour since Hinata's team was picked up and Sakura was now visibly getting irritated. He's late. Aren't Jonin supposed to be punctual? Sakura finally had enough and snapped. Naruto looked out the window and saw a man with silver hair reading a book on the next building over. He simply waved and went back to reading. Naruto gained a tick mark, but took a deep breath. Patience is something ninjas should have too. This may very well be a test. Calm down before your pink hair turns red from anger, Sakura. Her eyes went wide thinking about how that could very well be true and she sighed. Okay, that makes sense. Hey, Naruto, were you being serious about my brain? Being my only redeeming attribute? She turned to look at Naruto with a slightly sad look. Naruto looked at Sakura with a calculating look before asking her back a question. What do you consider a good trait you have in regards to being a ninja? I will then tell you why as you list points. Sakura thought for a second. I got the highest grades in class. Okay, that's your brain, so you agreed with me. Sakura scowled, but kept thinking. I have good chakra control. Which is great, but do you use medical jutsu? No offense, but you don't have enough chakra to use genjutsu efficiently. Even if you did, Sasuke has the Sharingan, so he would naturally fill that role on the team. Sakura's face glowed from the praise Sasuke received. That's because Sasuke is amazing. Sasuke buried his face into his arms and Naruto shook his head disapprovingly. And that is the greatest issue you have. You look at Sasuke as a god. Your infatuation with the poor guy is actually pushing him away from you. You take praise he receives and somehow act selfish as if you were his mother and you raised him. You want to fix him and have him have his way with you. You have never done anything for Sasuke. I know I and Sasuke bicker, but that is because I see him as someone worthy of respect. His family was massacred by his own brother and he wants to wear the title of Avenger. To get stronger to redeem his family. Sasuke then looked up and gave Naruto a look of acknowledgement before finally speaking. That's right. The asshole is right. You and your pack of girls follow me around, annoying me and never giving me a moment of silence. I know I can spar with Naruto to get stronger and I know he is dependable. You, Sakura, are weak. You starve yourself and only care about your looks. If you want to be a girl instead of a ninja, go home and play with dolls and leave me alone. I will never acknowledge someone that only wants me to save them. You will get me killed before I can ever find my brother trying to save you. Naruto nodded sagely as Sakura looked down, tears in her eyes. I just want to be there for you and show you that someone cares for you. And Naruto, Sakura started to look angry. How can you say I'm a fangirl when Hinata does the same thing? You hypocrite. Naruto shook his head and shrugged off her anger. Hinata has trained with me almost every day of our lives. She loves me, but understands that she must be strong to stay by my side. She has earned the right to act how she wants because she deserves it. She is not underweight from starving herself, her taijutsu is top-notch for our age group, she studies and only came second to you in test scores because she is learning how to be a clan head with me because she wants to be able to help me. All of this without ever asking for anything in return. That makes me love her and it makes me willing to do anything for her. She gives me everything, leaving herself with nothing. And because she has nothing left, I will in turn give her everything too. I will spoil her rotten. I am not a hypocrite because she is fundamentally different from you. You demand everything from Sasuke, and that is why you will gain nothing. Well spoken, my son. You are truly magnificent. Kaguya spoke from her chair in his mindscape, her cheeks a healthy red as she looked at her son with glazed eyes. Give, do not take, Sakura. That is how this team, your relationships, and your life should be. When someone takes something from you, they will stop at nothing to get it back. When you give, it gives you the opportunity to receive. I am not trying to scold you, Sakura. I just want you to see things from your teammates' perspective. My life will be in your hands and yours and mine, like a family. While we are on this team, you are my sister, and as your brother, I will do what I need to help my sister see what she is doing. Naruto then said calmly, do you understand? The emotions that raced across Sakura's face during Naruto's face flicked between anger, shock, worry, shame, and now finally sadness. She slowly nodded. Naruto walked up to her and gave her a hug, surprising Sakura. What are you doing? Naruto quickly interrupted. Shish, you know I don't mean it that way. As I said, we are family right now. I'm sorry for saying all of that all of a sudden. I hope we can get along and grow. Sasuke looked at the whole situation unfolding with a complicated expression. He understood just as well as Sakura what was happening, but the suddenness and rawness of the situation, especially Naruto calling himself their family, threw him for a loop. He looked at the table in silent reflection. Sakura sniffed a little, hesitated for a second, but finally reciprocated the hug. Thank you, Naruto. I don't hate you and I'm sorry for yelling. I'll think about what you said. Naruto nodded when the door opened to reveal a tall Jonin with spiky gray hair and his headband pulled down over his eye. A mask was pulled up to his nose, making it so only one eye was visible. I take it you are Team 7. My name is Kakashi Hatake, your Jonin sensei. My first impression of you. I mean I'm proud you worked out your differences, but you are too emotional. Sakura slowly let go of Naruto and looked at Kakashi with a puffy-eyed glare that had a lack of heat. Quote ellipsis. You're late. Huh, Kakashi scratched his head. I don't feel late, are you sure? Meet me on the roof in 5 minutes so we can get introductions out of the way. Kakashi then vanished in a swirl of leaves. Well, let's meet this weirdo. Naruto said looking back at his new team. They all nodded and made their way upstairs. 5 minutes later. Team 7 now sat on the roof, looking at their new sensei who was about to speak. Well, let's go ahead and do our introductions. Name, likes, dislikes, goals, ambitions, that sort of thing. Kakashi then lazily waved his hand at Sakura. You first, Pinky. Sakura thought for a while. My name is Sakura Haruno. I like dumplings and my family I guess. She then looked at Naruto and smiled a little. I love Sasuke though. I dislike things that get in the way of my goals and spicy food. And, I have to think about my goals and ambitions now, but I know I want to be a strong enough ninja to support Sasuke now. Naruto smiled and nodded, and even Sasuke let it go without snorting at her. Kakashi looked at her for a second. That talk Naruto gave her is bringing her in the right direction. Still likes Sasuke too much, but it won't be as blind as before. Okay, thank you, Sakura. You're up next, Broody. Naruto chuckled and got a stink eye from Sasuke. My name is Sasuke Uchiha. I don't like a lot of things and I dislike even more things. My goals. No, my ambition is to avenge my family and revive my clan. Actually I guess you can say I like training for that, now that I think about it. Kakashi stared at Sasuke and thought. Still focused on revenge. I was hoping Naruto would help curb that, but it actually looks like Naruto respects it from what he said earlier. If Itachi appears, he could be a flight risk, but I'll keep an eye on it. Alright, thank you for that riveting speech, Sasuke. You're finally up, princess. Everyone else snickered at the name, but Naruto gave Kakashi a beautiful smile, making his team slightly blush. If you ever call me that again, the Hyuga and I will make sure to tie you naked to the door of the Hokage Tower. Since they listened to their princess. Understood, sensei. Kakashi had a bead of sweat rolling next to his only visible eye. Ahaha, understood. Now please introduce yourself. Naruto nodded. My name is Naruto Otsutsuki. I like training in my precious people. I have a fiancé that I love, so please don't send me on any seduction missions. Kakashi gained more sweat drops. I also am aware of how I look and actually don't have any issues with jokes, I just have an image to maintain. Clans and all that, understandable. Anyways, my goal is to see my mom in person. My ambitions are to crush anything that threatens mine or Konoha's way of life. Oh my sweet baby boy, don't worry. It won't be too long, foo. Then you can spend all the time you want with me. Kaguya's statement made Naruto slightly blush, but he made it fade before it was too noticeable. Kakashi then looked at Naruto for a little longer. A lot more reasonable than I thought. The Hokage filled me in on his announcement, so his ambition makes sense, it's just jarring to hear it so matter-of-factly like it's swatting a fly. Suddenly Naruto spoke up again. Don't worry either. I plan to let Sasuke be the frontliner and be a ranged fighter or support if he wants to tag team. I'm a flexible piece. I also can use Byakugan for prolonged periods of time and can act as a sensor on missions. I'm here as a support, not for clout or fame. Kakashi silently released a breath. Okay, he won't stunt their growth either. Sounds like you know your role then, that's good. Now it's time to tell you about our first mission. It's actually your real graduation test. Too many of you kids graduated, so we need to thin out the weaker ones. If you fail, you'll be dragging yourself back to the academy. Tomorrow you are going to meet me at training ground 3 at 7 in the morning. Don't eat either, or you'll throw up all over my beautiful grass. Kakashi then saluted and flickered away before anyone could ask any questions. We could fail and go back to the academy. Then what was the graduation test for? Sakura looked worried beyond belief. Naruto smiled and looked at his new teammates. We'll be fine, don't worry. Why don't you all come over for dinner and we can plan ahead of time? I have a small training area too where we can become familiar with each other's fighting styles. Sasuke looked at Naruto, contemplating his words. You think teamwork is going to be the point of the test, don't you? Sakura looked at Naruto with wide eyes. Indeed, I think it is to weed out those who have egos that refuse to work together. If you think about it, the academy focused on individual success, but ninja do not perform solo. They fight in 4-man cells. Teamwork is the baseline for this test to show if we can put our personalities aside to perform well as a team. That is at least my assumption. Naruto put his fist under his chin in thought to emphasize. You want us to train together too? Sakura looked at Naruto in understanding. Yes, feel each other out, would be the term I think is appropriate. My family makes healthy food, so no dieting nonsense either, Sakura. If you need a meal plan, the Hyuga will help. The same offer is available to you too, Sasuke. I know you live alone, and having prepared meals for you can allow you to have more training time. Naruto worded the offer to benefit Sasuke because he knew he would decline any other way. Sasuke looked in thought, but nodded his head. Sure, but only because it would allow me to train more. When do you want us to head over, Naruto? Sakura asked. Naruto closed his eyes and then opened them to look at her. Immediately, the more time to plan we have, the better. Would you like us to escort you home to ask your parents and get a spare pair of clothes in case you end up sweaty? Sakura smiled and nodded. Thank you, Naruto-kun. Of course, let's get to business. Chapter 6, Bell Test and Decisions. Thank you for waiting, I truly appreciate it. Been a little bit I know, but here is another chapter for you. You get some action, some setups, and you'll be happy to know I have up to the ending plotted for this. The chapter out of this will be the wave mission, but with a twist. Have fun with me and I hope you enjoy the story. In the meantime, the rest of the note will be about the future. I intend to have this story specifically go into another story that will be an Elden Ring or different Dark Souls Bloodborne crossover. That will have no bearing in this story though, so don't worry if that's not your thing. I just woke up after listening to a bunch of fanfics and thought how that universe would change. I've read so many Naruto Elden Ring crossovers, shout out Neon Zangetsu for holding it down, but shame on you for abandoning so many at the same time, and it is always Naruto reborn as someone else, doing shenanigans, but I feel like those stories don't change as much as they should. Elden Ring FF rant incoming. You telling me Naruto, the Talk no Jutsu master, wouldn't be able to convince Rani to not start the shattering? Please, out of all the wild crap in that world, that should be the one thing Naruto is extremely well versed in stopping. Aside from that, too many of them insert Naruto as is, no change to his past or origins, and then make him act like someone else. The guy is easily provocable, disrespectful to a fault, and a little too dense. But I digress. If that's something you want to talk about to sway me otherwise, you are more than welcome to PM me. I intend to change and impact that story by throwing this Naruto in there after some events and have him act as an outer god, threatening everything on a grand scale. I don't know who I want him to interact with though yet, as it is still in the early plans. Should it be Rinola? She and her kin all worship the moon, so having a, basically, moon outer god would be pretty attractive. Or should it be one of the Empyreans, or even Marika herself? Oh, that would piss of the Greater Will, or in the case of Melania, it would be a fat slap into the rot in the Greater Will. Hell, Rani would be a good option too, who better to help her break her fate than the one who most known for it. Please let me know if this interests you. It won't be for a bit as I need to finish this story first, but something I'd like some feedback to if it interests you or not. End of rant. Ria out. You know, when you said Kakashi-sensei was going to show up late, I was really hoping you would be wrong. Sakura let out a disappointed sigh after speaking. When they were planning out how to perform well for their sensei's test, not only did they scout out Training Ground 3, but also gained some information about Kakashi from the Hyuga Jonin. They were told that Kakashi is perpetually late to anything if a time is involved. Sakura agreed with the others that it would give their new team the time to make traps and make some more plans in the daytime. It did make her nervous that the plan was completely reliant on the fact that Kakashi would be late, but it now seems she had nothing to worry about. Naruto then looked at her sad and looked into the forestry next to their meeting point. Yeah, I don't know how to feel about perpetual lateness, but at least if this proves to be consistent, we can either use this downtime to either train or get some personal time at least. Sakura thought about it, still a little peeved that Kakashi was late, but couldn't help but only see positives with that. Okay, so are we going to set everything up? Do you think we will have enough time? Naruto then activated his Byakugan and looked around before turning it off again. Yeah, we shouldn't have any issues. He is dealing with something, it looks like he's dragging someone that keeps pointing at his feet. Naruto then pulled 2 packages out of somewhere, and threw them to both Sakura and Sakura. He then sat down cross-legged and pulled one out for himself, opened it to reveal food, and started eating. One hand holding chopsticks while the other covered his mouth. Is that a noble thing? Sakura thought. Sakura then looked at her package. Wait, I thought Kakashi-sensei said not to eat. What if we throw up or get in trouble? Naruto then finished his bite and waved a hand towards her package. Please eat, you won't throw up in front of your beloved since it isn't much to eat and it will digest before sensei gets here. Unless you inhale food like a beast and are afraid your real appetite will scare off Sasuke. Naruto then got a smile on his face. Oh dear, actually don't eat. Maybe that's why you said you were dieting, since you didn't want to have anyone watching you, since instead of eating, you consume. Sakura's face lit up red with anger and embarrassment. You saw me eat last night, you asshole. That's not why I was dieting and you know it. Grr, I'll eat and then I'm gonna kick your ass. Sakura then ripped open her wrapped meal, sat down in a huff, and started to eat while aggressively glaring at Naruto. Please don't look at me so passionately, I'm not interested in mistresses as I'm sure my fiancé would kill them. Naruto smirked. Sakura's food caught in her throat and she started hacking a cough and tried to regain her breath. What? What the hell, Naruto? I'm not interested in you like that. I wasn't looking at you passionately. Naruto just shrugged and kept eating, which seemed to infuriate her even more. Sakura looked over to Sasuke, just to see him with a smirk while he was eating. Oh Kami, not Sasuke too. Is he just going to let me get bullied with that cute smile on his face? Sakura sank her shoulders and just kept eating in the end. After everyone finished with their meal, everyone stood up and looked at Naruto. Okay, as I said before. Sakura, once this mission starts, you will take over operations and triggering traps. Sasuke, you do what you do best and put pressure on Kakashi to get him into the forest. I am here for support. I know this plan was my idea this time around, but that is only because I am more familiar with your fighting styles compared to you knowing mine. Training will fix that, but for now, let's get started. Everyone nodded and darted into the forest. A couple hours later, Kakashi finally arrived and looked around to see his 3 students under the tree in the middle of the clearing. Sasuke was leaned against the tree while Naruto was pushing Sakura on a swing. When the hell did a swing get here? When he made it into the clearing, everyone's attention immediately shifted to Kakashi, unsettling him slightly. Okay, did they already know I was here? Ah, Naruto has the Byakugan, so he probably knew and told everyone. That's good that they are staying aware, I guess. Not creepy at all. Sorry I was late, guys. I was on my way here when I stepped on my shoelaces. I went to tie my shoes, but halfway through, I realized I was wearing sandals. I went to go buy some shoes because of that, but then the shoe salesman, Kishimoto, told me that he likes toes and all ninjas should just wear sandals so he can look at toes all day. I then escorted him to the hospital for a mental evaluation, but he kept yelling about how the ninja wouldn't exist without him. Kakashi then looked at his students with a sweat drop on each of their face. Someone with a toe fetish said we wouldn't exist without him. Sasuke deadpanned. Kakashi let out a deep sigh. Yeah, anyways, let's get on with it. Today's test. Kakashi then reached into his back pocket and pulled out 2 bells, is the bell test. You 3 will try and take these 2 bells from me. The 2 who take these bells from me before time runs out will be able to eat lunch and continue on to be official genin of Team 7. Naruto's eyes narrowed, but Sakura was the one to speak up first. 2 bells sensei. What will happen to the person who doesn't get a bell? Kakashi gave them an eye smile. Well now, isn't that something to think about? Maybe they won't pass. Better try your hardest then, shouldn't you, Sakura? I strongly urge you to come at me with the intention to kill, otherwise, you all will be going home. Kakashi then pulled out a timer, wound it up, and sat it on a rock. Your time starts now. As soon as he said, now, Naruto jumped back several meters, while Sakura ran over and stood at the edge of the forestation surrounding the clearing and small lake. Sasuke immediately dropped into a small crouch to reduce his silhouette and started going through hand signs in front of Kakashi, who only frowned. Do you really think an enemy would let you go through hand signs and just stand still? He reached to grab Sasuke's hands, but moved his hand away when he caught movement. A silver needle came flying through the area where his hand was and planted itself into the tree behind Kakashi. That was quick. What was that? Kakashi looked past Sasuke for a second and saw Naruto standing there with his hair down and a barely noticeable smile on his face. Why is his hair down? Was that a hair he just threw? It's like Jiraiya's needle Jizo, but it can be used as a projectile. Interesting. Naruto is sliding into a support role a little too well. Sasuke then finished his hand signs and immediately unleashed a point-blank fireball. To avoid, Kakashi jumped directly up and into the tree only to hear a sizzling noise. When he looked to the right, he saw several paper bombs plastered onto the bark of the tree. Suddenly he heard a kai from the kunoichi in the back and widened his eyes. Oh she. Boom. The entire top of the tree lit up like an explosive candle when a large log on fire went flying off and landed in the small lake. Substitution, everyone. He's moving into the forest. Naruto called out and looked directly at Kakashi, making brief eye contact as he looked back while running. Shit, I know I said come at me with the intent to kill, but what kind of teamwork was that? Maybe I should have come early if I knew they would try and booby trap the meeting area. Kakashi finally made it to the middle of the small forest of Training Ground 3. Now let's see how they do in the forest. They should know where I am already with the Byakugan, but why aren't they pursuing me? Kakashi then started to grow suspicious. He looked around feeling extremely uncomfortable. When did this wooded area become so dense? There are web strands everywhere too. We may get a mission to clean out the webs here then. Kakashi chuckles, good revenge for pushing me this hard this early. Wait. Kakashi then looked around again. Suddenly dense forest, webs. Kakashi then squinted his eyes to look at the web strands. He started to notice how the strands caught the light, silver in color and wrapped across the bottom and top of most of the trees. Naruto's hair Sanban was this color, but there is no way. Shit. Suddenly realization hit him. So you've noticed, huh? Kakashi then snapped his head to the voice talking to see Naruto standing on one of the web strands. Yeah, since you gave us so much time before you got here. I spent most of my time increasing the amount of trees and threading hair through the entire forest. Would you believe me that this is just 5 strands? Naruto then reached a hand to his side to show where 5 strands were tied and overlapped. Naruto then closed his eyes and then looked back down at Kakashi with a shit-eating grin. Unless you have very, very sharp chakra metal, I don't think you could cut it. That and you've seen how sharp my hair can be since it embedded itself into that tree earlier. I think it's fair to give you a test though. Kakashi started to get an uneasy feeling as Naruto's fingertips started to glow silverish as it touched the point where all 5 hairs intersected. Suddenly, the entire web started to glow silver. It'd be in your best interest to start moving. Naruto then yawned as Kakashi slowly started to stand up, preparing to run. What the hell is he about to do? If the hair is sharp and wrapped around the whole forest patch. No, is he about to? Suddenly Kakashi's thoughts were cut off with a loud plll ling. Naruto plucked at the intersection point as if playing a harp, causing the entire forest patch to reverberate with a haunting musical note. All of the strings started to vibrate and cut through the trees like a hot knife through butter. He's pulling all of the strings towards him. If I don't move, either the strings will cut me into pieces or the trees will bury me alive. Kakashi immediately started sprinting to get out of the greenery, only to realize that smoke bombs were going off from all sides. They are making it hard to see and hard to avoid anything in this area. Clever bastards, making me use this. Kakashi then lifted up his headband to call on the power of his Sharingan to get out as soon as possible. As he started to get to the clearing, he noticed that the entire edge of the forestation was on fire. He looked through the flames and saw an evil grin on Sasuke's face. "Oh Kami, what the hell did I get myself into? Screw it, I have to keep going." Kakashi then proceeded to haul ass and sent a knee directly into Sasuke's gut and threw him hard into the lake. Finally free of that intense trap, he caught his breath and immediately looked around him in case he had to engage Sakura or Naruto. Suddenly the timer went off and Kakashi collapsed onto his butt and let out a relieved sigh. "Alright you little devils, come out. The time is up." He looked to what was a forest patch. Every tree was cut down and fire was burning the remains of what was left. "Oh, I'm gonna get in so much trouble for this." Suddenly Sakura and Naruto came walking out of the fire that seemed to move around the two and never touch them. Sasuke also came out of the lake looking irritated and like a wet dog. Suddenly his irritated look became a smirk as he walked over and high-fived his two teammates. "Why are you celebrating? Not only did you not get the bells, but you just effectively decimated half of the training ground. You can't justify it either since you lost." Kakashi looked at them with a scowl. Honestly he wasn't as mad about the forest as he sounded, it was more so the fact that he was running for his life trying to not get smashed, cut in half, or lit on fire. Sasuke then made Kakashi even more mad when he let loose an arrogant little, noise. He then raised his hand to show both bells in his hand. "You were so focused on escaping that you completely forgot about the bells. When you need me, I grabbed the bells. Then you sent me off into the lake and that helped me rip them off of you." Kakashi, who was lowering his headband, then looked up shocked. "What? Sigh. Alright, so you got the bells. What about the scorched earth tactics you used on the forest? You are still not off the hook on that." "Ah." Naruto then raised his hand. "I'll take care of that." He then walked over to the edge of the burning forest and raised his hand towards the fire. All of the fire, as if it had a life of its own, stopped burning the forest and gathered into his hand in a couple seconds only to be snuffed out into a closed hand. "In honor of the hard work you did today, Sakura. You showed us that you can truly keep up with Sasuke and I if you put your big brain to it." Naruto then flared his silver chakra around him and stood there for a second before the silver aura started to turn into a silvery green. Shocked from the absorption of fire, Kakashi and the other two genin were already slack-jawed. That only increased as all of the burnt and cut trees started to dissolve into the ground, causing the entire forest to be a massive clearing. Then trees and flowers started to erupt out of the garden. Wood even started to form around the perimeter of the newly developing forest to form an elaborately designed low gate around it. "Mokuden, you can use wood release." Kakashi stayed seated as he watched the whole thing happen. In a matter of minutes, the entire forest was now repopulated with red trees and cherry blossom trees. Naruto then turned around and gave a small smile. This entire new forest is comprised of cherry blossom trees and cherry bark oaks. To show how much you mean to our team, Sakura, this is a quite literal, Sakura forest. The trees will never lose their vibrancy since it was made with my chakra, at least for a couple years. Let this forest show you my willingness to work with you, my new sister." Kakashi looked at Sakura. She was staring at the new, Sakura forest, with awe on her face. Her face then turned bright red when she saw Naruto smiling at her. She only nodded her head and looked down, her face still in a hyper blush. "Kami, I know women like when you get them flowers, but the kid got her a whole damn forest worthy of being a world landmark." Kakashi at that point didn't think he had to worry about her fangirling over Sasuke, but it may be even worse towards Naruto. Naruto then turned to look at his other teammate. "Sasuke, I'm pretty sure you wouldn't want something like this. I appreciate you just as much, and I will help you in any way possible to help you with your goal. I feel that matters more to you than anything else at the moment." The only reply Kakashi saw was a slight nod from Sasuke. After composing himself, Kakashi took a deep breath. "Alright kiddos, you fixed the issues at least. Honestly, I was going to try and scare you about who was going to pass and fail since there were only 2 bells. I can see that from the beginning, you already had teamwork locked in. I want you to remember a phrase that I live by though. Those who abandon their mission are scum, but those who abandon their teammates are worse than scum. Always be there for each other and never forget those words, do you understand? He then looked at his new team only to see them all smile and nod. Good, now kiddos, you are officially Team 7 and from this point on, we will be training and completing missions together. I expect to see you tomorrow at 8 so we can go get a mission. Got it. Kakashi then I smiled. Naruto then slightly bowed. Understood sensei, we'll meet up at 10. Come over for breakfast at 8 if you'd like, guys. The other two nodded towards Naruto and then they all left, causing Kakashi to sweat. I guess I should have seen that coming when I'm always late. Kakashi then disappeared in a swirl of leaves to go report to the Hokage. Several minutes later, Hokage's office. Okay, so we had 6 teams in a row fail. Sigh. Please give me some good news Kakashi. The third Hokage was rubbing his temples. He understood the whole purpose of the final test for these teams was to help, thin the herd, but 6 teams. 18 potential genins all kicked back to the academy. He knew it was for their own good and these potential genin were all from civilian families, but it was still sad to hear. Team 7, 8, and 10 at least have clan heirs. There should be nothing but good news. Hiruzen then sat back in his chair and lit his pipe while looking at Kakashi. Kakashi stepped forward. Sakura blew up a tree and almost killed me if I was slower. Naruto cut down the entire section of the forest in Training Ground 3, and Sasuke then set it on fire. Kakashi spoke, causing Hiruzen to choke on smoke. I almost actually died if I didn't use my Sharingan to see through the smoke bombs, dodge razor-sharp hair wire that could have cut me in half, and dodge falling trees. Every Jonin sensei looked at Kakashi with their eyes wide and jaw slack. Kakashi continued. They also got the bells and showed amazing teamworks and terrifying tactics. I would be terrified of them if I was from another village during wartime against them. They passed. Kakashi then gave an eye smile, but suddenly opened it wide and made an, oh, noise. Also, Naruto reforested the area, so don't worry about damage to the training ground. I actually recommend everyone to visit it. The forest is beautiful and should be seen before it becomes a tourist location. I can easily see it become a place for dates and secret rendezvous. The third Hokage once again rubbed his temples again. I almost forgot Naruto was on that team and how ridiculous he was. But Mokuden, he absorbs chakra before he can use it, which means he got it from somewhere. I'll have to. No, if it was a threat, Naruto would have said something. Both Asuma and Kurenai looked at each other before Kurenai spoke. What do you mean reforested, and what do you mean it would become a tourist destination? Kakashi rubbed the back of his head and sighed. Well, he used Mokuden to reforest the whole section of the forest and made an ornate, wooden gate around the section. He wanted to honor one of his new teammates for her showing promise, getting stronger for herself, and to show that he accepts her as his new family, since that's what he calls our team. The whole section is cherry blossom trees, cherry bark oaks, and pink flowers and supposedly will stay in bloom for several years. It might as well be the most romantic area I've seen in the elemental nations. Kurenai thought for a second on the Mokuden, but knew she could ask Hinata about it later. You said, her, I'm assuming Sakura then, especially with all the cherry-style things there. Wasn't she the one that we discussed needed to break out of her obsession for the Uchiha boy? Kakashi let out another sigh. Yeah, honestly Naruto knocked her out of that a little yesterday before I met up with Team 7, but then Naruto basically gave her Kami's equivalent to a bouquet. He told her he sees her as his sister, but after the creation of this, Sakura forest, I see that obsession quickly turning to Naruto. I don't know if I should be worried about it or not yet. Kurenai nodded her head. Understandable, he meant it as a present for his sister, but honestly if someone did that for me, I'd be wearing his last name and probably be a stay-at-home wife by the end of the week. Asuma, Hiruzen, and the rest of the Jonin all stared at Kurenai. What? I know I may come off as a prude, but that's the most romantic thing I've ever heard. If he does that for a sister figure, imagine what his wife would get. Everyone nodded and Kakashi spoke up. To quote Naruto when he was talking to Sakura yesterday about his fiancé, she gives me everything, leaving herself with nothing. And because she has nothing left, I will in turn give her everything too. I will spoil her rotten. If Hinata asks for the moon, I'm pretty sure you would see it behind the Hyuga compound tomorrow. Kurenai stood there gobsmacked before looking down and rubbing her temples and started mumbling. I was born too soon. I was born too soon. Maybe I can talk to Hinata. Asuma started sweating and had a worried look on his face. Hiruzen chuckled and then drew everyone's attention again. Kurenai, before you have a mental breakdown, how were your recruits? Kurenai looked up in a daze and in deep thought. Huh, oh yeah they passed. Good kids. Shino is intelligent, Kiba is a good tracker, and Hinata is a lucky bastard I mean a good mix of both with the strength to back it up. I guess her and Naruto have been developing a flexible gentle fist style that is scary up close or mid-range. Hiruzen nodded his head with a smile. Indeed, I saw a small sample of it from Naruto during his graduation test. The style is terrifying and extremely flexible. It looks like it requires a lot of physical stamina though. Those two are going to have a lot of kids. Wait, what the hell am I thinking? I gotta lay off the Ika. PFFT, yeah right. Those two are gonna have a lot of kids, the boy and his mom have, rabbit, in their title. Kurenai bowed. Indeed. Permission to leave so I can eat ice cream and think about my life. The third Hokage sweat dropped but nodded anyway. Granted I suppose. Asuma, report about your team please. Asuma scratched the back of his head to regain his train of thought. Yeah, Team 10 has passed. The kids are alright. Shikamaru is pretty lazy, Ino is obsessed with looks, and Choji is too nice, but when it comes down to being in action, they know how to focus and have the potential to be great ninja. Asuma smiled as he said the last part. Hiruzen smiled at his son. Great to hear. We failed 18 students today, but it looks like we have 9 solid genin ready to bear the will of fire. Please guide our future to be great ninja and kunoichi. The group let out a, yes Hokage-sama. And all turned to go, leaving the third Hokage to himself. He then lit his pipe again and turned to look out over his village. It seems this is really the pivot point for Konoha. What a time to be alive. Hyuga compound. Hinata was currently on the prowl for her fiancé after Kurenai released them for the day. She saw the big smoke plume from overtraining ground 3 and watched the end of Kakashi-sensei's exam. She saw the Uchiha wave the bells with a smirk on his face and Naruto reforesting the training ground. She knew that he would based off of the discussion Team 7 had in the Hyuga compound last night. Naruto even told her in private about his appreciation he'd show his new teammates' family. Hinata thought it was sweet, honestly. He even made sure, if she was reading his lips right, that he was made that forest for his new sister. That should have been worse than the friend zone, so why the fuck was this bitch blushing and staring at her man with love in her eyes? Didn't she have a she-boner for Sasuke? Of course Naruto is better than him in every way, but didn't she switch teams too quickly? Hinata tried to make sense of this and was getting more mad thinking about it. She had no idea that Naruto showed her more care and comfort than anyone, even her parents, had given her the day prior. The only thing she knew was Naruto telling her she was going to work on being a kunoichi instead of a damsel in distress. Suddenly, something clicked in Hinata's head. She started thinking on her own without the stupid thoughts of the Uchiha boy. Of course she'd gravitate to my man. That bitch. She better watch herself or there will be a shortage of pink hair in the world. Turning away from the team, she decided to wait for Naruto back at the compound. On the way home. That was quite the spectacle, my son. It was definitely worthy of an action of you, but I find it reckless to sprout a forest. The young rabbit emissary clicked his tongue and rubbed his neck. True, in hindsight, it may not have been the smartest choice. I don't regret my choice though. I may need to do even more grandiose things if it means showing the power difference between the Otsutsuki and the normal people. Kaguya stayed quiet a second. That is an angle I didn't consider. The sooner the common rabble learn that the foe we aim to defeat is not a group that should be taken lightly, the better. Kaguya shifted her legs in her chair in Naruto's mindscape. Let's just hope it doesn't draw the attention of one such foe too early. Naruto mentally nodded. Suddenly something felt odd and the young Otsutsuki turned into an alley. He stopped and waited. Shortly after, a rude Anbu appeared in front of Naruto, kneeling. Otsutsuki-san, Danzo-sama has called in a favor with an ally in Tokigakure and will acquire one of your targets. He would like to verify the condition you require them to be in. So he wants to know how alive I need them. Danzo might be too effective for his own good. Naruto mentally rubbed a hand across his face in exasperation, but remained stoic on the surface. Please keep them in good shape, but tell Danzo to keep them amicable to us. It wouldn't serve us well to have a target to be incooperative in the middle of town. Fufufu, having a raging Biju subdued in the middle of Konoha would be a rather grand display though. A guaranteed method for your goal of the Otsutsuki being taken seriously. The rabbit goddess chimed in. Her son disagreed. True, but we ask to be a secret from civilians. We need the Biju, and we want to see if they can harness celestial chakra. Worst case scenario, hopefully, is that they are unable to use it. Actually exploding would be, but if their body can adapt Biju chakra they should be more amenable to it. The root ninja ducked his head once more. Understood, Otsutsuki-san. I will relay your wishes to Lord Danzo. He then vanished as soon as he came. Naruto stretched and popped his neck. Well, that should be interesting, to say the least. He mumbled these final words and continued home. Elsewhere in the elemental nations, Kumogakur. Ha ha ha, the Hokage is a fool. He wishes the nations to bring every Jinchuriki to Konoha to show our might. Even if they have the 9 tails, their Jinchuriki is a brat and won't be able to control it. The rakage of Kumogakur, scoffed laughed heavily at the letter on his desk. No strong Sharingan, no Uzumakis, a pathetic Jinchuriki, a washed-up old Hokage. All of this and they dare to question our might. Roared and slammed his fist down on his desk, cracking his table in half. Mabui, send a letter to Konoha. We will be present at the Chunin exams. Sunagakur. The Case-Cage stared at his invitation to the Chunin exams with a flat face. They shouldn't worry, we have every intention of sending our Jinchuriki to your village, Hiruzen. He then looked at another message already open and read. He recognizes it as a letter from his ally. My son will not be the only one present, either, it seems. Konoha's days truly are numbered. The Case-Cage then grabbed both letters and shredded them in gold dust. Iwagakur. Quote. The Tsuchikage looked at the invitation to Konoha. What a fool. Inviting hostile Jinchuriki into their home is begging for destruction. I'd claim ulterior motives if it wasn't from that foolish third Hokage. If the other villages received this letter, Konoha will fall. The Tsuchikage then rubbed his back and looked at his secretary. We will not be going to the Chunin exams, especially hosted by Konoha. We will, however, stage on the border during them. We will have a great opportunity if things play out the way I foresee. Yes, Tsuchikage-sama. The secretary then left. The old cage then looked out the window with an uncomfortable expression. I still can't shake the weird feeling that something is off. If only someone could take this damn position from me that was worthy. Instead he chose to push off those feelings and focus on his future plans. Kurigakur. The Mizukage stared at his invitation letter. There would be no way he'd consider this. But for some reason, he felt compelled to go. The same compulsion that led him to purge those traitorous bloodline users. The same compulsion that was slowly driving his sanity to the breaking point. But, due to either arrogance, pride, or compulsion, he felt he must go. To prove a point, his strength, his power, his status. Yes, that's why I'll go. Those filthy bloodline users won't be able to do anything while I'm gone anyways. With himself properly convinced, he sent a letter back to Konoha. I won't let them think I'm a coward. I will meet this challenge head on. What else could this be but a challenge? Chapter 7, The Wave Mission Part 1. Phew, sorry guys. I'm a parent now. I was missing for a while, sleep deprived with a baby ha ha ha. I'm back now though. I was gonna make a super long chapter as an apology, but I thought it would be weird to have a 20k long chapter randomly, so I'm breaking it up a little. Also in news for people who like my Madara descendant story, I am a couple chapters in on some new content for it, but I lost the beta who was helping me write it. To be honest, my style of writing on it is a little different since it isn't as polished up as my beta had it. If you know any betas that like adding some detail or finesse into the work for me, please send them my way and they will receive credit where it's due. I'd like to start releasing those chapters very soon. Anyways, I kept you waiting long enough. Ria out. 2 weeks passed by quickly for Team 7, or so it seemed. For the younger members, the D-ranked missions seemed to elongate every minute of their lives. Painting fences, walking dogs, carrying boxes from point A to point B, and the dreaded retrievals of Tora the cat, these tasks were even starting to wear down the young Otsutsuki. Starting a new day, Naruto was now walking to his team's meeting place. He quietly sighed and grumbled as he got closer. I swear if I have to see Tora again today, I will personally go to the fire capital and sink the entire town into the earth. Fufufu, as amusing as that would be, wouldn't that be damaging to the leaf considering the daimyo sends funds here? Don't pout, young man. Kaguya chided back in his mind. Naruto grumbled again. It doesn't hurt to fantasize, does it? Kaguya Sofly laughed in response as he finally made it to his destination. He stood comfortably near a tree and saw Sakura approaching quickly, with Sasuke walking at a leisurely pace. Hi Naruto-kun, you didn't have to wait too long did you? Sakura happily chirped. Naruto calmly smiled at her and held a hand in a casual wave to greet Sasuke, who then sent one back before returning his hand to his pocket. No, not at all, I just arrived. We just need to wait for slave driver sensei so we can do another depressing mission. Naruto then looked down with a slightly sad expression. Sasuke then huffed. I'm getting sick of these missions, I'd rather focus on training if the only choice is that or these damn D-ranked missions. Well, my cute little genins, Kakashi suddenly appeared in a flurry of leaves with a hand rustling Sasuke's head. Today may be your lucky day. I feel you guys have earned a C-rank mission. Sasuke quickly swatted away Kakashi's hand, but then his eyes widened for a second. Then he smirked. It's about time. Naruto and Sakura's shoulders both untensed and let loose a breath of relief. After a decent walk to the Hokage's office, Team 7 now found themselves in front of the third Hokage. Iruka was standing to the side of the desk sorting scrolls for missions. Sarutobi, finishing up some paperwork, finally looked up and addressed the group. Team 7, here for a routine mission. Kakashi let loose a lazy wave while reading his book. Nah, I believe the kiddos are finally ready for AC ranked mission. Their teamwork is pretty darn good and everyone should be ready to go, right? He then looked back at his genin who were all nodding emphatically. The Hokage chuckled, but suddenly Iruka stepped up with a frown on his face. You plan on letting fresh genin take AC ranked mission? How irresponsible, I expected more from you Kakashi. Iruka then shook his head in disappointment. The three genin then took a step back as they saw Kakashi snap his book shut. When he finally placed his book into his pouch on his hip, a slight killing intent began leaking from the one-eyed jonin. You expected more from me. I'm sorry, why should I care about your opinion? I don't think a glorified pencil pusher's thoughts should have any weight on my team, my genin, and my soldiers. Watch your mouth, Chunin. Suddenly the killing intent faded away and Kakashi looked back at Sarutobi as if he didn't just talk down to his assistant for the day. Iruka, slightly intimidated, still decided to press onward considering his former students were involved. Hokage-sama, he was interrupted by the Hokage holding his hand up toward him. Drop it Iruka, Kakashi is right. Besides, Team 7 has the best record at the moment, and is the most disciplined in terms of composition. If any genin team is deserving of AC rank, it is them. Go bring in the client that just arrived this morning. Hiruzen then flicked his wrist in dismissal. Iruka hesitated, but then bowed deeply. Understood, Lord Hokage. He then left the room. Hiruzen watched the retreating figure, then turned towards Kakashi. What was that Kakashi? I haven't seen you that serious in a long time. Kakashi just shrugged. I have a good team, and I won't let misplaced goodwill stunt the development of my team. Plus I'm trying out a new style of slave driving, my team, as Naruto puts it. I find it quite entertaining and it's been keeping me in a good mood. Kakashi then pulled back out his smut. I won't let someone stop my new form of entertainment. Everybody else in the room sweat dropped. Well at least you are in better spirits Kakashi. The uncomfortable tension was then broken by the door opening, revealing Iruka guiding in an old man dressed like a laborer. He had a sleeveless black laborer's top and light pants, with a towel hanging across his shoulders. He had glasses, scraggly gray hair that wrapped around the front into an equally scraggy beard. He unsteadily made it into the room, then looked up with slightly intoxicated, glassy eyes. He then looked up each individual shinobi and scoffed. TCH, you really expect a bunch of brats and a one-eyed man to get me home safely? Kakashi then looked up from his book and glanced at Tazuna. Did you say something? Sasuke and Sakura, frustrated with the old man's outburst, were about to say something when they saw Naruto pull out a handkerchief from his kimono top and hold it up to his nose with a disgusted face and looked around with his pale eyes watering. I suddenly smell sweat, alcohol, and piss. Kakashi-sensei, it's stinging my eyes. My eyes. I can't see. Then Naruto started walking in the general direction where Kakashi's voice came from with a hand up as if he was feeling for anything. Kakashi, seeing what was happened chuckled internally and played along. My dear student, your eyes have turned pale, can you see me? Okami, Hokage-sama, the client's smell has blinded a clan heir. At those words, Tazuna confusedly looked at Naruto aimlessly walking around towards the one-eyed ninja. That's when he finally looked into the white-haired genin's eyes to find the pupil completely white. Holy shit, the kid actually went blind. Do I really smell that bad? Wait, a clan heir. This is getting worse, I could get executed if he's attached to the wrong clan. Tazuna started to nervously walk forward but then stopped when he heard snickering from the two other kids. He then looked back at the pale-eyed boy to see a evil grin on his face. Hey, you damn brat. I was worried there for a moment. Naruto then walked back to his team with a blank expression as if that whole moment didn't happen. It was made worse when he then turned towards Tazuna and turned his head and looked at the client curiously. I apologize, did you say something sir? Surely not. Anyways, nice to meet you sir, I am Naruto. This is Sasuke and Sakura, and our Jonin Kakashi. For safety concerns, we will not disclose our last names. Tazuna, slightly irritated, still decided to introduce himself. Yeah, sure whatever. I'm Tazuna, the greatest bridge builder the elemental nations has ever seen. Be lucky you get to escort me back home, punk. Kakashi then looked over at his students. Alright kiddos, go pack for a long mission and meet me at the village gate in 30 minutes. The client and I will meet you there. Understood. All three shouted and left. Tazuna then turned to Kakashi nervously. That kid didn't actually go blind, right? I've only seen eyes that pale on people that are blind. Kakashi eyes smiled back at the client. I can promise that despite how it looks, he could spot a fly from several kilometers away and has the best eyesight out of all of us. I highly doubt anyone would be able to get the drop on my genin when he is a walking watchtower. Tazuna was a little confused, but actually calmed down and took a deep breath. Good. That's good, he spoke quietly. Kakashi, hearing that, turned towards the Hokage and gave a discreet sign before walking out with Tazuna. 30 minutes later. Are y'all stupid? Where's your bags? Tazuna said as he saw Sasuke, Naruto, and Sakura walking up with only the clothes on their back and their ninja pouches. Naruto then stuck his hand into his sleeve and pulled out a scroll with a formal smile, while the other two pulled out one from various places. No need to worry about us, client-san. Kakashi then prompted everyone to start their walk, of course at Tazuna's pace towards the land of waves. Tazuna then looked over to Naruto. It's Tazuna, brat. Understood, client-san. That means call me by my name. Tazuna spoke with a tick mark appearing on his head. I will call you by your name then, client-san. Then stop calling me client-san. Understood, I will not directly call you client-san either. Quote ellipsis quote. Quote ellipsis quote. Say my name. Excuse me. Say my name so I know you understand. Naruto then looked at Sasuke with a look of confusion. The client appears to have an issue with me. Would you mind asking the client what the issue is? Sasuke turned towards Tazuna with a smirk. Client-san, what's the problem you have with my teammate? Tazuna finally looked like he was going to blow a gasket. Damn it, I said to stop calling me client-san. Sasuke, still smirking, looked over back to Naruto. He appears to be angry at me, something about calling him client-san. He then shrugged. But I haven't called the client client-san. Yeah, I don't get it either, maybe we should ask Sakura to check. Sasuke's smile grew wider. A grown man wouldn't yell at a young girl, right? You'd have to be pretty pathetic to do that. Naruto's smile now matched Sasuke's. Of course, how ignorant of me to not consider that. He turned towards Sakura who was trying hard not to laugh. Sakura-chan. She took a deep breath and put on a cordial smile. Yes, Naruto-kun. Would you please ask the client why he seems so displeased? As Sasuke says, I don't think he'd yell at you. Only scum would shout down a young girl as a grown man. Tazuna braced himself for the bullshit and tensed. Do not give in. Tazuna-san, Sakura calmly asked. Like an angel had appeared in his presence, he smiled sweetly towards her. Yes dear. Why are you mad at my teammates? Have they made you mad somehow? Client-san. Goddamn brats, I swear all. He was suddenly interrupted by the pale-eyed heathen who was staring hard down the road. Eyes up, we will have 2 uninvited guests soon. Both hostile. Act natural and watch the puddle coming up in a few minutes. Please stay between us, client-san. Kakashi then spoke up before Tazuna exploded again. Good catch Naruto, everyone maintain diamond formation. I want to see how you handle this as a team, so I'll act as bait. Act normal, client-san. Tazuna was wound up, but was trembling in rage quietly and fully alert. Kakashi caught on to how cooperative he was being. Almost like he expected someone to possibly attack them. Something he'd definitely bring up after the oncoming incident. A couple minutes passed and the other ninjas spotted the puddle Naruto was referring to. They chose to ignore it and walked past when 2 ninja immediately hopped out of the puddle with a spiked chain connecting their gauntlets to each other. They sped up and wrapped Kakashi and pulled, tearing the Jonin to bloody shreds. The 2 with scratched out mist headbands cackled. Brother, the babysitter is down. Let's take care of these kids and then take out the target. Easiest money we've made, the other rogue nin replied. Both apparent brothers then turned and eyed down the remaining members of Team 7, all of which looked on with a blank expression. Naruto then snapped his finger to get his team's attention. Sakura. Sakura nodded while keeping her eyes locked onto the brothers. Immobilize, I'll stay and guard Tazuna-san. Sasuke, left. Naruto, right. Don't kill. Simple enough. Sasuke, sound good. HN. Naruto nodded as both boys charged forward. Watch the chains, they are covered in a liquid. Worry about yourself, I can see it too. Sasuke said as he jumped into the air. The demon brothers smirked seeing the Uchiha jump into the air, considering him easy pickings. They were going to meet him in the air and prepared to jump when one of the brothers, Gozu, saw his feet ensnared to the ground with vines. Shit. The other brother, Mizu, jumped failing to notice his brother not following him. Naruto finally made it to Gozu. You seem to be having some issues. Gozu went to put up his arms to block any incoming strikes, but Naruto lowered his body and delivered gentle fist strikes to his legs. Gozu yelped in surprise and went to swat the hands delivering blows, but he couldn't feel his legs and began to fall. Not before Naruto stepped off his knee, spun, and kicked him hard in the chest though. Gozu went flying into a tree and was knocked unconscious when his head bounced off the wood. Mizu, still on his way to intercept Sasuke in the air, suddenly felt the chain get pulled hard from his brother being launched away. The distraction gave Sasuke the opportunity to bless Mizu's head with the heel of his foot, spiking him downwards. When he hit the floor, Mizu was quick to share the land of dreams with his brother. Naruto and Sasuke both shared a smirk and dragged their respective missing nin back to the group. After a few debilitating chakra points were hit on each ninja, Kakashi walked out of the forest clapping his hands. Well done, Team 7. Great reaction, boys. Great situational awareness as well, Sakura. He then looked at Naruto. How long will their chakra pathways be blocked and how long will they be knocked out? Naruto nodded and slightly bowed, resuming a polite demeanor he felt was appropriate since all of the questions were serious ones. They can be woken up immediately. They will not be able to move for the rest of the day either. Unless you'd like me to take more permanent measures. Kakashi flippantly waved his hand. Nah, we'll deal with that in a second. We have something to deal with first. These two are rogue Chunin from Mist, the demon brothers. What's more worrisome though, is that the two clearly said they had a target. The one-eyed ninja gained a serious expression and turned towards Tazuna, who flinched. There are definitely some great targets among us, but they definitely looked at you and disregarded my team. Care to inform me why we've barely left and rogue ninja are after you, Client-san? All four ninja then stared at Tazuna, causing him to sweat. Okay, I'll tell you, just please. Hear my story first. Tazuna then told the ninja about what was happening in Wave Country, Gedo taking over, his construction of a bridge, and the attempts on his life made by Gedo to stop its construction. Please, I know I lied, but we don't have the income to pay for a proper ranked mission. My daughter and grandson's life is in your hands. Just please. Tazuna ended his story with a desperate plea. Kakashi let loose a sigh and turned towards his team. We really should go back, the mission parameters have drastically increased. Opinions. Sakura seemed rather nervous but replied first. We should really head back to Konoha. But I'd also feel really bad about leaving people to die. Do you think we can do it, Kakashi-sensei? Kakashi then glanced at Naruto, knowing damn well they can handle it, but still left the decision to his students. There is a chance, but I am asking your opinion, not mine. Sakura glanced at her teammates. Sasuke just smirked. We can handle it, Sakura. These two were Chunin and we didn't break a sweat. Sakura did seem to calm down a little after hearing that, but still turned towards Naruto to get his opinion. Naruto simply shrugged. I only care about Konoha's interests. It may sound cold, but this could go two ways. He held up a finger. 1. We could be successful and Konoha will gain prestige with Wave. Konoha could suffer the loss of losing the proper pay for a mission, but the potential business with another country would make up for that. He then held up another finger. 2. We fail. Konoha gets laughed at for sending a single fresh genin squad to fight a corrupt tycoon just because Client-san here wanted to weave a sad web about his family that could have just left the country at any point. Instead of showing up drunk by himself, he could have relocated his family to Konoha and put in a formal request for assistance. He then looked coldly at Tazuna who shivered. Is that what you want, Client-san? To put my team in danger because of your drunk negligence? Tazuna looked away in shame. Naruto then turned his eyes back towards Sakura. Option 2 will not happen, Sakura-chan. I will follow your lead. Sasuke and I can handle quite a bit, as can Kakashi-sensei. You have trained with us and have all the tools to make a decision. Sakura thought long and hard, then looked over at Tazuna before sighing and turning towards Kakashi. I am scared sensei, but I won't betray my team's confidence. We are willing to proceed. Sasuke and Naruto both smirked while Kakashi scratched the back of his head. Alright, my cute genin, looks like Client-san gets his wish. At those words, Tazuna released the tension he was holding. Kakashi then smiled. Let's get ready to move. I'm gonna send a message via dog to the Hokage to come pick up the demon brothers. Alive I guess. Naruto, can you make sure they don't get away? Naruto nodded and jabbed the unconscious ninja several more times in the stomach, making their entire body unable to move. Sasuke then spoke up. So how long will it take for those hits to wear off? Naruto just stood up unbothered and started to walk back towards their team. They won't, I've blown up their tenketsu points along their spine. His teammate shuddered. Sakura nervously looked at the missing nin. Don't you think that's too cruel? Naruto shrugged. What do you think will happen to them when they get back to Konoha? They'll get a foot rub. They would be tortured for information, mind-walked, and then discarded or thrown into a cell to die an even more sad slow death. At least this way, the torture will be skipped. It's almost a mercy. Sakura once again realized the profession she chose was not a kind one. Fu. You do love traumatizing that poor girl, don't you? She holds your opinion and facts in high regard. Kaguya taunted. Naruto internally shook his head. I'm not doing it to traumatize her, this is just the part of the world she chose to expose herself to. Sakura took a deep breath and resolved herself to move forward. Later that same day, the group finally crossed the water to get into wave, but something started to make Naruto uncomfortable. You feel it, don't you? Kaguya then stood from her chair in the mindscape and looked in a direction. Naruto nodded his head. Yes, I can feel 3 signatures. 2 are surely enemies, but the third. It's like ours. Could it be that our lost family has finally decided to come home? Kaguya took a second to think, closed her eyes, and then nodded slowly. The possibility is very high, but it was born from my distress. Do not show weakness until I can interact with it. Simply keep an eye out for when they want to interact with us. Naruto made a noise of agreement and spoke out loud to his team. Stay alert, 2 signatures 2 kilometers out. He then activated his Byakugan and looked farther ahead as his team stopped to hear the report. One tall male, scratched kiri headband and bandages covering the lower part of his face. Large flat cleaver blade, camo pants, no shirt. One shorter adolescent male, wearing a kiri hunter mask and thick winter-style kimono. Unusual chakra is coming from him. A Kekkei Genkei I'm assuming, but I have no idea what it is since I've never seen it. Kakashi started thinking hard. He then pulled out a black book and started flipping pages until he found a picture to show to Naruto. Is this what he looks like? A sharp nod was the Otsutsuki's response. Looks like we are dealing with Zabuza Momochi, the demon of the mist. He's a former 7 swordsman of the mist, so he is a high-level threat. I'm more concerned with the hunter nin though with him. Are they not fighting, Naruto? Nope, they might as well be drinking tea and playing shogi with how comfortable they are with each other. They are just sitting in the trees in what I'm assuming is a future ambush on us. Naruto shrugged. Kakashi's sweat dropped. His eyes are unfair, any ambush or group might as well be standing in an open field. The Sharingan don't feel as overpowered anymore. It's safe to assume they are together then. Team, prepare for contact. Naruto, you remember how you absorbed the fire burning down the forest in our test? Can you do that with things other than fire? Naruto nodded. As long as it is chakra-induced or runs on chakra, I can absorb it. Kakashi put his hand under his chin and closed his eyes. Good, the 7 swordsmen of the mist are famous for fighting in the hidden mist jutsu, a chakra-heavy mist that they use for assassinations and cover for their actions. I feel it's safe to assume the closer we get, the heavier the mist will get. Is there a limit to how much you can absorb? There is not, especially if I incorporate it into my chakra pool or expel it. Kakashi shook his head disbelievingly. I don't know what they feed you in that compound, but that's ridiculous to hear, even for me. Sigh. Alright, you are going to be on absorption duty. Sakura, you will protect the client. Sasuke, you will help her, but keep an eye out for the hunter nin. If you get eyes on them, let Naruto know so he can support you. We have no idea what level the hunter nin can fight at, so it's best to be cautious. I will handle Zabuza. A round of Rogers were heard all round while Tazuna started to tense at the game plan. He felt better knowing the ninja group had a game plan, but he was not excited for what was to come. Naruto then looked at his sensei. Can I get one of those black books? It can help me identify potential threats if we are going to be out of the village for a while. Kakashi thought about it, but nodded and handed the book to him. That's not a bad idea, have mine. It's called a bingo book and has a profile for every ninja with a decent or higher threat level from all villages. Naruto slightly bowed in thanks and started to move with the rest of his team. -10 minutes later. Zabuza was sitting in a tree watching the unusual group of ninja walk into his range at a civilian pace, his target in the middle. There's Tazuna. Looks like one Jonin, Sharingan Kakashi. That might present some trouble, but I have a way out with Haku if it becomes too much to handle. 3 brats. 1 dark-haired boy, 1 pink-haired girl, and 1 silver-haired girl. Nah, that's a boy, probably like Haku and is misleading, but how he walks he can be identified. Pale eyes too, Hyuga. Definitely a rookie since he never used his Byakugan to check the surrounding area. Easy pickings. Zabuza then started to weave hand signs to cast his hidden mist jutsu. Suddenly the area started to become saturated in mist. Getting ready to start the show, Zabuza stood up on his branch and was about to throw his voice into the mist when he noticed the mist starting to thin out again. Confused, Zabuza crouched back down again and watched it thin, only to cast it again. The mist started to thicken only to start thinning at an even faster rate. When the mist completely disappeared, he saw all of his future combatants standing in the middle of the clearing next to the water completely calm. As if the mist appearing and disappearing was supposed to happen. As he squinted to look at them, he suddenly saw that the silver hair boy had his hand up and then began to let it drop to his side. He then turned his head over his shoulder and smirked, looking in his direction. That little shit knew I was here the whole time. A tick mark emerged on Zabuza's head. He then jumped down onto the ground and started walking towards them. Alright, you little shit. Maybe you weren't as bad as I thought. I assume you had brain damage and forgot to use your Byakugan to check your surroundings. The boy dared to laugh. You sat in the tree knowing I have Byakugan and hoped I didn't use it. Okay, yeah, it did sound like a stupid thing to do. Regardless, you are guarding my prize. Even if he's being protected by Sharingan Kakashi, I recommend you cut your losses and hand him over before this gets ugly. Kakashi then stepped forward to face him. Unfortunately, we were hired to guard Client San here. We can't just let you do that. The rest of his little minions all nodded in approval, except for the silver-haired Hyuga, who just stood there with his fist up to his chin like he was thinking. Zabuza turned his gaze to the boy. You got something to say, brat? He nodded. You were hired by Gato, correct? Yeah, what's it to you? He made a noise of contemplation. How much did he hire you for? More than you can afford. I highly doubt that. The boy simply shrugged. Zabuza let out a heavy sigh. Listen kid, even if you did hire me, I was paid to do a job. You know, as shinobi have our pride on the line. I won't get contracts anymore if I just turn on every client I have. The boy slowly nodded. I can see you try to have pride in your way of life. What would you do if I can guarantee you a permanent client in the Hyuga? Suddenly the boy's whole team turned to him in disbelief. Without looking away from Zabuza, Kakashi spoke. Listen Naruto. I can see what you're trying to do, but even if Zabuza agrees, Lord Third wouldn't allow a known missing nin to just simply stroll into Konoha. Even with your privileges and sponsorships. The now identified Naruto simply shrugged. I highly doubt that, but it isn't the time or place for that. Do you really insist on fighting Konoha on this contract of yours, Zabuza-san? For some reason Zabuza felt that this question would impact his life a lot more than he previously thought. Sorry kid, it's nothing personal. I got a job to do. If it means anything, I'll make your death quick. The boy then let out a sad chuckle and clicked his teeth. It's always hubris. Very well, you may try. At those words, Kakashi immediately lunged at Zabuza. Several minutes later, both Kakashi and Zabuza were heavily winded from their battle and had reached a stalemate. Naruto saw the chakra in both combatants dropping steadily, with Kakashi's dropping at a more increased rate due to the Sharingan. Kakashi, breathing heavily, turned his glance quickly to Naruto and saw him fresh and waiting with his arms folded. Need me to wrap things up? We will probably have to carry you if you keep this up. Kakashi thought about the proposal. He was tired and the Sharingan was indeed taxing him to the point of needing to get carried after this fight. Zabuza was worn down and he was sure that Naruto could clean up, but he was still worried about the lack of Hunter Nin here. Maybe it would be better to swap and keep an eye out with Sasuke to protect the client. Naruto clearly knew where the Hunter Nin was and wasn't making a move, so Kakashi felt it was safe to assume nothing was happening. Swap. As soon as those words left his mouth, he and Naruto swapped in a smokeless kawarimi. Zabuza, shocked at how quick the two switched, was caught off guard by the boy suddenly running low to the ground at him. He went to deliver a killing blow by swiping down when his wrist suddenly went weak and he accidentally threw his weapon over the boy. He looked down and saw 2 fingers retreating from his wrist, only to feel 10 more pricks in his ankles, calves, and thighs. Zabuza grunted loudly as he started to fall forward, only to be caught by the forehead by the boy's hand. I'll be taking this back now. No need for it to dissipate when you die. Zabuza glanced up and saw a look on the boy's face that looked like a hardened killer. Confused by the words, Zabuza was slightly stunned as he felt life leave his body through the boy's hand. He's absorbing my chakra. Zabuza coughed out blood. So he was the one who got rid of the mist by absorbing it. He then let loose a loud grunt. Right before Naruto was finished reclaiming Zabuza's chakra, he saw Tsunban flying towards Zabuza's throat. They hit Zabuza hard and made the grown man go limp in his hand. He simply let the body drop. Foo. Seems his young friend has come to pick him up. Kaguya chuckled out. He nodded as a hunter nin about his height flickered in front of him and started speaking. I thank you for catching Zabuza. He is a wanted criminal and I'm to bring him back to Kiri. Yup, definitely picking him up since he isn't going to burn his body here. Naruto inwardly agreed. Go ahead and take him, he isn't Konoha's problem after all. Thank you for your service. Naruto then casually reached a hand out to offer a handshake. The hunter nin slightly stiffened at the gesture but decided to shake his hand. As soon as their hands made contact, Naruto clamped his hand down and started absorbing a good chunk of his chakra. This caught the hunter nin off guard and dropped down to a knee with a deep inhale. He looked up and saw Naruto staring into his eyes. I highly recommend you take your friend here and leave. You are a fool if you didn't think I saw you here since the beginning. My eyes see all. He then released his hand and the hunter nin slightly collapsed, breathing heavily over Zabuza. Go now, before I decide you are a threat to my mission. The hunter nin visibly shivered and started to grab Zabuza before flickering away. Sasuke, who watched the whole exchange, stepped forward. Why did you let him get away? Naruto shrugged. A warning to Gato, they will know I can absorb chakra and it will make them more hesitant. Or, most likely make him angry and fire them. Regardless, we need to take care of our sensei here that recklessly spent almost all of his chakra. He takes priority over that. The attention was then shifted behind them and saw Kakashi collapsing face first into the dirt. Hey, yeah, Kakashi then slightly chuckled while slightly lifting his head. I'm a little tired at the moment, we can deal with whatever that is later. I'm gonna take a nap for a bit, good luck kiddos. His head then smacked back into the dirt and slight snores could be heard. A second passed and all three genin smacked their forehead. Wiping her hand down her face in exasperation, Sakura then turned towards their client. He was still shaky and hiding behind her. Tazuna-san, how far away are we from the town? After blinking and realizing he was indeed the one being spoken to, he stood a little straighter and glanced towards Kakashi. Oh, yeah, we are actually pretty close to my house. Your sensei can get some rest there. After some glances and nods, the boys picked up their sensei and followed closely behind Tazuna. Later that night, Tazuna's house. Team 7 finally made it to Tazuna's house and laid Kakashi down in a spare room. Short introductions from them to Tsunami, Tazuna's daughter, and a more reluctant Inari, Tsunami's son, followed by a small dinner, and watch duty set up for the conscious members of the team left Naruto now sitting in a tree next to the house at midnight. It's here, my son. Kaguya gently prodded her son in his mind to focus in a direction. A mental nod was her response. The Otsutsuki prince reached behind him, put his hand onto the trunk of the tree and poured some chakra, causing another sturdy branch to grow adjacent to his own, and spoke softly. I'd hate to be a bad host if we will be talking here. Wow, this guy is nice. I'll take you up on the offer. Two distinct voices came from nowhere, but soon a Venus flytrap-looking plant started to emerge from the new branch. As it started to grow, suddenly a red-lined black cloak was visible. Red clouds were displayed across the cloak. Suddenly, the flytrap started cracking open, revealing a face and shoulders inside. The face on body, though, were unusual. Green, short and scraggy hair capping half of a pale face smiling cheesily at him, while the other shadowy half was neutral, only the crack of the mouth and beady yellow eye truly visible. And visible it was as it gazed directly into Naruto's own pale orbs. The pale half kept smiling as the black half started to speak. I've observed for quite some time. Your appearance is uncanny, yet you are not her. Your mannerisms too speak of her, but they are also different. You call yourself the Herald of the Rabbit. Do you know who I speak of? Do you know who I am? Kaguya, who was standing in the mindscape watching the exchange, huffed and flopped down in her chair with a pout. He dared to doubt my son. She throws her hands up in defeat and grumbles about her own will, not understanding only to hear the mental chuckle of her prince. Take it easy on him, Usagi Haim. He's been alive for a long time trying to resurrect you and has been among shinobi for all of it. He wants clarification and exact answers, but is speaking in riddle so he doesn't give away information on the off chance I didn't know who you were. It makes sense and proves how devoted he is to you. Doesn't mean I like you being questioned. Naruto chuckles again at the pouting queen. Naruto gives a small smile. You are the will and I am the heart. Usagi Haim is here safe and sound too. He points at his stomach and head. Be at peace, brother. What do you call yourself now? The will's beady eye widened for a second before narrowing. I go by Zetsu. Since no one knows what Zetsu are, I carry it as it is the easiest to say without giving up my purpose. What is this disrespectful name you've given mother? A chuckle pours from the Otsutsuki. Well, Zetsu, Naruto holds out a hand. I'll let the two of you sort that out. Come speak with her yourself. Both black and white half's eyes widen and hesitate, before the black Zetsu's hand reaches and grabs onto the hand. Inside Naruto's mindscape, Kaguya's audience chamber. Black Zetsu, in a full humanoid form instead of half a body, suddenly arrives in a very traditional style palace throne room lit with cyan, white and red lanterns. Across the off-white left walls and pillars are engraved pictures all describing the story of Kaguya Otsutsuki, while the right walls depicted another story, but only a quarter of the walls and pillars were decorated. The biggest images at the start of the right walls was what appeared to be the Gedo Mazo eating the Kyuubi and an image of what looked like Kaguya holding a baby in reverence. From what was heard of that day in particular, Zetsu was now assuming that this whole wall was dedicated to the Herald of the Rabbit. His eyes kept trailing down the empty walls and pillars until his gaze landed on steps at the far end of the room. As he looked up the stairs, there was a very plush chair with a pale woman resting her elbow on the arm, hand-holding her head as she gazed impassively at him. Zetsu's body went stiff with recognition and just realized that he was keeping her waiting due to his curiosity of the walls. He then quickly moved to bottom of the stair and kneeled while staring at her with reverence. "Mother, it is truly you. We must free you from he." "Silence, Zetsu." Kaguya quickly cut off the shadow. "You will not harm my son. Not that you could, but to even attempt will result in your life evacuating the mortal plane. You are my creation, so you are indeed my son and you may call me mother." She then looks at the right wall, specifically her holding Naruto before continuing. "The difference is that my herald is my flesh and blood, not a creation. You were made to act as my will, but he is my inheritor. Untainted, unlike Hagoromo and Homura. Made in my image, my true son and will be treated as such. Do you understand?" Kaguya flatly stared at Zetsu. Zetsu's eyes went wide at the implications and looked down in thought. Kaguya continued. "He has my memories, has followed my lessons, and I intend on him being not only my equal, but beyond me. He will accomplish things I can only dream of. That is why he is my heart. My leaving of this place will not happen until my son has partaken of a chakra fruit." Zetsu's eyes would have fallen out of his face if he wasn't a shadow. "You wish him to ascend as you did. The boy mocks you with pet names and—" "Enough." Zetsu was thoroughly cowed and looked down at the floor. "My son calls me what I allow. His station is above yours and you will do well to remember that. When you entered this mindscape I have seen all you have done in the centuries that have passed. Your schemes and plots were done with the intention of freeing me. I will not pretend that did not happen and that is why I am even having this discussion." Zetsu took a deep breath and looked at his mother. "You care for him?" "Of course. Whether intentional or not, his existence resulted in the chain of events that restored my sanity. He was my descendant before I touched him, and is the only one of my bloodkin to not take from me. He is my greatest priority. Naruto Otsutsuki willed what my clan could never be." After several moments of contemplation, Black Zetsu finally stood and looked at the unfinished wall. "I understand. As I serve you, so will I serve your true heir. I have seen how the shinobi world has evolved and know every shadow in these lands. I will protect and aid my brother in your name if that is what you wish." He took a deep breath, and then calmly exhaled. "The will stands with the heart." Kaguya nods and leans back into her chair. "Go then, help your brother. Our family will be known to all corners of the world once again." "As you command." Zetsu nods and fades away. As soon as he disappears, Kaguya flops into a comfier position on her chair. "My son is rubbing off on me, how tiring." Kaguya looks up to the ceiling. "No more guests. I've talked to one person too many that isn't my son today. If you send any more people here into my home I'll spank you myself, understood?" Back in the lookout tree. Naruto chuckles as he hears his mom shouting. "Soon." Zetsu looks at him again. "What is our new goal then?" "We still are gathering tailed beasts as you were manipulating everyone to do with that group of mercenaries, just bring them to Konoha discreetly now instead of aim." Black Zetsu's eye widened a bit. "How did why?" "She read your memories and sent me your current goals you had." White Zetsu laughed. "That's pretty nifty. Do me next." Naruto just chuckled but Black Zetsu spoke first. "There'd be nothing he'd gain. All of nothing is nothing, since you don't think." White Zetsu groaned and Naruto laughed again. "Well brother, Taki's Jinchuriki will be making their way to Konoha soon. Is there any way you can convince the Akatsuki to go after Iwas?" Black Zetsu thought for a second. "The Akatsuki believe that you are the Gedo Mazo and are craving the tailed beasts to become whole. They are also moving 2 pieces to come speak with you in person. Directly asking them yourself when they approach you to move on Iwa's Jinchuriki will not seem out of place." "Very well, I will do so when the time comes for that encounter to happen. Any odd things to keep an eye on?" Zetsu nodded and both sides spoke. "The 6 tails needs to be found since he ran from Kiri." The Three Tails will be making his way to you, very soon. He was put under a genjutsu and we are pretty sure that Toby is compelling him to come. Can you handle it on your own? The Otsutsuki furrowed his small eyebrows. That is unexpected. I'll have to deal with the situation quickly here and then prepare for that. I only need a little of his Biju chakra, but it seems like he will have to be fully extracted for safety. This will be my first encounter with one personally. So I guess we'll see. I will see if we can move the timetable for your Akatsuki liaison to as soon as possible. Oh. Itachi will be happy to see his baby brother. Both Zetsu halves clearly on two different wavelengths. Naruto sighed. Of course Itachi is part of the group I have to interact with. That alone is going to be a hassle. He could already feel the headache coming from the two seeing each other. Well, we'll deal with that as it happens. If I'm lucky, we can push the interaction outside of Wave. Highly unlikely. I know. Morning in Wave. We need to eliminate Gato immediately. This mission is going to go foobar in the next couple of days and we can't deal with a fight on two fronts. Everyone sat at the table in silence after hearing this statement so early in the morning from their resident Byakugan wielder. Kakashi, who was still recovering, plopped both of his arms across the table. Sasuke looked at Naruto in disbelief and Sakura was wide-eyed, but had to ask. What could have possibly happened and how do you know that? After a heavy sigh, Kakashi looked up and also added in. I agree with Sakura. Zabuza, that hunter Nin, and Gato are already trouble enough. What changed, Naruto? The Otsutsuki prince rubbed his chin in contemplation. Do you want the band-aid ripped off, or context and slow shock? Kakashi let out a weary chuckle, but Sasuke responded. Both. After a nod, Naruto looked around the table. The three-tailed Jinchuriki is coming and it isn't for peace talks. He will also be specifically looking for me. We need to deal with any hostiles here as soon as possible so we don't need to watch our backs. What? Clearly this was the only response Kakashi could give to this information. Sasuke looked curiously. Jinchuriki. Sakura could also only nod in confusion as she wondered what that was too, but judging by the gobsmacked face of Kakashi, it was probably not good. Kakashi regained a little composure and let out a nervous and shaky sigh. They are containers for the Biju, or tailed beasts. The Kyuubi that attacked Konoha is one of them. There are 9 total, all with an increased amount of tails. The Jinchuriki of these Biju can harness the power of these natural disasters and typically act as a war repellent so nations don't just go to war over petty disputes. The Three Tails is supposed to end the Mizukage though. He then looked at Naruto sternly. So you care to tell me how 1, you got this information and 2, what or when you had the time to piss off the Mizukage? Naruto looked into Kakashi's eyes. You are aware of my full pledge to Konoha, correct? He nodded. Then you should know now that my existence is enough to piss off most Jinchuriki. The Biju will not be pleased to know they may potentially not roam free anymore. As for how I got this information, my rank and station allows me a network of information. That is all I can say at the moment. Sakura looked at Naruto in worry. Your existence. Naruto looked between Sakura and Sasuke. Kakashi, I am going to go upstairs and inform them of my pledge in a sealed room away from listening ears. I owe my family that much since they are put into danger at the moment. Kakashi just slowly nodded and then slumped back down on the table. This is absolutely ridiculous. AC rank escort, to a possible A rank, to a now most definite S rank. I need to let Konoha know to send backup now. He pulled out a scroll, wrote something down quickly, summoned a dog, and then laid back on the table after the chakra usage. Fuck my life. I'm retiring. These kids can take the Chunin exam and then leave me be. 20 minutes later, Naruto came back down with 2 stunned teens that just went over and flopped on the table just like their sensei. The Otsutsuki chuckled and walked outside. When he glanced around, he saw Zetsu standing in the tree they met up in last night. After a short beckon, Naruto followed him into the woods.